John, an inveterate nerd, receives an advertisement on his computer, asking whether the young man is bored with real life and would like to feel truly alive. The hero's room is in chaos. Things are scattered, there are piles of food packaging and garbage around. Despite all this, John justifies himself by saying that he simply hasn't found a job yet, and aggressively clicks the mouse on the screen, closing the pop-up window. Suddenly, the young man becomes frightened. A grimace of horror appears on his face, causing the lollipop to fall out of his mouth. In front of him on the computer monitor, a portal opens, drawing him deeper, and the atmosphere around him changes dramatically. John screams in fear and indignation as he flies inside the portal. Previously, the guy did not believe that all this could actually happen, but now he realizes the complexity of the situation. While he is flying, out of nowhere the hero is informed that he made the right choice, and soon the god-level system will provide its full service. John screams because of the injustice towards him, because he was not going to choose anything. The guy tries to break the signs with inscriptions from the surging rage. He finds himself in the future, in the year 2696. 30 years ago, the planet Earth was subjected to an alien invasion, but thanks to nuclear weapons, it was saved from extraterrestrial life forms. However, zombies and mutated animals appeared on the planet. For the surviving people, the path of military perfection is now open. A red-haired man bursts into the room, aggressively kicking the door with great force. This guy's name is Carl. He is John's roommate and is a student in the 29th group of Starline Academy. Stopping in the middle of the room, the guy is embarrassed by the sight of his sleeping friend and falls silent for a moment. Suddenly, he starts screaming again, grabbing his classmate by the neck, demanding the guy give him the food he was sprinkling on him. Carl pushes his neighbor towards the wall with all his might, and he breaks it with his own weight, because the blow was very strong. The guy standing behind the red-haired guy laughs sarcastically, but asks what will happen if John dies. To which the guy replies that he has practically become a real warrior, and they will not ask him for the death of a scumbag, like his neighbor. Pushing the main character, Carl says that for such a non-entity, carrying food and washing clothes is already a great honor. There is chaos all around. Piles of dirty clothes are lying around, giving off an unpleasant smell. The red-haired guy smiles, saying that his neighbor, by not bringing him food, disgraced him in the presence of his friends, so if he dies, he deserves this fate because of his disobedience. He suddenly steps on the suffering guy's lying hand, pressing down with the weight of his entire body. John opens his eyes, breathing heavily, his body and mind clearly under extreme stress. The protagonist feels a piercing pain in the area of his limb and makes great efforts to get rid of this sensation. While Carl continues to mock, the guy tries to figure out where he is, because a few moments ago he was in his own computer chair in front of the monitor. When John finds the strength to get up, his attacker tells him that he is tough enough to be a piece of trash. He turns around with a sharp movement, kicking the protagonist in the stomach, causing him to fly off again. Blood is dripping from the guy's mouth, but he still continues to think about how he ended up in this situation. He probably traveled in time. John falls to the ground again, trying to catch his breath and recover from the pain he experienced. He cannot understand who and why arranged such a disgusting move for him. In this world, the guy had no weight, was a scumbag and a target for bullying and laughter. The thing is that he had no talent for improvement. Not only his classmates were cursing, but also the principal, who also did not believe that John was capable of anything. Many people wished death on the main character, because he does not deserve to exist, since he does not have the talents necessary for this world. It's no wonder that the guy who owned this body didn't want to live in it. Now John will have to clean up everything that happens. In any case, it is not in his principles to tolerate ridicule and bullying from others. Carl asks his friends to pay attention to how the look on the guy's face has changed. He gets angry again, because this is what irritates him the most. Then the red-haired guy attacks his own neighbor again, hitting him in the stomach, urging him to surrender and be obedient. Despite all this, the main character is not ready to live like this anymore. He remains standing, resolutely refusing. Then, Carl starts beating him again, saying that in this case, he will be in trouble. The attacker keeps asking the same question over and over again in order to make sure that the neighbor will continue to obey him. John stands up and starts yelling at the offender that he will never in his life indulge a person like Carl, who uses force to oppress the weak. The guy is stunned by what he heard and looks at the hero in surprise. He didn't expect such a reaction from him at all. If John was transported in space and time, then surely he should now have some skill that is provided in such cases in various stories. Suddenly, various windows appear in front of the main character, informing him that anger has been accumulated. They offer to use a special attack. At this time, Carl attacks again. It is necessary to act immediately. It is worth making a decision. Then, John takes a swing and decides to activate the accumulated power strike suggested by the system. The boys clash their fists, repelling each other's attacks, gusts of wind appearing around them from the speed and force emanating from them. Thanks to this blow, the main character manages to break Carl's bone. It shatters into a bunch of small pieces. The students who came with the red-haired man watch what is happening around them with fear. No one expected that John would ever be able to fight back against the offender. One of them slowly turns around. A grimace of horror appears on his face. He does not believe what he saw with his own eyes. The guys run up to Carl, worried and very concerned for their neighbor, asking him not to die. Remaining conscious, the red-haired man squeezes out a request to be taken to the hospital. Suddenly, the boys look up at John, who had just managed to punch their friend, breaking his arm. The main character makes an angry face, instilling fear in the offenders, making it clear to them that it is better not to mess with him. Then, the students of the academy take Carl in their arms and quickly leave the room, so as not to run into even bigger problems. When they exit, John bends over and exhales tiredly. He couldn't hold you in his arms any longer. The used accumulated power strike has too strong a side effect. The young man sits down on the chair, but at that moment the system appears in front of him again. It has detected the first use of the blow. For defeating the enemy, it provides one rotation. John presses the button to spin the wheel of fortune in the hope that money will appear. Money is very important for the hero now, because with his current savings he won't even have enough for treatment. And finally, the arrow points to a window giving 10,000 in alliance currency. The guy breathes a sigh of relief, sliding lower in his chair. After some time, he comes to the doctor's office to heal the injuries he received. A nice blonde nurse appears in front of John and calls him baby. Based on this address, it is not difficult to assume that the people are familiar. But to make sure, John asks the question directly. Then, the nurse says that the guy is in last place in the Starlight ranking, so he is widely known in the academy. The main character asks to stop calling him baby, because it sounds quite offensive. It is better to call him by his name. The blonde girl is not at all embarrassed by this request. It even seems to amuse her. She places her hand on John's chest and says that they will soon find out whether he is a baby or not. The nurse smiles and asks the patient to undress and go to the place indicated to her. Hearing this, the main character does not believe his own ears and asks whether he needs to take off all his clothes. The girl giggles and says that she can leave her panties on, although if the guy decides to take them off, she won't object. After the young man began to undress, she began to greedily examine the patient's body. Lowering his gaze lower, he comments that the guy really is no longer a baby. The nurse is very embarrassing to John. If he doesn't hold back, he can leave the title of virgin right in this office. Lying down in a special apparatus, the girl specifies how much the restorative solution costs, to which the young man takes the most expensive one that he can afford. It seems that the previous owner of the body had it much worse than the hero could have imagined. He was clearly beaten and badly injured. Now that he has appeared, he will not allow anyone to touch or oppress him. The medical device closes, makes a characteristic sound, and announces that the preparatory stage is finally complete. The body analysis has also been completed. The approximate recovery time of the body will be about 5 hours. The recovery process is being initialized. In 5 hours, when the restoration is complete, a completely new John will come into this world. In the 29th group, the students discuss plans. The quota of people who will go to the 20th sector this time for practice in a real combat situation is about 20 people. The teacher announces that all warriors of the initial stage in their group will be able to participate. After looking around the classroom, the teacher asks where Carl is, since he is not in class. The red-haired guy's friends report that he is currently undergoing medical surgery in another sector. The man is very surprised, because he does not understand what happened to Carl, and decides to ask his classmates what the matter is. Then, unexpectedly for everyone, the guy says that John beat up his classmate and broke almost all of his ribs. Arguments begin in the audience. Everyone is very stunned and puzzled by what they heard, because the main character could never even fight back. Carl's friend tries to justify himself, explains that he was with him at that moment and recorded the video with his own eyes. The teacher rubs the bridge of his nose and asks to calm down. The discussion center will not have to go to sector number 20 this time. Suddenly, a changed and recovered John appears at the door, asking if he can go for practice in a real combat situation. The class starts to whisper, because the main character is behaving completely differently, as if he has been replaced. The teacher explains to the boy that he shouldn't get into trouble, because the 20th sector is too dangerous, and before going there, he needs to reach the level of a basic warrior. A classmate laughs and explains that this zone is teeming with zombies and mutants. Does John really want to part with his head so much? The main character's expression immediately changes, smiling at what was said. Then he asks if he can get to the test if he beats this guy in a fight. The classmate smiles widely at what he heard, because he doesn't believe that John, whom he knew before, is capable of something like this. Despite this reaction, the hero continues to smile and asks whether the disputant will risk testing his proposal. Suddenly, the interlocutor stands up, sharply hitting his hand on the table. The guy yells at John, asking him not to think that if he beat Carl, he will be able to brag to others. The hero activates the Eye of Analysis and notices that this man's name is Michael, and he is even a little weaker than his previous opponent. He only needs to carefully dodge the attacks, and then knock him out thanks to the blow of accumulated power. The young men exchange glances and agree to meet at the training arena after class. After some time, a crowd of people gathers in the arena, wanting to watch the clash of two classmates. People discuss the whole situation. An interesting show awaits. Next to John is his friend, who does not believe in the scheduled fight, because his opponent has already reached the initial level. The main character just raises his hand and explains that he has long wanted to fight with this man. Michael looks at his opponent and is surprised that he decided to step into the arena and fight him. The guy immediately starts moving towards John to strike, wanting to show him that this is not his place. During an attack, the hero analyzes all movements and assesses his physical condition. But despite the fact that not all of his wounds had healed, he had restored his physical condition. But still, this blow resounded with pain throughout his body. The aggression scale starts to fill up, only 20%, although he risks his life every second. Michael continues to attack the young man, but he does not respond, only dodging the blows. No matter what, John continues to follow his plan, because he needs to fill the entire scale. With each hit and dodge, the percentage becomes more and more. Soon it will reach the maximum. Those watching the events laugh, because the hero does not respond to the blows, but only resists them. The teacher thinks that even if John is simply dodging, he is not giving up his position. He has never seen such determination in his eyes. The attacker is seething with anger. He just needs to receive a blow in response, and not an evasion. And finally, the scale is completely filled. It shows 100%. Then the system asks its owner to use the accumulated force strike. At that same moment, Michael's fist flies straight towards John at great speed. The guy decides to use a blow and screams from the effort, swinging it in his direction. Then, after a few moments, their fists touch in mutual resistance. Michael is the first to give in, causing him to fly several meters off the ground. The main character remains alone in the arena, standing in the same pose, with his hand raised up. Everyone present is shocked by what they see. This is simply impossible, given the difference in their strength. A pool of blood spreads around the body that has fallen to the ground, showing that the blow was incredibly strong. Michael is on his knees, trying to cough up his own blood. Suddenly, his rival stands in front of him and asks him a rhetorical question: if he was beaten by a scumbag, then who is Michael himself? The teacher orders that the loser be taken to the infirmary immediately. He cannot miss practical training in the sector. Looking at the main character, the teacher claps his hands, because he made him look at him in a new way. John raises his head and asks if he now has permission to go to practice. Sector 20 is an extremely dangerous place located in the northern part of the city. It is a zone of radioactive contamination, where a virus is rampant and zombies and mutant animals roam everywhere. However, crisis and prospects exist hand in hand. Many body parts of mutant animals are raw materials and materials in high demand. Moreover, the gems contained in the brains of beasts are priceless crystalline rocks that can provide assistance in improving the special abilities of warriors. Arriving at the practical zone, the teacher begins to explain everything that is happening. Everyone has long-term training experience behind them, combining it with the weapons and equipment that the academy will provide to the students. It should not be difficult to cope with ordinary zombies and mutated beasts. However, this practice is different from all the others in that this time, they will have to meet their enemies face to face. And the victory that will need to be achieved, first of all, is a victory over one's own fear. Having finished speaking, the teacher raises his hands and shouts that only real combat practice can reveal true abilities. Only it can temper character. The guy asks his friend if John is too afraid, but for him, all the zombies are invaluable experience for leveling up. The teacher reminds that 4 groups should be formed, into which they are divided independently. It is worth remembering that in no case should you go deep into this sector. The strength of these enemies is now too much for the students. Finishing his speech, the man demands that everyone present leave, then everyone runs off in their own directions. And finally, some time passes. When each of the participants in the practice finds themselves in their own place, the mutating pigeon watches the moving people from the side. John and his friends slowly move in the direction they had chosen on their own earlier. One of their group does not stop insulting the main character, asks him to keep his eyes open and not to delay the others. Then, his friend stands up for the guy, and makes a joke about how the guys will call their mom for help and cry. Despite all the dialogue, John throws down his hands and asks to be quieter, because he caught some movement ahead. 2 guys from their group tense up, immediately fall silent and become more serious. A fog appears in front of the students, obscuring their vision. It is unknown what awaits them ahead. John places his hand on his weapon and announces that danger is approaching them. It's hard to see through the clouds of smoke, but a human silhouette can be seen. Suddenly, a bloody zombie jumps out at the guys. He has only the first rank, low mobility, and is a carrier of the virus. The creature moves towards the guys at high speed, wanting to reach its goal as quickly as possible. The protagonist realizes that even the first-rank zombies have higher combat capability than him, and his current stat is very low. 3 guys are watching everything that is happening from the sidelines. They are ready for a fight. Despite all his shortcomings, John is ready to fight, because he needs valuable experience. Then, he runs up and starts to attack the enemy to fight him. The guy raises his sword up and with a sharp movement cuts the air between them. The system congratulates the owner on the level increase. He was also awarded a certain amount of experience. All received characteristic points must be invested in strength. The main character remains standing in the middle of the road, improving his abilities by 38 divisions. A classmate shouts at John to be careful. Then the boy turns around and notices silhouettes approaching from behind. 3 bloodthirsty zombies are running towards him at great speed, ready to tear the hero to pieces. But one of his team members manages to react, catching up with his ally from behind in order to help. The classmate, with quick movements of his weapon, cuts off the limbs of the monsters, and they fly away in all directions. When the young man falls to the ground, he stands with his back to the former danger. A close friend praises him, calling him by name, namely Roger. The guy dealt with the enemies very easily, without blinking an eye compared to John's abilities, so he boasts, trying to belittle him. The main character sadly watches the remains of the limbs of once living zombies. He could have gotten the experience points that he needs so much now. Pulling himself together, John turns around and heads in the opposite direction, calling the team to follow him. The boys walk past a thicket of trees, with bones scattered all around from the battlefield. Classmates walk one after another, looking around. At any second you need to be ready for an attack. Suddenly, the sound of the monster's feet can be heard from afar. The main character asks everyone to stop, because danger has appeared before them again. The monster bares its teeth, prepares to attack, thirsts for fresh blood. One of the team asks to give him this battle, because he assumes that this time there is also a small first-rank zombie on the way. A large monster emerges from the fog, its fangs tinged with poison, and its veins heavily tinted with acid, showing the virus in its blood. This zombie has high speed, sharp teeth, and the ability to summon similar monsters. Because it is the leader, you should not approach it. The monster's veins bulge more and more, ready to attack, seething with rage. The guy takes a fighting pose, happy that he will soon be able to feel the fight. The mutant moves towards the target at great speed, wanting to deal with him as quickly as possible. Suddenly, the hero realizes that something is wrong with the speed of this zombie. It is too high, but he doesn't have time to react, because a monster flies into him and pushes the guy back with its body. The monster opens its mouth, wanting to inject poison under the skin of its victim. Roger runs up from the side and gets there in time, kicking the monster in the face, causing him to lose coordination. The zombie falls on his back, baring his teeth. He did not expect the hero to appear. The boy swings the ball, shouting curses at the monster. From the side, John shouts that this zombie is the leader and must be killed with one blow, otherwise he will call for reinforcements. But the guy doesn't listen to him because the main character is lower in rank than him, so he shouldn't teach. He deliberately cuts off the monster's arm rather than trying to kill it. But it turns out that the zombie is very agile and fast, so the guy was unable to finish him off. The mutant opens its mouth and screams loudly. Its call can be heard for many kilometers. He raises his remaining hand, screaming loudly enough that a blast wave forms around him, throwing the guy back. Suddenly, a zombie's hand rises from the ground, and now we have to deal with it. But this is not the main problem, because the number of monsters ready to attack is growing in the area. They all pay attention to people, because that is their main goal. The hero is very scared by what he sees. It seems that they themselves cannot cope with such a number of monsters. Roger is the most afraid of all. He is shaking with fear, drenched in sweat. The guy says that he doesn't want to die here, and a grimace of horror appears on his face. His friend is also terribly afraid and asks to wait for him, because he has no desire to remain alone on the battlefield. A friend tells John that the danger is too great. They should also leave immediately. The main character clenches his fist tightly, thinking about what he really wants. Sharply lowering his weapon, he analyzes, realizing that if he can cope with them, he will significantly increase his level. Despite his doubts, the boy takes off and runs towards the crowd of mutants. In one fell swoop, he deals with a bunch of dangerous monsters. The protagonist's friend is not at all aware of what is happening and does not recognize John, whom he has known all his life. He had never had such determination to fight to the death, but suddenly he acquired this quality. The friend turns his head to the side and out of nowhere a mutant attacks him from the side. Then, the guy decides to also accept this battle and begins to fight together with John. He agrees to join in this madness that is happening around him. The main character is attacked from behind by the zombie leader. He growls and runs towards him. Due to the high speed, John does not have time to react, which is why he ends up on his shoulder blades under the weight of the mutant. The friend pays attention to this and becomes very afraid for the state of his ally. The monster opens its mouth, revealing sharp fangs filled with poison, and the creature lets out a menacing howl. Then, in order to stop this, the main character hits the zombie in the face from the side. He is extremely unhappy because his opponent attacked him from behind, which is not fair. Suddenly, notifications from the system with information about the level increase appear in front of the young man. The plan was a success. He increased 3 levels in a row and received 12 stat points. He immediately puts everything into strength. The muscles become bigger. The limbs noticeably increase in size. Now, John is able to defeat the monster, so he grabs it by the head as an attack. The guy twists the mutant's head off with a sharp movement of his hands, cursing him. Once the battle is over, the opponents fall to the ground. The head of the zombie leader is twisted in the opposite direction. Bewilderment is visible on his face, because John, with his previous amount of strength, could not defeat him. In order to get the defeated enemy away from himself, the main character pushes his foot into the mutant's body. Then with a sharp movement, he pushes the body to the side. Even though he dealt with it, the danger is not over. You need to remain vigilant, so the guy fights for his weapon. The guy gets to his feet and cuts off the head of the zombie leader. Only in this way will he be awarded the experience points necessary for development. The system congratulates its owner on leveling up to the 6th level. The genetic lock system is unlocked. The main character stands in the middle of the battlefield, looking at the assistant's screen. He doesn't understand what's going on with the system, because out of the 6 stat points he just received, 3 need to be invested in speed, and 3 in endurance. Previously, the guy saw information about genetic locks in the literature on improvement among the human genome. There is a fairly large part of genes that a person cannot use. It is for this reason that humanity is unable to fully realize its potential, according to legends. If a person manages to unlock the genetic locks in his body, he will be able to reach the peak of his potential and become a being akin to a god. John can't wait to see how powerful he will become after opening the first lock. The protagonist asks the system to open the first lock, unlocking his power. He commands her, his face showing confidence and a sense of superiority. The guy jabs the screen with a sharp movement, resolutely preparing to open the first lock. A huge sign appears in front of him, informing him that his current level is below 15. The discovery is impossible at the moment. John is amazed at what he sees, because he did not expect this at all. Since there is no way to do without fulfilling this condition, the hero will soon be able to reach level 15 if he continues to kill monsters. A classmate comes up from behind and asks the guy if he is really the one his friend knows, since the current version has become stronger. He explains that John dealt with the mutant leader alone, which raises doubts. The main character is embarrassed, trying to justify himself by saying that the danger he encountered was not that great. He continues on his way, calling his ally to follow him. The boys find themselves in front of a sign that prohibits further passage for warriors of the initial stage. John wonders if it's worth going deeper into the forest, since he didn't encounter a single zombie along the way that would allow him to gain experience. Suddenly, the protagonist is pulled out of his thoughts by his friend, who pats him on the shoulder and calls him by name. His hand tightens and points to the side with his finger, and his friend slowly informs him that there is a snake in that direction. The main character shook with fear from what he saw. Beads of sweat appeared on his face. A huge third-rank python appears in front of them. Its abilities and overall combat capability are unknown. It seems to be an evolved beast, so the eye of analysis does not work on it. While the boys are frozen in place, the snake crawls closer to them. Suddenly, she opens her mouth, revealing a row of poisonous fangs, ready to tear the students to shreds. She attacks with a sharp movement, burrowing into the ground between the guys. Before the beast can catch up, John rushes away, shouting to his friend that he should follow his example. The python is getting closer, danger is approaching, and the situation around is tilting. The guy runs between the trees, deftly overcoming all the obstacles in his path. He is outraged that the snake chose him as its target and not his friend. The guy puts his hand on his knee, snorting heavily as he tries to catch his breath. The young man is pleased that he and his friend have escaped danger. But as it turned out, John ran deeper into the forest, and not in the opposite direction with him. The main character is hiding behind a destroyed brick wall. It looks like he managed to break away and the danger has passed. However, one must not relax one's attention. This python is capable of adjusting its coloring to its surroundings. It is possible that it is currently hiding somewhere nearby, and is already preparing to suddenly attack. Out of nowhere, a crossbow with a loaded arrow appears near the guy's head, and an unfamiliar voice orders him to stay put. 3 men appeared in front of him, asking why John was hiding in this place. Looking at the clothes, one of them realizes that the guy is a student at Starline Academy. The main character is very worried, because he is threatened with a weapon. He tries to explain that he was just passing by. Before him stands a group of adventurers specializing in hunting zombies and animals for valuable materials. Each of them already officially holds the title of warrior. They are not up to John's level. One of the men snatches the sword from the hero's hands and asks him to give him the weapon so that he can move on. The protagonist explains that by leaving him in such a place without a weapon, the guy will send him to certain death. Then the warrior swings his weapon and shouts that in that case he should die now. John makes a frightened face, pointing to the side. The interlocutor immediately turns there, although he does not believe in the possible danger from behind. At the same moment, the python catches up with the men, attacking from behind. The snake devours the warrior's body, closing its jaws with a sharp movement. The mutant rises into the air, the still living man screaming in fear in the python's mouth. One of the warriors explains who has appeared before them and orders the others to remain on guard. The brunette shouts that there is no need to worry, because for the abnormal crystal and python skin, they can get a lot of money. Then, a fire lights up in the team's eyes, and the guys no longer experience the same fear of danger. At this moment, the main character is sitting behind a snag, watching everything that is happening from the side. The first-rank group decided to pounce on the third-rank beast. It seems that greed is really very destructive. John realizes that as soon as the opportunity arises, he must grab his own weapon and run away. One of the attackers pierces the hard scales of the beast, which in turn howls loudly. With one blow, the snake nails the warrior to a tree. But this moment is enough for the other man to attack the mutant from behind, plunging his sword into the enemy. The python opens its mouth, spraying venom at the attacker. The bald man screams hysterically as his shoulder begins to dissolve before our eyes. The commander orders to concentrate on the head in order to immediately deal with the enemy. He gives the command to move forward, and then the rest of the warriors prepare to attack. Ultimately, the commander stabs the python's head, rejoicing in his victory over the monster. The man raises his hand in triumph, feeling joy and pride for himself and his people, because he managed to win over the strongest enemy. While he celebrates, John is watching him from behind the bushes, waiting for the moment to retreat. But he will not be able to do this, because the guy was noticed by the commander of the warriors. Turning to him, he asks if it was his doing that the python came to this place. He calls him to his side and orders him to cut the skin off the mutant and get the anomalous crystal. John stands up tiredly, commenting on the inappropriate behavior of his interlocutor, because even though he is left alone, he continues to give orders. The guy agrees to follow the man's instructions, but in this case, it will remain his trophy. The man becomes enraged at what he hears, because this is an attempt on his own prey. Using maximum force, the commander swings and aims a slashing blow towards the main character. John acts as calmly as possible, explains that the opponent's strength is running out and the guy does not plan to fight him. So he takes out his sword, swings it, and cuts off his opponent's hand. The man screams hysterically from pain and shock and feels insulted. He continues to squeal, proving his belonging to a high family. John stands over his opponent, saying that he is relying only on the facts, namely that their team was going to take his gun and condemn him to death. The guy raises his sword again and asks not to expect mercy from him. Now John has reached level 7 and has gained about 2,500 experience points by killing a first-rank warrior. Finally, the main character received another promotion, and even the opportunity to rotate. He decides to distribute the attribute points between speed and endurance, decides to use rotation when he finds a safe place to rest, and for now he needs to look at the trophies. The main character climbs onto a python to cut its scales. He takes out the first anomalous crystal, earned by cunning. This thing is the source of power of the evolutionary beast. Warriors can absorb the energy contained in it to become stronger, or use it as a power source for some devices. It turns out that this team has 2 more crystals of that rank lying around. There is no point in taking extra weapons, because they will only be a burden. Having equipped himself with things, the main character can now look for his friend, named Mark, as well as the rest of his group. Approaching the sign, John notices that he is in a dangerous area. Apparently he went the wrong way. You can't stay here for even a second, you need to get out as quickly as possible. Suddenly, the birds start to fly away and panic in different directions, causing the hero to cover his ears with his hands from the noise. It looks like something really bad is coming if they're reacting like that. A 4th-rank Thunder Panther appears in front of him. Its features and overall combat capability are unknown. The guy watches the mutant from the side, who is again not affected by the eye of analysis. But something stops him. Someone is approaching from the side. This is a girl named Kate, who is a 4th-rank warrior. It seems that her characteristics are also impossible to analyze, which causes a storm of emotions in the guy. The girl catches up with the enemy with a sharp movement, swinging her sword. The first blow falls on the beast's paw. He screams furiously and resists. Suddenly, the panther jumps up to attack, but the warrior does not give up. Kate jumps to the side at the perfect moment, preventing the enemy from catching up with her. Thanks to this, the girl gains an advantage and attacks her opponent from the side. The panther flies towards the tree, hitting its bark. The main character understands that this power is very great, and hopes that one day he will become even stronger than Kate. The panther ends up on the ground, shaking in pain and bleeding. Kate moves towards her in cold blood to take all the trophies. John watches from his hideout. Apparently their fight has come to an end, but it was a feint. Suddenly, the enemy rises to his paws and screams furiously. The panther rushes into battle, and a bunch of lightning bolts of electricity appear around her. The girl raises her own sword again to continue defending herself from the attack. The lightning creates an explosive impact, pushing Kate into the air. She flies to the side, not controlling the trajectory of her movement, so she slides off the cliff. The main character suddenly turns his head in that direction. It seems the girl has died. It was the panther that was able to pretend to be dead, and then deal the fatal blow to that girl. But perhaps it was not so at all. It was a dying counterattack. John hopes that the panther is still alive, in which case he will deliver the final blow, and it will be counted as the elimination. The abnormal crystal and the 4th-rank beast should be worth even more money. The guy emerges from the bushes, heading towards the victim. He raises his weapon, swinging it over the animal, pleased with his own leadership. Suddenly, something distracts him, and before our eyes his face changes, taking on a surprised expression. After this, John turns towards what distracted him, remaining in place. It appears to be another panther of the same kind, looking expectantly at its target. After a few moments, the guy begins to move away from the mutants, remembering that thunder panthers usually hunt in pairs, the male hunting with the female. The living monster bares its teeth and lets out a loud scream. The animal catches up with the main character, who tries to justify himself by saying that it was not he who injured the mutant. Suddenly he stops, his heels hitting the ground, finding himself trapped. He doesn't understand what he should do. The guy is on the edge of a cliff. An animal slowly creeps up behind him, preparing to attack. John tries to negotiate with her by showing her the sword and threatening her with it. But unfortunately, the animal doesn't care, so the panther jumps towards him, baring its teeth. The main character jumps off a cliff. It is better for him to be smashed to pieces than to become a mutant's lunch. He fell into the water. John continues to scream. He was so scared during the flight. It turns out that there was a depression in this place, and the trees on the cliff softened his fall. It's a good thing that thanks to the reservoir there, he stayed alive. The guy turns his head to the side and notices someone off to the side. It seems that this is the same girl who fought with the Thunder Panther. Apparently, Kate is still alive. We need to save her quickly. She is breathing. She just lost consciousness. The main character takes the girl in his arms and heads towards the forest. Leaving the warrior near the tree, the guy sits down next to him, giving him time to rest. He finds himself thinking that Kate is incredibly beautiful. Judging by her appearance, she is no more than 18, but she has already become a warrior of the 4th rank. The girl is probably a talented student from some large family. The main character realizes that he hasn't eaten anything since morning and needs to fix this urgently. It turns out that there are fish in this lake that you can enjoy. Without thinking twice, John makes a fire and fries the fish on it. Even without seasoning, the taste is simply magnificent. He eats it with pleasure and admires the food. Suddenly, some object flies towards him from behind his back. The main character manages to notice this, turns around and sees a sword pointed in his direction. Kate asks why he has practically no clothes on and asks what he did with them. The guy screams that if it weren't for him, the girl would have drowned and died long ago. She thinks for a second and asks if he saved her. The main character laughs and, raising his hand in a conciliatory manner, says that he will not force her to marry him. The girl sighs resentfully and calls him shameless. Despite this, John is not embarrassed and offers her to enjoy the fish, because it turned out to be incredibly tasty. Kate looks at him with a bored expression, not quite understanding what is going on here. Luckily, the guy notices this and begins to explain that the warrior is wounded and there are no medicines, so he should eat something and regain his strength. The girl takes a skewer with cooked fish in her hand. At the same moment, John decides to introduce himself. Kate also states her name and asks what her savior wants. She doesn't like to remain in debt. She asks what he wants, and she will give it to him. Between words, he says that Kate can kill, which frightens the hero greatly, and hopes that it is a joke. John decides to ask her to become as cool as him, but the girl explains that he has 2 weak inclinations. Then the guy takes offense at what he heard and falls to the floor in tears. It's getting dark outside. A bright moon appears in the sky. Kate lies down to rest on the soft grass, while her savior remains by the burning fire. The guy opens his system, smiling broadly and excited about what is about to happen. It seems like it's time to use the spin he recently received for killing a warrior. He raises his hand high into the air, delighted at the start of the spin. John folds his hands in prayer, hoping that a weapon will fall to him. The arrow seems to point to money, but now he doesn't need it as much as before. The guy hits the jackpot. The system congratulates the owner on receiving the super prize. Then John is jubilant about the reward he has received. It turns out that he now has a combat skill card that grants experience in mastering the specified ability and knowledge about the process of its improvement. According to the strength of the combat skill card, they are divided into bronze, silver, gold, and diamond. It seems like the system is mocking its own owner, because this is a bronze card, and for the spear technique, which is the most difficult to master. But it turns out that this is a skill card with a development property. Such cards are even more valuable than those with a diamond category, since they are able to change as the strength of their owners grows. Having obtained the skill card, his next logical step would be to obtain a suitable spear. However, while the guy was jumping for joy, Kate woke up and got up to see what he was doing. She peeks out from behind his back and asks what he is laughing at like an idiot. Then the main character hides the card he received, not wanting to answer questions. The girl turns to the side and asks if her fellow traveler heard anything. John thinks and listens. Apparently people are approaching them. After hearing this, Kate sits down on a tree root, grabs her weapon. It must be a group of adventurers. The guy remembers what happened the last time he met them. Then, the hero jumps to his feet and shouts that they should get out as quickly as possible. But, unfortunately, the girl cannot walk normally due to the injuries she received. In order to help her, John comes up from the front and sits down, but the girl resists. The protagonist explains that if she is not ready to overcome herself, then he can just leave her here. But no one knows what those adventurers have in mind. No one knows what they can do to Kate. The girl climbs onto John's back and asks him not to say anything more. Meanwhile, people gathered around the fire. They had already learned that someone had been here and clearly had not managed to go far. The man in the shadows laughs maliciously, rejoicing at the presence of other warriors, and asks to kill everyone they meet on the way. John steps heavily on the ground, breathing slowly, because he has a heavy load on his back. He complains that the girl is too heavy, but she explains that it's all because of the sword. Suddenly, the guy stops in the middle of the road, sensing danger ahead. He activates the analysis skill, directing his gaze forward to read the information. They encountered a second-rank winged red snake, which is active mainly at night. She seems to be an evolutionary beast. She's rank 2, although her combat ability isn't that high. The girl offers to use her sword and takes it out from behind her back. The main character notices the outstretched weapon and grabs it with his hand. Suddenly, taking it in his hands, he almost drops it. Greatly surprised by what he sees, it turns out that the weapon is very heavy, just as Kate said before. The girl had previously swung such a heavy ball with one hand. Here's the difference in strength. The guy asks what materials the sword is made of. Well, she is in no hurry to answer the question asked, asking to let the lady go to the ground and quickly defeat the enemy. The main character squats down, lowering the girl, and then turns to the enemy. The winged red snake is highly mobile and dangerous at night. His fellow traveler tells him about this. Kate asks him not to rush into trouble, but to listen to what the girl tells him. The mutated animal opens its mouth and sticks out its double tongue. The hero catches himself thinking that the beast is so fast that he can't even keep up with her. The guy is waving a weapon and making chopping blows, but unfortunately, this does not affect anything. The enemy remains safe and sound. The guy decides to do a spinning thrust from above, hoping to hit, and yet the guy pierces his enemy's head right through. John laughs loudly and is proud of himself because it turned out so easy. Kate sighs and notes that the guy can't even handle one second-rank red snake. Apparently he really does have a terrifying lack of inclinations. The guy shows his defeated enemy obscene signs, continues to mock him and rejoice in his own victory. Suddenly, the snake's head breaks away from its body, attacking the protagonist. The guy quickly shakes his hand and does not understand what happened, because everything was very calm just now. With a sharp movement, he throws his head back onto the ground, continuing to curse at the dead animal. The main character steps on the head he just left. It turns out that the guy made an oversight, completely forgot about the system reminders. In the future, it will be necessary to check this first to be absolutely sure of the enemy's death. Afterwards, John squats down near the beast's head. He is indignant, because the girl clearly knew that red snakes are capable of separating their heads from their bodies. The guy examines his own hand, which shows swelling and bite marks. The eye of analysis tells us that this snake is poisonous. This could not be overlooked. The whole body starts to itch and turn red, and you feel thirsty. The girl completely forgot that the poison is capable of arousing the sexual desire of the poisoned person. Something needs to be done. And then the main character turns towards the innocent lady, smiling crookedly. He runs towards her, quickly closing the distance between them. Then, Kate falls to the ground and asks not to come near her. John is shaking. He himself does not understand what is happening to him and what the guy is poisoned with. He squeezes his eyes tightly and realizes that he cannot control himself. The main character feels a love influx towards the girl. He looms over her, trying to resist his own body. He needs to get the poison out urgently. But before the guy can come to his senses, he kisses Kate on the lips. Then, the girl bites the attacker to end this awkward action. The protagonist jumps back sharply, clutching his mouth with his hands. Seeing his reaction, the lady stands up and threatens to kill him. The guy starts shaking again. He apologizes because he didn't mean to do it on purpose. Raising his hand, the warrior points to a body of water where he can sober up. And immediately the main character heads in that direction, continuing to send apologies. Without thinking, John jumps into the water, causing a lot of splashes to appear around. The water is so cool and refreshing, it makes him feel so much better. He remembers a recent kiss. The hero managed to do it with an icy beauty. Kate sits expectantly on the ground, not understanding why John hasn't returned yet. The girl is surrounded by her own weapons and the main character's belongings, waiting for her fellow traveler to return. But, from the bushes, a man is watching her, quietly giggling. He is happy that they managed to find this beauty. The girl slowly rises to her feet, holding her stomach. Her injuries have not yet healed. She tries to threaten the man standing in front of her, saying that she will kill him. The blonde man laughs, asking if she has the strength for that now. They saw how the Thunder Panther's dying blow threw her off the cliff. Judging by the fact that at her age she could so easily deal with a Thunder Panther, the girl was clearly from a rich and important family. The guy voices his desire to have fun with such ladies, when she only clicks her tongue. Kate begins to move sharply towards her opponent, deciding to attack first. But someone trips her, causing the girl to fall. The blonde asks to do without senseless resistance, promises to be gentle. After which, he raises 2 fingers up, asking the girl to hold on. Kate asks if he would dare touch her, knowing that she is from a great family. This excites the man even more, and he is sure that no one can appear among the ruins. He says that after his deed, he will break all the girl's limbs and give them to the Thunder Panther. Suddenly, John appears in front of the people and stops behind the man. The guy slowly moves towards the danger, catching up with the offenders. The blonde turns in his direction with displeasure, squinting, examining the guy's appearance. The protagonist raises his hand up, pointing to the names of the people present, their specialization and combat power. The guys get confused and start to worry because no one could have found out this information about them. The blonde thinks that this is impossible. Even if the guy doesn't have any devices to measure combat abilities, he couldn't find out more detailed information. John narrows his eyes and says that those present have only 5 seconds to disappear. Otherwise, no one will leave here. The men turn around abruptly and walk away from the crime scene. The girl rises to her feet, grabs him, and asks where the information about people was found. But the main character is not going to spread his secrets. He needs to leave before people come to their senses. Apparently, the adventurers were really tricked, because if John were a high-level master, he wouldn't have left in such a hurry. The fist flies into the nearest tree, relieving the stress of its owner. The blonde man is indignant that the guy was able to teach him a lesson. The girl is injured, and in any case, they will have to cross the border of the forbidden area. They plan to capture them. They just need to establish surveillance on the border. She clarifies why they are moving deeper into the forbidden area, because the strength of the local beasts is much greater. The guy believes that the most logical step for him now would be to leave the forbidden area as quickly as possible. So it would be better to wait here for a few days until Kate recovers from her wounds. The girl didn't even think that such mediocre strength could have a rather lively mind. It's still dark outside, and fireflies are chirping around, lighting the way. In the morning, when the sun has risen high above the horizon, the girl continues to sleep, resting her head on the shoulder of her fellow traveler. Waking up, John is very worried because he didn't understand when he managed to hug her. When the lady opens her eyes, she immediately announces the approaching evolutionary beast. There was no one nearby, but there was no mistake, because Kate could smell him. The guy sends her another joke, and the girl orders her to leave the shelter. Kate moves confidently, informing that we need to prepare for battle. True, she needs about 2 more days to recover, so John will have to accept this fight. To improve, the guy will have to fight strong enemies. But the lady asks him not to worry, because she needs her companion alive. The main character thinks deeply about the words spoken. A second-rank fanged boar, a mammal-class animal with high defensive capabilities, appears in front of the boys. Kate explains that the attacks are easy to predict. The weakest point is the belly. The beast opens its mouth and lets out a loud roar. The mutated creature accelerates and, stamping its hooves on the ground, moves towards the target it encounters on its way. The battle begins. Clouds of dust rise from the battle are all around. The next day, the hero easily reaches the 9th level, deals with another monster, namely a black panther. He smiles tensely, having just finished with his 30th beast. All this thanks to Kate. At her age, she knows the habits, methods of attack, and vulnerabilities of animals, so the guy managed to cope even with 3rd-rank animals. Holding the jewel in his hands, John asks if the lady needs the anomalous crystal. She says that she won't take back what her fellow traveler earned. It's time to say goodbye, because she is already fully recovered. But the hero does not want to leave now, because the attacking adventurers are probably waiting for him at the exit from the danger zone. This can't just be John's problem, because they want to catch him because of the girl. She's not going to listen to him. She's planning to go in search of the Thunder Panther. The girl is not ready to lose, and is going to take revenge. Then Kate turns and threatens to kill the hero if he does not surpass her in strength the next time they meet. The guy is indignant and doesn't understand how one can pay for kindness like this. At the last moment, he decides to clarify where his fellow traveler is from, and she replies that she came from a sacred region. 2 days later, John reaches a sign indicating the border of the forbidden area. Surely by this time, those adventurers should have left. Suddenly, a weapon flies past. An unknown person strikes. Fortunately, the main character manages to crouch down without losing his head. He turns around with a sharp movement and tries to find out who is next to him. One of the adventurers skillfully lands on the ground, happy that they finally managed to wait for their target. The guy looks questioningly at his opponent, wondering where the girl disappeared to. He begins his attack, wanting to show what happens to those who take this company for fools. Looking at the situation, the protagonist assesses the danger and decides that he should deal with the enemy before his friends arrive. The adventurer assumes a fighting stance, preparing to attack with a running start. Then he activates a skill called White Snake Sting, and an image of the animal appears around him. It attacks John with great force, pushing back his resistance ever more strongly. At some point, the hero releases the resistance and an explosion is heard around. Sparks fly in different directions. He finds himself near a rock that is cracked behind his back. The anger level is now about 90%. I wish John had a spear right now. The adventurer mocks the enemy because the guy didn't even master the combat skill, but was able to deceive their company. He begins his attack again, planning to use another attack that would pierce his heart. Despite the difference in strength, the protagonist resists, not wanting to lose this battle. The guy breathes heavily, but with the accumulation of anger, he decides to use the blow of the accumulated force in order to defeat the enemy. He slides along the ground from the tension, activating his skill. But instead of punching, the hero decides to attack with his foot, right into his enemy's crotch. Not considering this to be anything serious, the adventurer exposes his own hand to the blow. But he did not appreciate the strength of the attacker, so his bone breaks, piercing the entire limb with pain. Not only that, John inflicts even more injuries on him, which the enemy was trying to protect himself from. The adventurer squeals in pain, grimacing in horror and disappointment. He falls to his knees in a defeated pose, lowering his head to the ground. Then John grabs the hilt of his sword and runs towards his enemy. The guy cold-bloodedly cuts the adventurer's throat. The system credits the earned points. Now, he has discovered an ability called Rage Burst. It is an activated ability that allows the user to greatly increase their strength, speed, and endurance for 10 minutes. But after the effect of this ability ends, the owner will be in a state of extreme exhaustion for 5 minutes. Finally, the hero has a new ability. The guy decides to invest all his available points into speed. Suddenly, someone's voice sounds from the side. The guy stops walking, remaining in place. John is surrounded by adventurers on all sides, which could cause fear, but the guy is not one to be timid, so he only slowly looks around. The blonde man comes out of his hiding place, shows himself to his rival, and reports the murder of his man. The hero mockingly says that he had to defend himself, and at the same time analyzes his chances of winning, which now seem 0. After this, the lead adventurer orders his men to attack together to kill John. He feels the strongest discontent, because a crowd of lions is attacking a rabbit in his person. Men have no military valor at all. Now he has no choice but to use his newly acquired skill. The fire in the guy's eyes lights up, a huge explosion is heard, and clouds of dust rise into the air. The young man feels changes in his body and enjoys it. The blonde man doesn't understand why his opponent's aura has suddenly increased. The main character rushes across the battlefield like a bullet, using new abilities. A man doesn't even have time to blink, let alone keep track of what's happening. He orders his team to split up and find the enemy, as he must not leave there alive. The explosion of anger will last for about 5 minutes, after which the guy will fall into a state of complete exhaustion. When this happens, he will be completely at their mercy, which means it is necessary to conduct a fight with a lightning-fast outcome, thinking the hero hides in the bushes. Analyzing the situation around him, he notices that one of the opponents has a spear. Then, he jumps out of his own shelter and flies towards the enemy. He lands on the ground next to him and the young man falls to the ground. John puts his sword behind his back and leaves his spear in his hand, preparing for the inevitable battle. Now he doesn't need anything else. He has received everything he needs. He is ready to fight the adventurers. He steps out into the clearing, noticing an enemy in front of him. The guy reports the enemy to the commander via radio, putting his fingers to his own ear. The blonde man, along with the others, heads towards him and orders John to be detained. But the adventurer starts the first attack, called the Turbulent Flow. The protagonist keeps up with him, spinning his recently found spear to answer him. The guy activates the Phoenix's majesty, the fire flares up, the flames dance around them. The bald warrior cannot at all understand what skill his opponent possesses. John, with a sharp movement, pierces his opponent in the back with his own spear. The remaining adventurers watch the battle from the sidelines. But the first-rank warrior has already been destroyed, and the experience has been earned. The man does not understand how it is possible to kill a person with one blow. He immediately jumps into the air, attacking the young man. He uses a silver skill called Blades of Madness. Other team members also use their combat abilities. For John, the greatness of the Phoenix turned out to be very energy-consuming. Even with the enhancement, there is an opportunity to use it only twice. The rage meter is only 60% full, and the enemies continue to advance, wielding deadly weapons. Luckily, thanks to this onslaught, the rage gauge fills up pretty quickly. The guy needs to focus on the second-rank warrior and destroy him as quickly as possible. One of the guys asks if he is really a warrior of the initial stage, but the commander guesses about the existence of a secret skill. However, such abilities have a limited duration. If they do not allow the guy to escape, then he will be theirs. The anger scale is full. The system offers to use a blow of accumulated power. The hero grabs his weapon and uses a powerful attack. The man holds his sword out in front of him, expecting the attack to be weak. But the dagger pierces the weapon, which then cracks. In a few moments, only fragments remain of it. The man is amazed because she seems so powerful, which he could not have imagined. The enemy has survived. Now he must accept the spear into his body. The protagonist swings his weapon, activating the Phoenix's majesty once again. The adventurer speculates that because of such strong energy, the skill is golden. Before he can react, his body is pierced by John's spear, which spews sparks of fire. From the incredible force, the weapon begins to crack, destroying itself. The weapon was unable to withstand the Phoenix's greatness and broke at a key moment. It seems that the main character is in a very losing position, because the action of the explosion of anger is over, and now he has nothing to hold in his hands. The man looks up at the young man with a frightened expression, looking at him with interest. The blonde starts laughing loudly, rejoicing at his opponent's loss. He is happy at the thought that he managed to survive such an attack. The adventurer runs and points his sword at John, but suddenly a ray of light separates the guys, and the man is again indignant about what is happening. A girl appears from the forest and asks, since when did the second-rank warriors from the hunting parties have the audacity to attack the students? The blonde looks at the stranger with interest, squinting his eyes. She does not want to introduce herself. She is clearly superior in strength to everyone present. It turns out that this is a doctor from the academy. Now her priority will be providing first aid. The girl's name is Louise, and she is also a 4th-rank warrior. When John first met her, he thought she was an ordinary person, so he didn't use the eye of analysis on her. The girl turns her head towards the student, praising him for his courage and strength. But still, the main character is perplexed as to how the girl appeared on the battlefield. She explains that she is, after all, a doctor and needs to treat students, and asks the guy to quickly undress so that he can assess the damage. The main character does not understand why he has to undress at every meeting. Then, Louise continues to confuse the poor guy, moving closer, asking if he needs her help. The girl grabs the hero by the hand and offers to lead him to the exit, because the gathering of students has already begun. The main character does not want to rely on the lady, so he refuses help. The teacher counts the abnormal crystals of the students. The strength of each has increased. Only a real fight can truly temper a person. Suddenly, the teacher begins to shake his head from side to side in confusion. It turns out that John is missing, the only one of them. Mark begins to explain that they were attacked by a 3rd-rank python, and due to the hopelessness of the situation, his friend was forced to flee to the forbidden area. The teacher is in a state of shock from what he heard. This is simply unacceptable. Roger also laughs at what is happening, because most likely their classmate was killed. Those present begin to argue, swear at each other, and shout. But the teacher asks them to shut up. They should wait for the one who remains, because in this situation, the guy could not return so quickly. It's getting dark soon. There's no point in waiting for the hero. because most likely he couldn't survive. Suddenly, John's voice is heard in the dialogue, asking who among them is conjuring his death. The guy walks with a confident gait and smiles broadly, and knows how to fight back with words. Seeing him, Mark smiles widely, happy that his friend is still alive. The classmate John was fighting clicks his tongue, even upset that he appeared in front of him. Then the teacher approaches his student and checks if everything is okay. The guys on the side laugh, assuming that the heroes were hiding all this time and didn't kill anyone. John turns around, asking how many beasts they defeated. They start bragging about having killed 8 first-rank beasts. People around are delighted with what they hear, because for their level, this is a very good result. Then the protagonist clarifies whether this is really a result worth being proud of. He takes out his backpack, turns it over, and shakes out a bunch of precious stones. The teacher squats down, counting the abnormal crystal. Suddenly he realizes, and is very surprised by the 3rd-rank stone he has mined. And there are about 3 of them. The classmates around him are shocked. They don't believe their own eyes and ask the hero about all this. Roger protests, saying that it is impossible to obtain such a stone. The boy accuses his classmate of lying and cheating. Then the teacher gets to his feet, asking him if he understood him correctly. He asks to clarify what the essence of the alleged accusation is. A unit of 3rd-rank crystal costs at least 500,000. An ordinary student will not find enough money to commit fraud. Roger is stunned and unable to find words to counter what has been said. The teacher suggests going to the tavern and taking a rest. John and Mark are very happy because now they have the opportunity to sell the rewards they have earned. People in the crowd are content with the money they earn. 2,000 coins are enough for someone for a whole month. The main character ends up at the end of the line because there is a lot of goods for sale. Otherwise, the guy would anger the others. When his opportunity came, John laid out a multitude of multicolored stones on the table. The tavern owner looks at the loot with greed, not understanding where he could have gotten 3 whole stones. The guy asks what the price is for 1 piece, to which the man replies that he will give him 500,000. His classmates begin to count and analyze the collected jewels. John will receive about 2 million at one time. The man turns around and asks the guys to give him their card number so he can transfer the money. Suddenly, the protagonist is pushed to the side. The stranger tells him not to interfere underfoot. The guy looks up at him with an irritated expression and looks at him from under his brows. In front of him stand older students who mock his classmates. Mark is indignant about what he heard and believes that no one is worthy of the following words. John watches everything silently from the side, saying that the students in this group have already reached the initial stage, and about a dozen of them have already become warrior candidates. In front of him stands a guy named Pierre, ranked 108th in the academic power rankings. He places a bag of anomalous crystal on the merchant's table and asks the tavern owner to exchange the loot for alliance currency. Pierre turns to the boys, bragging that he killed a rank 2 evolving beast. The guy mockingly asks if John is in their class. Apparently this group really is scum. Hearing this, the main character decides to stand up for himself. Without losing his own dignity, the guy will not allow himself to be thrown into mud. He asks to apologize to him, otherwise the loser will teach Pierre an important lesson. The blonde high school student is seething with rage and indignation at what he heard. The guy says that the other person should know his place, so he starts preparing for the upcoming fight. Noticing this, the protagonist also prepares to strike back, not intending to stand aside. Pierre likes the idea of a fight. He is ready to use all his strength to prove his strength. The guys clash their fists, creating air currents around them from the speed of their movement. But then the eldest of them bumps into an object standing behind him, and the chair falls at his feet. He grabs his hand, clenching his teeth. He does not understand where the opponent gets so much physical strength from. Realizing that fighting with his hands is no longer possible due to the pain, Pierre decides to attack using his legs. But the main character is well aware of these tricks, so he jumps up and kicks the high school student in the face. John gets hit in the nose, which starts bleeding, red liquid splashing in all directions. His classmates start to root for him, wanting the guy to win. Covering his face with his hands, Pierre comments that the enemy is moving quite well, and apparently knows how to do something. He takes a deep breath, his eyes filling with rage as if glowing. His opponent has clearly enraged him. The blonde uses a bronze skill called Swift Strike. While the protagonist dodges the attacks that befall him, the anger gauge continues to fill rapidly. Roger, watching from the side, notices that in just 3 days of combat practice, John has become much stronger. But the students from the top group are not easily defeated. Continuing to use his skill, Pierre decides to use another variation of it, since the opponent only dodges. He activates an ability, namely a flurry of swift fists, which should be several times stronger than the previous one. The attack flies towards the target. The hand should hit John right. The guy tries to hold her back, slowly backing away. Classmates are very worried about their ally and ask him to be more careful. But one of the senior students believes that the main character clearly overestimated his strength. Suddenly, something stops Pierre. He breathes heavily, and bewilderment is visible on his face. He stands in the middle, and John holds the guy by the sleeve. The system suggests using a blow of accumulated force. But the main character decides that this is not necessary, because he can defeat the enemy anyway. Besides, he wants to punish him as a warning to others and make everyone understand that it is not worth it to mess with him. The guy breaks the guy's limb with a skillful movement of his hands. The bones are pointing in different directions, and the hand looks simply terrible. Pierre's classmate calls him with fear and indignation. The others are also unhappy. Apparently, the younger group has completely forgotten its place. Despite all this, Mark and the others, ready to fight for their own honor, argue with the opposing team. It was just a contest of strength. Did John overdo it? The high school student wonders. The protagonist explains that his opponent just used a bronze skill. If it was someone else in his place, he would most likely have received serious damage, but the guy just paid him back in the same coin. Despite the truth of these words, the guy stands his ground, saying that he went beyond the limits. The tavern owner interrupts the guys and calls the main character to him. He reports that the money for 3 third-rank anomalous crystals has already been transferred, and the transfers need to be checked. It seems that the high school student heard all this. He is shocked, because he himself has never received such awards. He realizes that John was able to kill 3 evolved beasts, so how could someone like him become strong? Smiling, the main character offers the guy to fight. He has a blow of accumulated power left. Now the guy doesn't push his luck anymore. He quietly keeps quiet and looks in John's direction. Suddenly, an angry voice sounds from the side, which is clearly unhappy with the fight that has been organized. 2 men appear in front of them, one of whom is the boy's teacher. The boy calls another teacher, whose name is Andre. He complains about John, who broke Pierre's arm. But, crossing his arms, Mark explains that the senior student was the first to insult their group and start a fight. The teacher asks him to introduce the essence of the matter and not to miss the details. He asks the protagonist to apologize to Pierre, despite the fact that he himself does not like him very much. John walks up to the guy, crosses his arms in a prayer pose, and offers a not-so-sincere apology. The boys watch him in amazement, not understanding his reaction at all. Classmates laugh, because the main character didn't hurt them that much, but he humiliated them beyond measure. Another teacher believes that both sides are to blame for the conflict, but since John apologized, the conflict will be resolved. As he leaves, Pierre warns about the competition at the end of the semester. I wonder if the hero will dare to come there. But fortunately, the guy doesn't see any problem with this. The high school student bares his teeth and says that they will be able to see each other there. Suddenly, a lot of students enter the tavern. The guys pounce on John, praising him and being proud of his achievement in defeating Pierre. The teacher raises his hand and says that this institution has a device for measuring combat ability. Everyone should go and get tested. He wants to see if the students have managed to improve their strength by going through real combat practice. The owner of the establishment installed the latest equipment, with very precise calculations in the academy. One of the guys decides to go first. Confidence is visible in his eyes. His name is Romeo. And when he approaches the device, he receives information that his combat capability is equal to 450 points. The teacher names people from a list. All their indicators are around this number. Roger has the greatest fighting ability and has also become a warrior candidate. The combat ability of the initial stage warriors ranges from 300 to 600 points, warrior candidates from 600 to 800 points, and people from 800 to 1,500 points are first-rank warriors. Since Roger has reached the candidate level, he can start practicing the cultivation technique tomorrow. The guy is incredibly happy to hear this news, because he was so eager to achieve this title. The reason why officially recognized warriors are so strong is precisely because of the cultivation techniques. There are many types of energy in the world that a person can benefit from. All these types of energy are also known as origins. By using the cultivation technique, he draws into himself the energy of the origins in the air, as a result of which he achieves comprehensive strengthening of his body. Next, John comes to check. He breathes heavily from worry, but there is no doubt on his face. The guys laugh at him. Even though he has become a little stronger, in their eyes he will still remain a loser. Mark can't stand it and suggests that he try to fight Pierre if he's so cool. The test begins, the device turns on and starts working. It was already completely dark outside. Only a couple of lights from the windows of buildings added light to the street. The teacher gathers Roger and John in his office because he wants to discuss the course of further development with them. They have both reached the stage of warrior candidates, and so now they need to think about choosing the most suitable weapon. Looking at his classmate, Roger is perplexed. Just recently, a guy approached the device to check his own combat capability. It turned out that John was 1 division ahead of the headman. Naturally, Mark is happy for his friend and jumps jubilantly. The teacher, in turn, is pleased that the group now has 2 warrior candidates. The guy doesn't believe that this is really happening to him, because a loser like John couldn't become stronger than him. The skin of the evolved beasts above the 3rd rank has already reached complete metamorphism. Neither bullets nor even laser weapons are capable of penetrating it. But thanks to the efforts of humanity, they eventually managed to collect special metals from other celestial bodies. Only weapons made from these special metals are capable of causing damage. So only with the most suitable specimen can a warrior display his true strength. John raises his hand and says that he has long thought about and is choosing a spear. The teacher is surprised and explains that, having learned to use this weapon, its power can reach colossal proportions. The spear is one of the most difficult weapons to master, so it is worth clarifying whether the hero is sure of his choice. But John has long since resolved this issue, so he is completely confident. The teacher gives the guy a map. It contains information about him. He should go to the library, because there he can get the basic technique of wielding a spear, as well as the technique of improvement. But he cannot help but clarify the reasons for the choice of such weapons. Then John asks, who is in the top 10 strongest warriors in the world? The teacher lists the first 2 places. They use a sword as a weapon. The main character shouts enthusiastically. It seems that the top 10 of the world rankings is missing one warrior who uses a spear. The teacher thinks that there really isn't enough of them there. Without having time to wait for an answer, the guy runs out of the office, hurrying to the library. But the teacher remains perplexed, looking after him. This guy has serious ambitions. Finishing his thought, the teacher suggests that John will probably achieve something in the future. Approaching the building, the main character lists his plans so as not to forget anything. The only thing he's missing now is a spear he can learn to wield. And without official warrior status, he can't purchase one through the Alliance Warrior website. A good chance now is the Academy's Hall of Military Valor. The male salesman greets the guy entering his store with a smile and asks if he has come for a weapon. Then the guy explains that he needs to buy a spear, which surprises his interlocutor. Luckily for him, he had just recently produced a new batch of long spears. The seller hands over one of them. It weighs 20 kilograms. Extraterrestrial meteorite iron was used to make it. The starting price was about 200,000, but now he is ready to sell it for only 50. John picks up the weapon, then says that it is not suitable due to its low weight. Then, the man offers another option, which weighs 15 kilograms more, and also has a fire attribute, can protect against thieves at home, and will be useful as a stone on a trip. But this weight is not suitable for the hero either. He gives another weapon, weighing about 45 kilograms, made according to technological canons, cuts third-rank beasts like butter, unfortunately, and this weight is too small. The man tensely closes his eyes, irritated by his customer's pickiness. He gets angry, assuming that the main character only wants to make fun of him. The seller says that he has a heavy weapon, but the guy is unlikely to be able to lift such a weight. He takes out a huge box, which is covered in cobwebs and dust. Due to the large weight of the weapon, no one decided to buy it, so it has been gathering dust here for a long time. Selected space ore was used for its production, and its weight is approximately 65 kilograms. It is not only heavy, but also strong and sharp. To create such a model, one could not rely on ordinary ore. This spear is called the Silver Spirit. Then the main character grabs the weapon in his hand and says that it suits him perfectly. The guy waves the new tool, testing its strength and ease of use. He looks at it proudly. It fits perfectly, John tells the seller. The man laughs and says that the starting price for this model is $1.5 million. But since it took so long to find a buyer, he is ready to give a 20% discount, so the price is $1,200,000. Upon hearing the price, the main character falls into a stupor, because the price is too high for him. The seller smiles broadly. He is not ready to make any concessions. John is upset because half of his loot, which he got from selling the anomalous crystal, will go to just one spear. It's too expensive. After becoming a warrior candidate, the boy can finally begin using the cultivation technique. On the surface of the earth, all sorts of energy accumulations exist everywhere, which warriors call sources. But an ordinary person is not able to feel them. Only warriors are able to absorb their energy, thereby their body. He is interested in what changes his first practice has made to his body, but he doesn't feel anything yet. The main character decides to verify his own guesses with the help of the system. His strength and endurance have increased by 2 points. Previously, he could only use points to increase those characteristics. Suddenly, a notification appears in front of him about the possibility of participating in a lottery. In addition to certain system awards, it gives the opportunity to participate in a drawing every month. The guy recently spent over $1 million on buying a gun. He asks her not to give him another one. The wheel stops at a cell that offers him a gift for rapid growth. The hero opens the gift box and sees a mountain of things in front of him. Then, the system offers to activate right now. The voice asks the owner to put on the rapid growth protective gear to activate. The guy puts weights on his arms and body, not understanding at all what is about to happen. Having finished the action, he stands in the middle of the room, waiting for what is happening. The system reports that the preparation has been completed. The hero falls sharply to the ground. Remaining in this position, he realizes that the weights have become too much for him to lift. The total additional weight is about 130 kilograms. When the hero tries to raise his hand, he begins to get indignant because he didn't think he would sign up for such an adventure. The guy doesn't understand what's happening. The system apparently wants to kill him with protective equipment. When he tries to take off the suit, the guy gets electrocuted because the procedure is not finished yet. The system strongly recommends that he focus on adapting to the kit today, otherwise he will have to crawl to the academy tomorrow. Upon successful completion of the rapid growth program, there is a chance to receive 25 attribute points. Then, the hero decides to move lying down until he learns to walk normally in this set. He crawled all night and finally managed to start walking with difficulty. Decided to come to the sports ground. It seems he is already on his 20th lap, but taking into account all his efforts, he still lacks a lot of points to finish. Suddenly, someone taps the guy on the shoulder and calls him by name. The hero is unable to stay on his feet and falls on his stomach due to the weight of the weights. He turns and yells at the man, unhappy that he is suddenly hit on the back. There is a girl named Mary standing in front of the guy. She asks John if everything is okay with him. She looks at him in surprise and asks if he is sick. While on the ground, the hero begins to justify himself to the girl, trying to explain that he was lost in thought and did not notice her. He gets to his feet, is happy to see his friend, because they haven't seen each other for about 2 years. Mary has matured a lot and has already become a real girl. She explains that the high school entrance exams are just around the corner, so the teachers have started taking them on a tour of the school buildings to see which one they like best. The guy asks if the girl has decided to apply to Starlight Academy, and if it is possible that the reason lies in her older brother, who studies there. Mary sighs and explains that she wouldn't have applied just because of him. Suddenly, their dialogue is interrupted by a voice from the other side, asking if it is true that John once lived with a girl next door. A blonde guy named George scoffs, saying that he heard about the worst student who had the same name. The girl loses her temper, yells at him, and asks what else the guy wants to say. George explains that when he saw his new classmate, who was 2 years older, the guy couldn't wait to exchange experiences with him. Hearing this, Mary rolls up her sleeves, becoming very angry with her interlocutor. Then the blonde explains that he is not going to fight with her, because he is only interested in her brother. Then he asks if he is scared. He smiles broadly, puts a grin on his face, and agrees to fight his interlocutor. If a guy really wants to get into a fight, then the main character is ready to fulfill this desire. Despite the additional burden of over 100 kilograms and the pain throughout his body, he should have no problem dealing with one enemy. Then the guys stand in front of each other and get messages that it's time to start. Immediately after this, George begins to run towards him and attack. The guy swung his leg, screaming with effort, but the main character also repels his attack with his lower limb, although he has heaviness with each movement. The attacker jumps to the side, returning to his previous place. A bead of sweat runs down George's face as the boy praises his opponent for his skills. He crosses his arms, activating the skill. Green sparks light up around him. His palms burn with a bright flame. The ability has a bronze level. The guy accelerates at a tremendous speed and heads towards his opponent, touching his chest with his hand. The protagonist notes that in a normal situation he would have been able to dodge, but with the current load he had no chance. Then the blonde guy continues to hit his opponent, and immediately hits him in the stomach area. Classmates watch from the sidelines, saying that George is a genius who has almost reached the rank of warrior candidate, so Mary's brother is doomed to defeat. The attacker understands that his opponent is only doing what he does, fighting back and retreating, but he cannot knock him out. The guy must knock him to the ground in Mary's presence to prove his strength. He simply has to make a real scum out of her brother. The hero uses a huge amount of force to fight back against John, swinging and hitting him with a direct attack. But the enemy surpasses him in strength and agility, so he grabs his hand, squeezing it tightly. The main character asked the guy if he knew that a killer must always be prepared for the same fate to befall him. George is seriously scared by this phrase, and asks to wait and do nothing. But it's no use. Now the senior has to teach him a lesson. The blonde guy's arm is broken and he falls to his knees, screaming in pain and shock. The main character swings his leg and hits the guy in the face, making him throw his head back. At the same moment, John delivers a direct blow. Then the enemy flies to the side. A bunch of guys gather around George. They fuss and worry about their friend. But he doesn't listen to them. The guy is seething with anger, ready to kill his enemy. The main character believes in this, smiles good-naturedly and offers to try it. A stranger appears from behind and runs towards him, and the guy turns back in confusion. The man swings his fist and hits the hero, who backs away far away. The beaten guy turns around and sees an explosion behind him, but John lands on his feet, breathing heavily from exhaustion. As it turns out, this man is George's brother, named Joseph, and also holds the rank of warrior candidate. He is a third-year high school student who is the vice chairman of the Academy's hand-to-hand combat club, and is also ranked number 100 in the academic power rankings. The boy swings his arm wide, preparing to take revenge for the harm done to his brother. The protagonist once again realizes that due to the current load he is wearing, he has no way to dodge the attack. The guy falls to the ground, drops of blood splashing in all directions. Sister Mary appears before him, asking him not to touch her brother. Joseph tells her not to overestimate herself, and kindly suggests that the girl step away. The guy's fist flies towards her face, intending to deliver a crushing blow. At this moment, the main character has already risen to his feet. He pushes his sister aside and asks her to be careful in this situation. Then, he manages to remove Mary from the path, taking the blow from the attacker onto himself. John groans in pain, his vision darkens, and his legs give way. He falls to the ground, and someone from the side makes a snide comment about the guy playing the hero. At this moment, Joseph appears in front of John and threatens to cripple him. The guy puts his foot on the enemy's body, and he starts screaming loudly in pain. The opponent continues to press, intending to make him not only a scumbag, but also an invalid. Out of nowhere, a teacher appears, heads towards them, and orders them to stop the attack immediately. But Joseph doesn't care about this. He is burning with rage and continues what he started. The teacher screams in irritation, in his head condemning him for what is happening, to which the blonde just clicks his tongue, because he didn't manage to finish this fight. The teacher stands in front of him and starts scolding him. How can the guy not be ashamed to offend the younger one? Joseph begins to say that his opponent dislocated his younger brother's wrist. Mary stands up for her brother and explains that George was the first to attempt on John's life. The teacher explains that this incident will be discussed at the academy. After this, the blonde older brother begins to threaten the boy and advises him to watch his surroundings as he walks down the street. John asks him not to worry about this, and in 3 days he offers to meet in the fighting arena. The teacher yells at his student, explaining that the combat arena can be a lethal test. Mary is worried about her brother and asks him to take his words back, but she has nothing to worry about. The protagonist once again asks the enemy if he has enough courage for this. The blonde guy is already thinking about how to cripple the enemy in the presence of all the teachers and students of the academy. Many people at school are discussing what happened and placing bets on who will win this competition. The students spread rumors, giving different guesses as to the reasons for this skirmish. Arriving at the medical center, the nurse asks him to undress completely in order to conduct an examination. But John does not understand why this is necessary, since he only has a broken arm. He looks at the limb with delight, because the healing effect occurs instantly. This is an extremely valuable healing mixture, capable of providing complex regeneration of bones and muscle tissue in the shortest possible time, which cannot be found on sale anywhere. The girl asks him not to think about how, having defeated a second-rank warrior, he became cool and now knows everything about battles to the death. Their family has enormous influence. Now John is not in a position to insult them and get away with it, but the hero is not ready to just endure. The nurse has no doubt about the coolness of her interlocutor, but hands him a green card. He is surprised because in his hands lies a combat skill card called Ripping Fist. The girl does not demand money from him. She took her libraries. In close combat, it is the most ferocious fist technique, capable of creating an earthquake in the air during contact with the subscriber. But if the practitioner's body does not have sufficient strength, it can lead to damage to bones and muscles. She also hands the guy a healing potion that can help him heal faster. The main character cries with delight because no one has ever given him such expensive gifts. Putting her hand on the patient's face, the girl says that she does not want John to die. It's already getting dark outside, and the tense sounds of training can be heard all around. As they say, the damage from a single tearing fist comes from the inside out. But with the protagonist's current skills, he is unable to use it. It's good that he has a potion, otherwise the guy would have no chance to master this skill in 3 days. Hard training helped John level up, and an extra 11 points will allow him to increase his strength a little more. However, the problem is that the system's rapid growth program is still not complete. Although he has already adapted to the weight of the kit, fighting in this state he will only be able to react at 80%. It seems it's time to stop training. He has to go out to the arena this evening. He should go back to his place, take a shower, and get ready for what's to come. People have gathered around. The host's voice is coming from the speakers, informing those present about the opponents for the day. Among those present, most are rooting for Joseph, shouting out motivational speeches. 2 teachers sitting on the side discuss the likely outcome of the fight. No one believes that John is capable of defeating this guy. The blonde asks his opponent what he will choose to kneel and admit his defeat or die at his hand. The protagonist says that he is not going to hold back, even if he admits defeat. Immediately after this, Joseph activates his bronze instant slash skill. No one knew that he would start right away with a deadly technique, the essence of which lies precisely in speed, in order to defeat the enemy before he has time to react. The protagonist pushes the sword away with his spear. He managed to hold off the attack, but it wasn't that easy for him. The guy asks if it is the energy of the sword because it did not touch his neck, but left a bloody scratch. The attacker grins, believing that the enemy cannot cope with him, so he swings his weapon again and asks for surrender. The main character is not going to retreat. He quickly cuts through the air, defending himself from attacks. But his clothes are torn, leaving more and more scratches. There is no escape from it. Despite the losing position, John's eyes shine with confidence and faith in his own strength. Mark watches from the sidelines, worried about his friend. Roger explains to his classmate that Joseph's attacks are pointless, because they did not cause serious damage to the guy. The enemy begins to worry, because the enemy has withstood all his attacks, and despite the power of the sword energy that he released, they turned out to be useless. The blonde guy is not going to give up. He activates another skill, and an orange flame is already lit around his weapon. John looks at this from the side. He will not be able to withstand it. Like the others, the blow of the accumulated force is not yet ready. He has no choice. The guy originally planned to save the move and use it after the anger scale is filled. John grabs the spear and runs at the enemy, activating the Phoenix's majesty. The teacher watches everything with confusion, as John was suddenly able to use such a powerful combat skill, and on top of that, the flame he released contains the energy of the current. Apparently, in just a few days the main character managed to comprehend the technique of improvement. The battle continues. He directs energy towards the enemy, causing a huge explosion. Finding himself on the ground, the fire continues to burn around him. John grimaces in pain. His opponent is still standing on 2 legs, watching what is happening. He says that despite the defeat, he still deserved honor for being able to wound him like that. Near the podium stand 3 people close to the main character, who call him by name incessantly. He stands up abruptly, smiling and enthusiastically saying that he feels great. The system reports that the rapid growth program progress has been completed and that anger has been accumulated. The guy decides to send 21 points to strength and 4 to endurance. At the same moment, he takes off his outerwear, and then people around him notice the weights put on his body. Joseph looks at what is happening with a smirk and does not understand the essence. Suddenly, the equipment hits the floor. A loud sound is heard, and dust rises into the air. People watching around are waiting for the continuation. It promises to be bright. With cruelty in his eyes, the protagonist says that this was just a warm-up, and the real fight will only begin now. Joseph realizes that the boy was just playing with him all this time. He runs towards the enemy, and shouts that he must pay for his complacency. The guy swings his weapon, trying to touch and wound the enemy, but he disappears. The blonde doesn't understand and continues to look ahead with horror and surprise. But the main character attacks him from the other side, swinging his spear. Trying to react quickly, Joseph holds his sword out in front of him, blocking the attack. He notices that the speed has increased significantly, apparently due to the equipment that was restricting the guy. The protagonist believes that it is his time to have fun with his opponent. The spectators are happy, proud of their loved ones, and cannot take their eyes off the fight. Another teacher stands behind them, confused, silently watching what is happening. Meanwhile, John continues to spin his spear to deliver his next attack. It activates Accumulated Power Strike and Phoenix Majesty at the same time, doubling the skill. Joseph can't comprehend what's happening, because such a person can't have such impressive fighting skills. Fiery spots dance around, and a bird's head appears out of nowhere, ready to attack the enemy. The guy traps the blonde, aiming a direct attack at his chest. Even holding a sword in front of you doesn't help, because it breaks right away. Then Joseph flies high into the air, falling to the ground. The main character walks easily along the ground, continuing to move in front of him by inertia. People are shocked by what they saw. No one can believe that the worst student of the academy defeated a person from the top 100 ranking. But the blonde guy leans his hand on the ground and quietly calls his opponent by name. He asks not to think that it's all over, because he can't afford to lose. The guy takes out a bottle with an unknown liquid to drink something. His eyes widen and veins appear on his face. Suddenly the limbs become larger and muscle mass increases. A huge monster appears before the main character. The enemy has grown many times in size. Looking at him, John asks him if his enemy has just taken doping. Then, Joseph smiles widely and rejoices that he can destroy his own enemy right now. He activates his splitting fist skill, swings his arm wide, and prepares to strike. The guy directs the attack into the ground. The stones fly in different directions. The hero rolls back, clicking his tongue, because he didn't expect such an outcome at all. Despite the danger, he continues to run forward to strike with his own spear. But suddenly, his opponent grabs the weapon with his huge hand. The guy is clearly pleased with himself, with the fact that he is in a more advantageous position at the moment. He snatches the weapon from the enemy's hands and then strikes him in the stomach. Screaming in pain, John flies to the side at great speed. His opponent throws his own tool at the enemy in order to cause damage. While the main character is flying, he needs to come up with something as quickly as possible to prevent his own death. He activates the bronze skill and clenches his teeth from the weight, blue sparks igniting around him. John uses the ripping fist skill on the weapon to prevent it from damaging him. Then the spear flies high up and spins in the air. The boy bends over from exhaustion, and the weapon is stuck into the ground next to the podium of their battle. Watching the battle, the teacher reports that Joseph has decided to use Arpus to win. Mark asks the man what kind of product it is. He explains that in the past, in order to counter powerful zombies and evolved beasts, the Federation developed a drug that can significantly increase the strength of the human body for a short period of time. To strengthen the body, this drug carries out forced absorption of energy flows, so it can lead to the destruction of bones and muscle tissue. It seems that in order to defeat John, the guy is ready to pay double the price. The teacher reports that one of the parties has used doping, so this fight must be stopped. The presenter watches what is happening in horror, holds the microphone in his hand, but cannot tear himself away. One of the teachers asks if there are any rules that prohibit fighting under the Arpus. The guy turns his head sharply to the side and then starts speaking into the microphone. He reports that the teacher said that the battle can continue. The teachers exchange glances, sharing silent displeasure, but suddenly one of them notices someone in the country. He sees Oliver, the head of the clan. His family is one of the shareholders of the academy. And since he is here today, the management cannot ignore his importance. The man does not understand how one can watch indifferently as one student is killed. Joseph, continuing to move forward, says that without a weapon, the enemy does not have a single chance in this battle, and continues to list his merits and skills. The protagonist wipes his face with his hand and asks his interlocutor why he decided that he only knows how to work with a spear. The guy activates the ability of the explosion of anger, which allows him to significantly increase strength, speed, and endurance. He pushes off the floor and moves towards the enemy with great speed. The blonde waves his hand and continues to talk about how you shouldn't overestimate yourself. Their fists touch, pressing hard against each other. The boys start swinging their fists with equal speed and force. The students watch what is happening on the field with their mouths open. Everyone is incredibly surprised by the strength and dedication of the main character. Joseph doesn't understand why even after taking the drug he can't kill the guy, he just has to destroy him. Freed from the weights and with additional stat points, John feels like he's starting to get better at using his ripping fist. He brags to the enemy that he has the best fist technique. Now he can release a really good ability. The guy swings, but at that very moment the opponent's ability flies past him. He hits him in the shoulder when Joseph misses. The blonde explains that now his skin cannot be pierced even by a spear. Did the hero really think that he would succeed? The guy explains that his target is the internal tissue, not the skin. Suddenly, an explosion occurs in the enemy's body, and his arm is torn off from his body. The onlookers are shocked by what is happening on the battlefield, because this is the strongest skill, and John should have died already. They think he is crazy for daring to improve this skill. Joseph falls to the ground, kneeling, unable to believe his own eyes. The guy stands over him and says that he was able to master this skill in 3 days. Now victory is his. Despite this, the blonde is about to give up. He continues to run towards his own enemy to deliver another crushing blow. The main character skillfully pushes away the opponent's attack, preparing to deliver another blow. Suddenly, the hand activates another skill unknown to anyone. Then the guy flies to the side, receiving a blow in front of him. The teacher, sister, and friend of the main character, watching this from the side, scream in fear. They surround John, asking how he is feeling. The man stands next to his own son, asking the hero if he wanted to attempt on the life of his man. The hero laughs. Apparently, the people of this clan are not able to rely on themselves even in the battle arena. But the teacher explains that before the battle began, the parties made an agreement that the fight could continue until death. Unfortunately, the man has no answer. He says that he remembers John by sight. The exhausted boy watches him silently. The presenter announces that John is winning the battle in the arena, and people around him rejoice and call his name. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door, announcing that it is already very late. The main character goes out into the corridor, sees the teacher in front of him and asks why there is such a rush. He came to tell the guy 2 pieces of news, namely good and bad. John agrees and asks to start with the bad news. With bitterness on his face, the teacher announces that the academy has decided to punish the boy. He gets furious because he is not guilty of anything. But the thing is, Joseph's family is one of the shareholders of Starlight Academy, and this time he broke his arm and almost killed his other brother. For people in power, when another puts himself above others, it is a grave insult. Since the guy had taken doping in front of everyone in the arena, they decided to blow up the incident with the broken arm under the pretext of harassing a junior high student. They pressured the academy to impose a punishment. The main character squeezes his hand painfully out of indignation and anger. Then, he finally makes up his mind and asks what punishment he was assigned. The teacher exhales and says that together with the army garrison of the city of Starlight, they will take part in the annual cleansing of the Fortress of Light. The Fortress of Light is a large military structure located north of the city. A serious nuclear accident in that area resulted in all the soldiers and civilians being mutated. Large groups of beasts still constantly appear there, and military groups are formed annually in the vicinity of the city to conduct a punitive expedition. The number of zombies and evolved beasts in that place should be much greater. This is a large wave of points and experience for the main character. The guy starts to smile and agrees to go to this place. The mortality rate of soldiers participating in the annual expeditions is about 70%, and the teacher promises that he will make every effort to mitigate the punishment. The main character raises his hand up and thanks him, but has already made his decision, and also clarifies that there is good news. The teacher looks at the young man with confusion, but suddenly remembers what they are talking about. He completely forgot about it, thinking about more important things. The man hands his student a silver skill card and congratulates him on entering the top 100 of the rankings. The main character looks at the gift with delight and thanks his teacher. The creator of this combat skill is a famous one in the past. He is a great spearmaster named Leon. It is said that he was able to deliver 100 spear thrusts in 1 second. After his death, he left behind a lot of skill cards. Few people were able to master this technique of one. The guy is excited to imagine how he will act with his new ability. He thanks his teacher again for this present, and he puts his hand on his shoulder. The teacher says that the guy is progressing by leaps and bounds. He has a promising talent. John should go to the Fortress of Light and be sure to return alive. The main character has no doubt that he will return safe and sound. Having gathered himself, he goes out into the street, since the last time his academic combat uniform has turned into a mess, so he had to spend money on a new set. And besides, it is unknown whether the army will provide him with a uniform. But the walk cannot be calm. Suddenly a blade appears near his neck. The guy deftly evades danger, not fully realizing what is happening. He jumps to the side, turns his head towards the approaching danger, and asks who the attackers are. The man walking towards him says that the guy has great reflexes. He would never have believed that he is not yet officially a warrior. But each of these people is a first-rank fighter. Apparently, they decided to give him a new experience. The protagonist asks if there will be any problems, since they are within the city limits. The bald man says that if they finish carefully, no one will know about their involvement in this matter. Then, the man activates the bronze skill and rushes towards the enemy, stretching out his hand with the sword in front of him. John deftly and skillfully dodges the attack, saying that in this case, he is calm about the safety of these guys. The guy decides to use a tearing fist to respond to the attack. The bald man's arm becomes covered in bloodstains, indicating ruptures in internal tissue, and he screams loudly in pain. The protagonist continues to attack, saying that the killers will have one ending, namely death. But the attacker is no longer confident in his own strength. Confusion and horror appear on his face. Without listening to him, John immediately knocks out his opponent, ending the fight with one blow. The observers stand aside, discussing what happened. The system reports a victory over a first-rank warrior. Despite this, the boys decide to attack together in the hope that they can defeat the hero. After a couple of seconds, the enemies are defeated without even causing John to feel tired. The survivors look at their opponent with fear and are afraid to even approach. And yet, they decide to run away so that they don't suffer even more damage. The main character remains standing in place. Probably someone set the guys on him. Most likely it's all about Joseph's family. But they somehow underestimate him, since they sent people of such a level. It's getting dark outside, and in one of the city's mansions, dishes are smashing on the floor to the sounds of a man screaming. The woman scolds the soldiers for failing their mission, because they couldn't even wound the main character. The men explain that the guy is very strong, and they did not expect him to be so strong. Speeches about what happened continue to be heard from the outside. The assassination attempt should not have happened within the city limits. The doors swing open and Oliver appears, ordering the men to leave. He stands in front of the woman, asking her if she really thought that no one would know about what happened. If Oliver hadn't sent people to clean up the mess in time, their family would have become the subject of a federal investigation. But the interlocutor cannot remain inactive when her sons have been treated in this way. The woman goes berserk, ordering John to go to a dangerous place where the chances of survival are almost zero. Oliver sighs because his son knew what would happen if he took doping, and facing death will make him stronger. But he had already put pressure on the academy and forced them to send John on a mission to clear out the Fortress of Light as punishment. The man speaks warily, squinting his eyes slyly. The mortality rate is 70%. People gather in the square, near the ship, and mark their presence. The man, a third-rank warrior named Lewis, holds a tablet in his hands and asks the protagonist if he is John. The guy, made up of a lot of things, replies that it is him. The hero planned to test the instructor for general combat ability, but he is another fighter who is not affected by the eye of analysis. Everyone present must listen to Lewis with utmost attention. He hopes that each of them will be able to survive this mission. The soldiers laugh at the main character, because they themselves look much more impressive and scary. The commander asks to stop chatting. This time their city is sending 4 brigades with a total of 40 warriors on the expedition. One of the men decides to clarify that there are fewer of them, since John doesn't look like he can do any harm. Lewis then orders the man to get out of line and do 100 push-ups as punishment for the prank. The soldiers immediately accept this instruction, preparing to carry out the order. The commander approaches the main character and starts a dialogue with him. He is in the same position as all the other fighters, asks him not to relax his vigilance and always keep his eyes open, because death will be waiting on all sides. While the others are doing push-ups, the main character also accepts these words, making a serious face. Louis goes to the ship, reporting that the entire team is in place. It is necessary to put the equipment in order and set off. While the plane flies high in the air, the men practice using the tools needed to do this. Then, a long-haired man approaches the main character and introduces himself as Bobby. He once also studied at the same academy as the guy. John looks up with a bored expression and examines his new interlocutor. The fighter asks him how it happened that the hero was sent to the most dangerous area, even though he didn't finish high school. Hearing this, John lets out a tired breath and forces a smile, explaining that he was forced to go there. Bobby asks if the problem is that the protagonist angered some big shot connected to the academy. Suddenly, a tin can flies at the man before he can finish speaking. Experienced fighters appear before him and ask him why he is shirking training. After this, Bobby stands up and explains that John is his classmate and asks him not to overdo it. A man named Clayton pushes his coworker away and makes rude comments about his behavior. He squats down and asks what is in the box that the main character brought with him. Before he could try to open it, John puts his hand on the equipment packaging. The guy looks up at his interlocutor and asks if his elders taught him not to touch other people's things. The man's veins on his forehead stand out from aggression. He considers his interlocutor to be quite impudent and arrogant. The men standing aside mock what is happening and offer to teach John a lesson, since they do not consider him a rival. The main character continues to snap back, feeling superior to the young people. The man doesn't care. He still tries to open the box, despite the indignation of its owner. Clayton picks up the gear, but it's too heavy, and sweating, he asks what could be lying there. But the main character looks at him calmly and clicks his tongue. The guy kicks the box with his foot, causing the man to start rolling backwards. The box suddenly opens and a spear jumps out of it, spinning in the air. With a sharp and precise movement of his hand, John catches it, preparing for battle. The protagonist straightens his arm and points the blade towards his interlocutor, smiling with a sense of superiority. The man bares his teeth, worried that he might die. Despite this reaction, John warns that when the silver spirit is involved, blood is shed. People watch this from the outside and also worry about the life of their friend, because it is unknown how the attacker will behave in this situation. The main character says that he expected more from a first-rank fighter, and this greatly disappointed him. Clayton clutches his neck, still feeling irritated and angry at him. Despite this, the guy puts his weapon away in a drawer, makes caustic jokes, and mocks his interlocutor. At this, the man loses his temper. He is seething with rage and indignation. A soldier swings his fist towards his opponent to strike and feel reassured. But he acts too slowly, so the protagonist is the first to strike the man in the face. Due to loss of coordination, he falls to the ground, screaming in pain. But soon he gets up again and continues his attack, still trying to teach the younger one a lesson. Suddenly, a stern voice is heard in the room, ordering the slaughter to stop immediately. Behind Clayton stands a commander asking if he's been pestering the rookies again. One of the men explains that John was the first to knock the man to the ground. Louis looks at the fighter with irritation. Apparently there is little shame in being put down by a high school student, being a warrior. If he has a lot of energy, then instead of doing such nonsense, it is worth thinking about how to survive, because they will soon reach the Fortress of Light. Once they reach the ground, they find themselves near a large building. 3 more instructors will go to the central area to eliminate the main threat. The rest will form 4 groups of 10 people under the supervision of platoon commanders and enter the fortress through the southern gate. John decides to ask Bobby if the guy has been here before. But in truth, he only joined the service this year, so he is a new recruit. By moving forward, Clayton hopes that the protagonist will not just let himself be destroyed. But there is no need to worry about him, because the only thing to worry about is whether the fighter who was unable to beat a high school student will be able to see tomorrow. Footsteps are heard, boots are pounding on the fresh earth, someone demands to stop talking. A girl named Rosa, who is the platoon commander, appears in front of the soldiers, and from that moment on, she orders them not to cause trouble. The commander does not want the rest of the group to be in danger because of their petty squabbles. Then the girl turns her head towards John and orders him to perform. Frightened cries can be heard on the empty streets. It seems that the zombies are already preparing to attack the people who came to their lair. There are quite a few small villages in the vicinity of the Fortress of Light. A dozen of them will be busy clearing out one of them. There are first-rank zombies here. The difficulty of this task is not even close to what Rose expected. Now the team is only on the outskirts of the village. High-ranking zombies and evolved beasts are further away. The soldiers continue to move forward along the empty streets, following one another. Suddenly, a bunch of new dangerous creatures appear in front of them, and they must deal with them. These are rank 2 zombies that have high speed, and when bitten, the infected turns into one of them. The main character suddenly stops, but the others are not very impressed. Immediately, Clayton grabs his axes and runs towards the impending danger, enjoying the fight. One of the mutants jumps up off the ground with a sharp movement and flies towards the enemy. It turns out that the monsters are too fast, and the man underestimated his opponent's property. Suddenly, John's spear appears from behind his back, and with a sharp movement pierces the mutant's head. The system reports that they have earned about 2,000 points, and Clayton looks at the main character in surprise. The man thanks his savior not entirely sincerely, but the guy continues to move forward. He is happy to have the opportunity to gain as much experience as possible. The zombies rush towards him, baring their teeth, attacking everyone they see. The main character destroys one monster after another with a sharp movement. The system sends notifications that the number of points is increasing. The fighters watch from the sidelines, surprised by John's severity earlier. Clayton couldn't even lift this spear. With her head down, Rose orders the attack to begin. This is a second-rank zombie. Maximum caution must be exercised. All those present agree and head towards the main character to also begin the fight. The girl cuts the mutants in half with her katana in sharp movements. The rest also fight the mutants, putting in maximum effort. Suddenly, people stop. Something has gone wrong. They stand in place, with dead creatures lying around. The main character screams in horror. Because he hears the howl of the zombie leader, he calls the rest of the monsters here. The soldiers remain in the same positions, their eyes widening in horror. The sound of feet stamping can be heard. Mutants are running towards them at great speed. They strive to overtake the enemy as quickly as possible, in order to feast on fresh flesh. Several dozen zombies surround the soldiers and the rest of the people, seemingly with nowhere to go. Rose orders to stop panicking. Before they get any closer, firearms should be used. The men take out their guns and prepare to fire towards the enemies, thus harming the attackers. Bullets fly out of the gun barrels at great speed, hitting parts of the mutants' bodies. Despite this, each of them continues to strive forward, seeing nothing but their own goal. John also continues to stand in his place, shooting mutants with a cannon. The system sends notifications about the destruction of a zombie. He earns points. Now the guy is at level 12. His combat capability is already above 700. The main character asks the system to send half of the characteristic points to strength, and the other half to speed. Now that his abilities are around 800, he becomes a first-rank warrior. John will be able to use the accumulation of anger only 3 times a day, and the ability recharge is about 8 hours. While he was thinking about all this, the battle continued with the same fury. Looking at the situation, Rose orders the rest of the fighters to prepare for close combat. She draws her weapon from its sheath and activates her combat skill. The girl sharply moves her hands and lowers the katana down. Her ability is called Heavenly Slash. The men are shouting loudly. They are motivated to come to the attack as quickly as possible. The main character went wild, because now he had the opportunity to gain as much experience as possible. He swings his spear vigorously, creating vortices of air around himself. One of the soldiers shouts that the number of mutants behind them is growing. The commander notes that there really are too many zombies, and they can't let the creatures surround them. The girl points her sword at the building and demands that the team head there. Most of the group retreats, and two of the soldiers cover the people's backs. They quickly enter the room, following each other. It's good that people were lucky with the door. Now there is a chance to escape. Bobby asks the commander and John to hurry. Rose reports that the mutants have come too close. If they run now, they will most likely not be able to close the door in time, and suggests that her colleague go in first. The guy makes a sharp movement to push the girl towards the door, but she is indignant. The main character smiles and says that it is not his habit to make the girl bring up the rear of the column. The commander is shocked by what is happening. She looks at the guy indignantly and shouts at him. One of the soldiers grabs the lady by the arm to pull her inside the room. Rose is worried about the guy, screaming for him to let her go, because John is fighting alone. Then one of the men points out to the commander what is happening in front of them. The protagonist holds his weapon tightly, preparing to attack the creatures. He has already adapted to his fighting skills, so before he can activate it, fire starts coming out of his mouth. Then, John uses the Phoenix's majesty. The blast wave pushes the zombies aside, burning their limbs. The creatures try to get rid of the fire, to save themselves, but their attempts are useless. A large explosion is seen somewhere. The main character remains in place and watches as wind currents move in the distance. The soldiers, watching everything that is happening from the side, open their mouths at how great the main character's strength is. As John approaches the door, Clayton asks the boy to move faster. The guy quickens his pace, quickly entering the building in front of him. The arms can't take it, because all this time they were under extreme tension from the applied forces and weight. The men close the door with a sharp movement and a knock. Now they should be safe. But suddenly someone starts pounding on the metal. It bends strongly under the attacks. There are too many monsters. It looks like the door won't hold for long. The fighter approaches the commander and says that at the entrance leading to the second floor, there's a rather massive barrier gate with a narrow space between its shutters, which is favorable for defense. Before he could finish speaking, zombies appeared in the room, ready to attack at that very second. The main character is indignant and does not understand who made this door. Rose calls everyone to the second floor. At the same moment, the mutants continue to move forward, wanting to attack people. The girl quickly closes the gate in front of her with her hands to find herself safe. At the last moment, she snaps the lock in front of her, preventing the mutants from getting inside. They stick their hands through the slits in the bars, shout menacingly, and reach out to them. The girl suggests going upstairs and conducting reconnaissance of the floor. It needs to be protected from possible threats. The boys enter the room and see only dusty stairs and walls. Suddenly, Bobby notices something in front of him, his brows tense and furrowed. He sees a walled-up creature, cloth fluttering around its body, its mouth open in pain. It turns out that there are a large number of such mummies around, with cobwebs growing around them, covering most of the walls. The guy assumes that there are mutated spiders in the area, but before he could finish speaking, a shadow appeared on his back. And then Bobby hysterically tries to remove the creature from his back, screaming and touching it with his hands. Luckily, Clayton is nearby, swings his own axe, and removes the danger from behind. A black spider of the first rank appears in front of them. It has minor toxicity and enormous growth. The main character examines it and tells those around him the characteristics of the beast. Rose also confirms their entry into the spider's nest. Suddenly, one of the soldiers points out the impending danger to the commander. Several dozen huge spiders are crawling across the ceiling, and people are panicking from what they see. Rose also quickly orders to move to the floor above to escape danger. The soldiers act quickly and rise higher at her command. When she gets there, she also sees a bunch of spiders that trap the kids. At the same moment, one of them launches a toxic web towards the enemies who have entered their territory. Then, the commander decides to break through with attacks, because there is no choice. She swings her katana briskly, cutting down the monsters one after another. The main character suggests going up to the roof because this building has about 4 floors. He also waves his weapon while fighting spiders, not allowing himself to be hurt or even touched. Having reached the door, he kicks it down with a sharp movement of his foot, finding himself in a new place. People go outside and quickly run out of the dangerous building. Bobby, who was bringing up the rear of their column, closes the door. For now, they should rest a little and regain their strength. The zombies from the first floor, if they can't see them, will run away on their own. The protagonist approaches the edge of the balcony, observing what is happening below, and the girl follows his example. There are still a lot of zombies around the building. They are walking around looking for a victim, but something is bothering the young people. Out of nowhere, a second-rank fanged dog appears, jumps above the monster, and plans to attack. Since these animals like to move in packs, they act together, dealing with other mutants. The dogs jump on the humanoids one after another, tearing them to pieces. Rose and John watch in horror as events unfold below, not expecting such an outcome at all. They didn't know that the fanged dogs and zombies were fighting each other. The mutants, opening their mouths, move slowly. They go towards their goal. Rose is happy. This battle was supposed to lure the zombies out of the first floor. Now the people have a chance. But it is not clear why zombies and evolved animals attack each other. The commander reports that they need to check their equipment, full combat readiness, and prepare to descend to the lower floor. The soldiers look at her in shock. Bobby asks how people will leave from there. She explains that the first step is to break through the encirclement, then regroup on the outskirts and continue the mission. There are still a few zombies left outside. We need to deal with them quietly. Rose teams up with John. They run behind them and prepare to deliver a crushing blow. People pierce the heads of their enemies, quickly dealing with the obstacle. The protagonist gestures to his ally and explains that the horizon is now clear. People run past danger moving in groups. Suddenly, John decides to stop, apparently noticing something in front of him. He notices that the wolves and mutants are fighting, tearing each other to shreds. The dogs raise their eyes to the obstacle. Their muzzles look very angry. Then, the protagonist explains that they have now been discovered. One of the evolved beasts opens its mouth and rushes to attack. The guy defends himself with a sharp movement of his spear, hitting the animal in the face. Rose uses heavenly cleavage to deal with the impending danger. Clayton also swings his axes, while Bobby fights in close combat. Finally, the soldiers are free. They have dealt with all the danger, and now the horizon is clear. The protagonist looks away from himself, noticing something in that direction. In front of him stands a huge dog with a scar on its face, holding a zombie's hand in its mouth. The commander looks up in horror. Looking at the animal, the girl realized something. Then, John speaks for her. The king of dogs appeared before them. The mutant quickly shakes his head and throws the zombie aside. The main character asks the others to be careful, because danger is approaching. Before he could blink, the dog found himself in front of one of the soldiers. The man quickly jumps back, commenting that this one is faster than the others. John asks everyone to step aside, because in front of them is a fanged dog of the 3rd rank. The fighter tries to hit the animal, but the blade only bends against its body. He realizes in horror that the enemy is so strong that it is impossible to pierce him. Suddenly, the dog grabs the man's hand and clamps its jaws tightly. He tears off the enemy's arm, throwing his head back, and he screams loudly. Rose swings her weapon, using her new skill, ready to defend her team. The girl swings her katana from top to bottom and activates Heavenly Slash. The beast runs along a certain trajectory, avoiding attack. Suddenly, he finds himself in front of the Rose, opening his mouth and preparing to attack again. Fortunately, the main character is nearby and helps the girl get out of this difficult situation. John asks everyone to remain on guard, because this dog has strong skin and serious defensive capabilities. As quickly as possible, the guy moves his hand and pokes his spear at the enemy. Apparently, he couldn't deal enough damage to him, and decides to activate another skill. The guy uses a blow of accumulated power, as the anger has reached 100%. From the strain, he breathes heavily and screams, squeezing the instrument in his hand tighter. The main character swipes his hand and hits the target, hitting the enemy. Those watching from the sidelines are happy. They are glad that they have finally achieved victory. An explosion passes in front of the main character, and vortices of air rise up, raising dust. But the enemy is still alive. The notification system did not appear, which means it's not all over. The dog gets to his feet, bleeds, and everything around him glows red. You can see rage and a desire for revenge in his eyes. The animal jumps on its target, growling menacingly. A skill called Bloody Massacre has been activated. This was a fierce attack, shrouded in a bloody mist. No one would have thought that the evolved beasts that had reached the 3rd rank would have such powerful special abilities. John immediately warns the others to run in any order and dodge. A fiery explosion appears in front of the people. The attack begins to take effect. People fly off in different directions, falling off their feet. The main character is slammed into the wall, knocking all the air out of him. The guy realizes that even with such a fast turn, he managed to get hit. Lucky that he has system notifications. Otherwise, this time he would have been kicked in the bucket. The captain and the rest of the staff slowly rise from the ground. The beast stands in a fighting pose, preparing to attack and defeat its opponents. He closes his mouth, screams, and scares those present. Suddenly, the evolved animal jumps high off the ground. He once again uses bloody violence to try to defeat them once again. Then John doesn't understand how it's possible to use this skill twice. Despite his fear and doubts, the protagonist does not show his own fear and begins to swing his spear. After that, he activates the Phoenix Majesty skill to fight the beast. An explosion thunders around, causing sparks and dust to fly in all directions. Flying in the air, the main character opens his mouth wide and screams. Finally, the 3rd rank fanged dog is destroyed, and John gets 8,000 points. Standing on the ground, he shakes himself off and rejoices that he has finally defeated the enemy. Soldiers immediately run up to him and ask him many different questions. A loud sound is heard from somewhere. The guy doesn't even have time to think about the answers. Among the houses, the silhouette of a giant monster appears, who also wants to deal with them. A 2nd-rank zombie leader lands in front of the people. John concludes that it was his doing. A lot of zombies came to the guys. The creature stands over the defeated dog and looks sternly in his direction. Suddenly, the zombie hits the animal on the head, thrusting his hand into the animal's skull. He takes out an abnormal crystal and holds the precious stone in his hand. Immediately, the mutant absorbs the mineral, placing it in its mouth. Rose watches what is happening in horror, commenting on what she saw seconds ago. Clayton and John are also horrified by what they see. Can zombies also evolve using anomalous crystal? The guy guesses that this zombie is trying to improve to rank 3. The girl turns to the main character and asks if this is real. Then John breaks away and heads towards the enemy. It is necessary to stop him before he evolves. The zombie notices this movement and looks angrily towards his target. The creature opens its mouth and screams, calling for many new helpers. The team of fighters is again surrounded by small mutants who are ready to devour them at any second. The warriors stand with their backs to each other, and it seems that the people are now surrounded. The main character shouts to Rose to hold back the approaching monsters, and the guy will take care of the leader. The zombies will only disperse if they manage to kill him, and if he successfully evolves, they will not survive. The commander agrees to this condition, and asks the guy to be careful in this difficult battle. The main character runs at great speed towards the zombie and tries to defeat him with his own spear. The mutant repeats the movements of the main character, and also prepares for battle. At the moment of their collision, he swings his hand, and John pierces him with a spear. It turns out that the creature has a skin stronger than that of the fanged dog, probably due to the absorption of the anomalous crystal. To increase his strength, the protagonist activates the Phoenix Greatness skill. His weapon is covered in fiery rays. He aims at enemies. The main zombie bounces back from the attack, and first-rank creatures appear in front of him. They continue to run towards John, trying to fulfill the leader's order. And then, the guy realizes that he has already used up all the blows of his accumulated power, and the greatness of the Phoenix, despite its high power, absorbs too much energy. He urgently needs to find a way to deal with the crowd of zombies on my way as quickly as possible. The guy takes out a silver ability card from his pocket. Now he has become a first-rank warrior. Therefore, he had the opportunity to master combat skills quite quickly. The essence of the pear-colored flurry lies in the separate condition of speed. No enemy can withstand 100 spear strikes delivered in an instant. All martial arts in the world are ruled by speed. Rose watches what is happening from the side and is indignant, because now is not the time to study anything. The monsters continue to run towards him, closing the distance. But the guy is maximally focused on working on mastering new opportunities. At some point, the main character still activates a new learned skill, namely a pear-colored flurry. The guy pierces part of the zombie in 1 second by moving quickly with his spear. Unfortunately, his abilities only have 3 hits so far, which is not enough speed. The main character tries again, because this is not enough yet. He tries again and again until he gets the move perfect. 3 spear thrusts are not enough for him. More needs to be done. But when he succeeds, it is also not the best option. Clayton watches his actions in horror. But his commander explains that the most progressive way to learn combat skills is through constant combat. It was probably because of his obsession and madness that John was able to achieve such great power at such an age. Rose orders all the fighters to pull themselves together and be as capable as a high school student. The warriors of the first rank immediately raise their weapons and prepare to go into battle, to meet the test. The giant creature, the leader of the zombies, stomps his feet, creating vibrations in the ground. The main character has reached 5 hits at one point. It is still not enough, but he decides to head towards the main enemy, because the small ones are finished. He runs up, pushing off the ground with his feet, and launches an attack towards the zombie leader. Then, John grips the spear tighter and activates the pear-colored flurry skill, and the mutant covers his head and face with his hands to protect himself from it. He feels a strong pressure in his direction and tries to avoid the attack. John's spear is thrust into the monster many times, and it does not have time to defend itself. But something doesn't go according to plan, and the main character's face turns to confusion and disappointment. The guy notices that this monster has finally finished evolving. But the thing is, he didn't get the overall combat capability of a third-rank fanged dog. The main problem is the presence of a new skill that gives zombies stone skin. The guy exchanges glances with the creature, and realizes that in this case all he can do is fight to the end. He runs up, rushing towards danger. His opponent repeats this movement. Having reached him, John cuts through the air near the mutant, trying to wound him. Raising his head higher, he notices a giant-sized monster's leg wanting to crush him. But the hero manages to jump away from her at the last moment, thereby saving his life. If John can't destroy it quickly, it will continue to call for reinforcements, and their situation will only get worse. It seems there is no other choice, so the protagonist uses the ability of the explosion of anger. Those watching from the side feel the guy's aura strengthen. If a zombie could withstand a pear-colored barrage, could it withstand an enhanced version of this ability? Then John activates the skill, holding the weapon in front of him. He crushes the enemy with multiple spear thrusts, dealing increasing damage to the mutant. Everything seems to be working just as he expected. Entering a state of rage, the protagonist felt as if he had become one with the spear. The guy swings his weapon, deciding to make sure of his own feelings. He grips the spear even harder and uses his deepened knowledge to do so. The zombie watches what is happening from the side in confusion. Finally, the guy gets to crush the enemy. This attack turned out to be many times stronger than the previous one. Finally, the system reports the victory over the zombie leader and congratulates you on reaching level 13. Now the main character has received another promotion. He invests all the necessary points into strength. Now the guy can finish off all the remaining zombies with one blow. He immediately flies into the crowd and overcomes his opponents with quick movements. After some time, some of them lie on the ground. They will never disturb them again. Everyone present is happy about this, because Caton has deepened his knowledge of his fighting skills, and Bobby, in turn, thanks John for his help, because if it weren't for him, no one would have survived. Rosa asks the guy if he has taken any medications since they have serious side effects. The main character is embarrassed and explains that he is not taking anything, but is only using his fighting skills. The commander continues to say that earlier he could not leave big scratches, and with the last blow, he crushed the zombie. John himself didn't really understand what had happened. It was as if he had become one with the silver spirit. It was probably a deepening knowledge. It is the ability to release the highest power of a martial skill after reaching the required degree of cultivation and assimilation. Even low-level bronze skills, if they achieve deep comprehension, are capable of releasing power that is not inferior to silver skills. However, mastering deep knowledge is not so easy, because it requires not only deep knowledge of the combat skill, but also luck. It is said that only 1 in 1,000 warriors reaches high limits, and those who are able to master deep knowledge of skills are few. John smiles widely. If he has acquired deep knowledge in the pear-colored squall, does this mean that his power is now comparable to the golden skills? As time moves towards evening, the guys agree to spend the night on the roof of this building. No one would have thought that the meat of a third-rank fanged dog would be so delicious. The quality of the meat from the animals is very high. It is also not infected and does not contain viruses. The guy asks the commander if she has ever heard of the sacred area. Among the 5 major academies, it occupies the highest position, and the warriors who study there are the most elite in the eyes of the other academies. Every student of it is considered a genius. The protagonist digests the information and realizes that the sacred area is an institution of higher education. The minimum requirement for high school graduates to enter is a second-rank warrior. John thinks that the second rank is not that difficult. With the achievement system in place, it is only a matter of time. And he also wonders what kind of expression the Ice Princess will make when a future high-ranking warrior appears in front of her. Stopping in the middle of the street, Rosa explains to her subordinates that the instructors are responsible for clearing the deep zone. All they are required to do is eliminate the zombies and beasts of the middle part. But Bobby notices the danger in front of them and asks the girl who the monster is. An unknown creature crawls along the wall of the house, moves slowly, and does not pay attention to anyone. This is a rank 2 zombie crawler that has extremely high speed and the ability to climb and scale vertical objects. The creatures become more numerous as the warriors come closer. Clayton takes out his firearm, commenting on the slow movement of the monsters. John asks the guy not to rush to shoot, but it's too late. The hero misses the creature, even though he aimed perfectly. Don't underestimate them. The creatures have extremely high speed. Bobby decides to clarify. If they are so fast, then how come they look so clumsy? Most likely this is necessary in order to lure prey. One of the mutants turns and glares at his target. Quite a few mutants jump off the building, moving towards the companies of soldiers. The girl demands that everyone prepare for battle, because the zombies were provoked. The monsters quickly run towards them to attack and tear people to pieces. The men take up arms and shoot towards the mutants. Some hit the enemy, tearing off limbs or mortally wounding them. Rose demands that everyone remain on guard, and as soon as the mutants approach, immediately switch to cold weapons. The girl also continues to use her heavenly dismemberment skill, thereby quickly saying goodbye to the lives of her opponents. At the same moment, the men fight with the attacker. Some attack from behind, jumping from buildings onto people. One of the fighters is attacked by a zombie, which sinks its sharp teeth into his flesh. It's a man named Tom, and Rose is screaming and calling him. You must remember to look up to spot any approaching danger in the form of mutants. Clayton screams, swings his weapon, and fights the attackers. The protagonist also swings a spear, piercing the creatures' bodies. He suggests that Rose retreat to an open area to avoid attacks from above. The commander agrees to this proposal, because it sounds quite logical. People move quickly towards the park they recently passed. Having run to the clearing, people stop in the middle of it. They form a circle to avoid being attacked from behind. Rose holds her katana tightly and asks him not to take a single step back. People scream, quickly moving towards the zombies to deal with them. After some time, the soldiers sit on the ground, breathing heavily from fatigue. The main character puts a bottle in his mouth and empties it. John is dying of fatigue, but it was worth the effort for that amount of experience points. Suddenly, a blow flies past him, but the guy manages to crouch down, dodging it. As soon as he stands up, John raises his spear and responds to the attack with a sharp movement. In front of him stands a hooded man who is also trying to defend himself from the attack. The protagonist activates the Eye of Analysis skill and realizes that this is a third-rank warrior who specializes in stilettos, dodging techniques, and secret assassinations. He continues to hold the spear in front of him, asking the man who he is. Then he explains that the future dead person does not need to know the name. Rose is indignant and yells at the man because he decided to attack a Federation soldier. He explains that his target is John and doesn't plan to waste time on the others. The commander shouts, because the main character is also a soldier. If he kills him, he will become an enemy of the army. He makes a sharp movement of his hand and delivers a cutting blow. But the girl also activates Heavenly Slash to respond to the attack. Their forces collide, creating a violent explosion. From this force, the girl is thrown back. She loses her weapon. The men look at what is happening in horror and shout after Rose. The soldiers are about to attack the man because he dared to attack their commander. He activates a silver skill called Super Speed Rotation, and the men are pulled in the opposite direction. The main character slowly turns in their direction, looking ahead with boredom. The attacker looks at him because the hero was afraid of death, decided to leave his comrades to their fate and run away. But he is sure that the hero will not be able to get far. Once safe, the men sit down on the ground and do not understand who the person who appeared is. Rose clears her throat and explains that it is unlikely that John will be able to stand up to this strong man alone. Clayton screams, "It's obvious that the guy took the master away on purpose to get them out of danger." The girl grips her weapon tighter. Of course they won't stand idle. He dared to attack their man in the presence of the military personnel of the city of Starlight. The warriors will definitely let the man understand what happens for this. Having caught up with his target, the blonde guy stops in the middle of the road. John smiles widely and explains that he had no intention of running away. He was just looking for a deserted place, so that no one would bother him while they dealt with him here. The attacker screams in rage, because he has never seen such impudence. The protagonist asks him if Joseph's family sent him to kill him. He is not going to explain, because he is sure that his opponent will die soon. But John is now planning to deal with him, and then take revenge on this clan. He thrusts his spear forward in a sharp movement to strike. At the last second, the attacker ducks, and thinks that this speed really impresses him. The man suddenly crouches down and goes around the enemy from behind. He thinks of the heart of the moment that shook with the determination of cold fury that his rival had now released. John notices this strange turn. It is probably a combat skill from a rare category of movement techniques. The men come into contact in a fight, trying to cause each other at least some damage. One of them cuts off part of the opponent's hair with a sharp knife. John squats down, avoiding sudden movements. The protagonist slips his foot on the asphalt and avoids another attack. And suddenly, he raises his spear up to deliver a crushing blow. But the opponent burps back and runs in the opposite direction. The blonde man says he didn't expect that from him. Unfortunately, all these efforts are not enough. He takes out his weapon again. The attacker flies high into the air, activating the silver skill. It's called Petal Fall. Such a large amount of blade radiance is only for a moment. This skill has quite a similarity with Pear Blossom Flurry. But here, some of these radiances are illusory. Not all of the radiances released are deadly attacks. The main character decides to show the attacker a real death move. Their skills interact in attack and act on each other. Due to the enormous forces, they create one huge explosion. After which, the man jumps in the opposite direction so as not to die. The attacker has long known what this trick is. He managed to learn a lot when he killed those crawling zombies. The outstanding third-rank warrior had worked so hard to defeat the first-rank warrior, and they continued to exchange malicious comments with each other. The guy decides to use a pear-colored flurry again, but his opponent repels each of the attacks with sharp movements. The man goes on the attack again, using a skill called two-winged thrusts. His hands glow with blue flames, rushing towards the protagonist to deal damage. The guy steps aside, but the enemy continues to advance at high speed. Then the main character groans from the strain and continues to move. The attacking man is happy that he won, but John is not going to give up. Suddenly, the blonde guy looks down and sees a bloodstain on his clothes, not believing his eyes, because he dodged all the attacks. Then, the main character explains that he had noticed the guy on the roof a long time ago, and that during the fight, the zombies fired 4 blows, but that was not his limit. In fact, he can fire about 5 instant strikes, and the 5th one hit him. The man insults his opponent. Realizing his situation, it seems he is doomed. Finally, the third-rank warrior is destroyed. The system awards 120,000 experience points for this. Exhaling heavily, the protagonist wipes the dust off his clothes and giggles quietly, happy to have leveled up to 14. Now, he can distribute the points he received. The guy decides to invest 4 into strength, and the remaining 10 into endurance. Although he managed to regain his vitality after leveling up, the wounds from the stilettos were still bleeding. Then, John pulls a small dagger out of his shoulder, pushing the weapon aside. He urgently needs to stop the bleeding that has opened up. A group of people appears in front of the guy. He cannot make out their silhouettes in the distance, but he hears his name sounding from their lips. Rose, leading the squad, runs ahead and asks the hero from a distance if everything is okay with him. Looking at them, John smiles faintly and thinks that these guys can really be relied upon. Even though they were facing a third-rank warrior, and the fighters still came as quickly as possible. Unable to stay in place, the protagonist's legs give way and the guy falls, not even putting his hands in front of him. The warriors set up camp on the roof, opening the tent. The warriors lit a fire to illuminate the area. Once in bed, John slowly opens his eyes, still feeling the piercing pain in his head, his entire body wrapped in bandages. After some time, the guy gets to his feet and is about to get out of his tent in order to assess the situation around the shelter. The commander is already heading towards the main character, asking how the guy is feeling. Seeing her, he smiles good-naturedly and thanks the girl for the offered food. Having met John, Clayton tells him that he had to fight one of the killers wanted by the authorities of the city of Starlight. When the hero returns, he will be able to receive a reward for the life of the killed warrior. Since the guy's shoulders were damaged, the warriors used a healing ointment, but it takes more time to recover, so the team decided to stay in this place for a day, and then continue cleaning. The next day, the massacre continues with mutated creatures, soulless bodies lying around. A month later, it seems the area is clear and the soldiers can finally get out of this place and return home. There is no need to envy those unfortunate souls who will have to carry out the task here next year. Rose smiles widely. Only thanks to John's presence, their entire squad remained alive. Rejoicing at the end of the battles, the men hug and thank the protagonist. Now they are all like brothers. Suddenly, a voice from the side distracts them from their conversation, and the soldiers raise their heads to look at the speaker. A team of 6 people heads towards them. They remember the annual army cleanup. One of those present smiles slyly and offers to share their catch with him since they have already finished. Taking a confident pose, Rose decides to ask where the group got so much courage from, since they decided to rob the Federation soldiers. At that very moment, the protagonist activates the Eye of Analysis and becomes convinced that the 5 in front of him are first-rank warriors, essentially posing no danger to him. But one of them is Cameron, a 3rd-rank fighter who specializes in a 2-handed sword. Upon learning this, John turns to Rose and warns her about the presence of such a strong warrior in their company. A red-haired man with scars on his face speaks rudely and shouts at his interlocutors. Then, the main character already realizes that he has come for him, prepares for an attack, and noticeably tenses up. The enemy straightens his hand in front of him and says that he only needs John, and orders his subordinates to deal with the rest. Then, the girl recognizes the stranger as a guy named Cameron, nicknamed the Lone Wolf. Clayton asks her if she means the one who cut up an entire battalion. Rose explains that several of her comrades in arms fell by his sword, so it is no wonder that they dared to attack them, even knowing who they were. The opponent smiles, because for him it's as easy as pie. The heroine screams with rage and resentment for her fallen friends. She runs into battle, preparing to attack. But John stands in front of her and blocks her way, because he himself wants to deal with this enemy. The guy explains to Cameron that he has already dealt with his colleague, who was also sent. But the man doesn't care about what he heard. He raises his head and puts his sword behind his back, about to say something. Even though they were both 3rd-rank warriors, the difference in their strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. The weapon falls to the ground with force, crushing the soil, undoubtedly. His 2-handed sword is even heavier than the silver spirit of the protagonist. Cameron swings his weapon, cutting through the air in front of his opponents. Looking around, the commander orders to first finish off the rest, and then help the main character. The girl also warns that if they are in a common fight with that person, then the guys cannot stand on ceremony and calmly kill the enemies. At this point, John runs away, screaming, activating a pear-colored flurry. But the red-haired man doesn't care. He holds the blade of his sword in front of him with a smile on his face, defending himself from the attack. Cameron thinks it's childish tricks, because if he was capable of firing 10 punches per second, he might be able to hurt him a little. He takes his weapon in his hands, and is going to give the enemy a demonstration performance with real combat skills. This ability has a silver card and is called Dark Star Cleave. Looking at this from the outside, John understands that he could die under such pressure. At that moment, the guy decides to activate the explosion of anger to respond to the oncoming flow. The storm is getting closer to the enemy. It is quickly moving in his direction. Watching the entire fight, Rose screams hysterically and calls the main character by name. Clayton also sees everything and worries about his friend who is in trouble. After completing the attack, Cameron watches the events with pleasure, hoping for the greatest damage. But behind the descending whirlwind of dust, the shadow of the main character is visible. The enemy was too strong. If John hadn't activated the explosion of anger in time, he would most likely have been cut in two now. The 3rd-rank warrior enjoys this game. It seems to him that the opponent has taken doping. The battle continues, the men crossing their weapons, clashing blades. Even after activating the anger explosion, the protagonist still can't match him in strength. This guy must be at the peak of the 3rd rank. He notices and comments that the resistance is truly impressive. The man offers to try to respond to the next attack that he is ready to make. Then the guy begins to feel an increase in the aura, which already foreshadows an attack. Cameron decides to turn to a silver skill called Triple Slash. He smiles widely, baring his teeth as he activates the first cut. The main character is shocked by what he hears and already senses the impending attack. Then the guy jumps back with a sharp movement, trying to avoid damage to his body. An explosion goes off, sending chunks of dirt and dust flying around. A cough is heard and a bloody stain begins to appear underfoot. The protagonist's limbs are shaking. The force of this attack was too great. Even the spear made of space ore was cracked. Cameron cuts through the air with sharp movements, preparing to begin another attack. He activates the second stage of his ability, rushing forward towards his opponent. Sighing, the protagonist realizes that he must now activate his trump card, otherwise he will die. Then the boy uses the pear-colored flurry again, rushing forward to defend himself. Continuing to move, Cameron laughs loudly and repeats that this move is absolutely useless against him. The protagonist's eyes light up with fire, because this is not all that he is ready to show his enemy. The Phoenix Majesty has the property of cultivation, and after a month of continuous practice in a real combat situation, its power has become equal to that of a silver-level skill, and he has also discovered that his skills can combine with each other and exhibit much greater power when released at the same time. Seeing what's happening, Cameron's eyes widen in surprise and shock. It seems like he's in for a rough ride. A loud explosion rings out across the battlefield. The dark street is illuminated by fire, and clouds of smoke swirl around. Due to inertia, The main character flies away in the opposite direction from the ongoing battle. But despite this, Cameron remains on his feet, the man praising him for the attack he created. Unfortunately, each of his cuts can be strengthened by absorbing the energy of the enemy's skill. The attack John used was very strong, which meant the power of the third cut would be even greater. The man raises the weapon above his head, creating a vortex around himself to concentrate the force for the third cut. Seeing this, the hero freezes in place, horrified by the power of the technique. Only now does the guy truly realize that he could die now, but he gathers his strength into a fist. He does not intend to die. John feels strange emotions. Perhaps they arose from the crossroads between life and death. Or it is due to the activation of the explosion of anger, which gives him a boost in all characteristics. This sensation allows the guy to once again feel that incomprehensible state of unity with the weapon. The main character spins the spear behind his back. Now he will show a real squall of pear color. Now, he finally manages to activate deep cognition for the second time and use an enhanced form of this attack. After this, the enemy is engulfed in the wind emanating from the activated ability, and can hardly stand on his feet from such a strong aura. At this time, John lands on the ground behind him, having grouped himself well and grabbed the spear. Looking at the enemy, Cameron becomes confused because the technique is the same, but the power is many times different from the previous attack. He realizes that the enemy has activated deep cognition, but he still feels shocked. The red-haired guy's body is pierced through. He falls to his knees. Finally, the third-rank warrior is defeated, and the system congratulates him on reaching level 15. The protagonist is so exhausted that he can barely stand on his feet, but nevertheless, he feels relieved to be safe. He falls face down on the ground, unable to exert himself any longer in an upright position. The Federation army plane flies high above the clouds, quickly covering kilometers. The hero gets out of bed. His limbs tremble treacherously. He grabs his aching head and sighs heavily. The commander, who is nearby, is happy, because John lay unconscious all day, and now he has finally managed to come to his senses. Slowly touching his own face, he asks the girl where they are. With a smile on her face, Rose explains that they are flying on a transporter. The tasks are completed, and now they can return home. The girl decides to hand the gift to the hero. He looks at the thing in her hands with confusion. Then, the commander explains, on this card there are 3 million in Alliance currency. This is the reward for killing the Traceless Shadow and the Lone Wolf. She helped him with the application for the reward. Of course, the main character is happy with what he received, because now he can update his equipment. But Rose says with resentment that she had to tinker with this application a lot, and he has no desire to thank her. Hearing this, John scratches his head and remembers that he needs to give something in return. The girl stretches out her hand and slowly touches the soldier. Nothing comes to her mind. She comes close to him and offers to devote himself to her. But John is still a high school student. He should not fall in love prematurely. Feeling embarrassed, the girl returns to her previous place, not finding what to answer to this. Suddenly remembering one detail, the guy decides to ask the commander what date it is today, to which she gives a clear answer. Today he has his final semester exam. He needs to return to the academy on time. Rose reassures him with the news that there are 2 hours left to fly. The instructor lists how many people survived and died on this mission. The rest of those present wait peacefully. Suddenly, the men decide to approach the main character, slowly heading towards him. In this cleanup mission, everyone had to face mortal danger. He expresses gratitude for the work. The state decided to reward everyone with an order. He notes that this is an award that only Federation servicemen can receive. On the back of each such order there is a unique code. The owner can enjoy a large number of benefits and preferences in everyday life. On this building, John showed himself in the most exceptional way. Thanks to his participation in the task, the 10th group had the highest survival rate. In addition, the guy dealt with the fanged dog and other animals. Therefore, he achieved brilliant combat merits. The soldiers standing to the side look at the young man with interest and whisper among themselves. A month ago, John's strength did not even reach the first rank, and now he is already close to the second. The instructor asks if he wanted to become a soldier of the Federation. With his talents, in a few years he will be able to even reach the rank of Major General. But the main character refuses, because he is a high school student and plans to enter university. Remembering this, the man offers to find him when he graduates from university. Although John is only a schoolboy, he already has the strength to fight off third-rank warriors. The guy says goodbye to everyone present, hugging everyone. The commander also stands to the side and asks to hug his older sister. Suddenly, the main character stumbles and falls on the girl's chest, but she continues to hug him with a smile on her face, not having anything against what is happening. With a smile, the girl asks him not to forget to visit them whenever he has free time. No matter how high John climbs, he should never forget about his comrades with whom he went through fire and water. The final semester competition begins. The host will ask 20 students, names will be called, to come up to the arena. The teacher and Mark are already there. He is thinking that if the guy cannot show up at this event, he will be expelled from the academy. The friend is very worried about the main character. A whole month has passed since he left. The teacher calmly asks the young man to wait a little longer. One of the students is pushed out of the arena during the competition. The man gets up tiredly, There is already a medical couch next to him, and workers help him get up. Joseph, number 208. Defeated the enemy. It seems the guy left the enemy no chance at all. Someone heard that he came back from a practice called the Path of Death, where it is almost impossible to survive. The next participant is called John. The host asks to go to the 15th arena. The main character's turn came too quickly. He still hadn't appeared there. The man with the microphone continues to call John by name and give his number. The rival, under the name Charlie, did not expect that his opponent would be afraid to even show up. The host warns that a 10-second countdown will now begin, after which the hero will be automatically disqualified. Approaching the arena, the guy shouts that there is no need to bother with the report. Then, the main character jumps high above the ground, showing himself to everyone present. Some people shout jubilantly, calling the guy's name. The teacher smiles broadly and is sincerely happy that his student finally made it. Roger squints his eyes. It seems his classmate has become even stronger during his absence, and his friend is happy about his appearance. Joseph watches the protagonist with irritation. Apparently, he did not die in the Fortress of Light. The blonde man is already preparing to kill him with his own hands. The presenter spreads his arms to the sides and asks the parties to prepare for battle. Charlie smiles, hoping that his opponent is not thinking about his own victory. Hearing this, the protagonist comments that he is no longer impressed by the 100th level rating in school. The guy is very surprised by what he hears and looks at him in surprise. Before the dialogue could continue, the man shouted that the fight had begun and waved his hand. As Charlie loses his temper at the last second, he suddenly rises into the air and swings the axe. Then John catches the blade between his palms and holds it tightly. The guy pushes the opponent in the stomach, pushing him away and taking the weapon from his hands, planning to deal with the opponent even without them. The enemy falls on his back, hitting the ground hard. He clicks his tongue, wipes his mouth with the back of his hand, and thinks that everything that is happening is a trifle. While running, Charlie activates a bronze skill called 10 Forms of Falling Leaves. Fire spots light up around the hero, surrounding the battlefield with orange flames. The main character smiles enthusiastically. It's finally his turn to show his strength. He uses a tearing fist to counter the attack. Their forces touch, creating a common bright explosion. The man rolls back, the wind blows at him. The blow from the protagonist is really hard. He is irritated by the fact that John is a former outcast and looks down on him. He jumps high and uses a silver skill called Starfalls. The observers notice that he used one of his unique abilities. No one would have thought that in his very first fight, Charlie would be forced to use such an energy-consuming skill. The main character is waiting for an attack. Now he is starting to like more and more the techniques that only need to be dodged once, and the anger scale is completely filled. In addition, you will only need to fight one battle per day, so you don't have to worry about recharging your anger bar at all. The protagonist uses the accumulated power strike and the ripping fist together. The guy anticipates the onslaught of force from his opponent. A hologram of a real fist appears in the air and hits the opponent in the face. After this, Charlie falls on his back, knocked out. The presenter announces that the main character has won a victory over his opponent. The teacher looks at what is happening with alarm, because John did not use a weapon and so quickly destroyed the 150th place in the ranking. The main character is met by his classmates and teacher. Everyone greets him and is happy to see him. Mark would also like to travel with the main character, but if he took with him such a burden as he himself would have kicked the bucket. The boys start to fight playfully. The teacher laughs at what is happening. After defeating the enemy, John immediately lost consciousness, so he did not have time to check his status after leveling up. The hero notices that he has accumulated a lot of notifications. Now he has the skill of disguise, which almost openly says that it provides the ability to be better, and the ability to open the genetic lock has also appeared. The system suggests opening the first stage. There is a possibility of death, a possibility of loss of consciousness, and a possibility of unforeseen circumstances. The hero, without thinking, sends 15 points of characteristics to strength. The main character is called back to the arena for battle. A man named Maximus, who is the head of the training department, watches the battles taking place with boredom. He tries to make out what is happening in the arena, remaining silent. Maximus couldn't even imagine that John would be able to return alive from the mission to clear the fortress. He doesn't even know how to explain himself to the clan. We need to find the strongest opponent for the guy so that he can at least be crippled in the arena. The main character and his company approach a table with information about their opponents. Looking at the screen, he hopes that he will be forced to fight an opponent from the top 10 of the rating. Then he finds his name, which is opposite the fighter in 8th place. The hero asks a question about who his opponent is. It is said that he regularly practices in high-risk areas, where zombies and evolved beasts exist alongside each other. He has rich combat experience, and he is also evil and cunning. In his first fight, Roger will have to face Joseph, who recently returned from practice on the Path of Death. The teacher puts a reassuring arm around his students and asks them to be careful. One of Maximus's secretaries reports that a gentleman named Richard has arrived. Those present immediately rise from their seats and greet the guest of honor. The gray-haired gentleman raises his hand and greets people. He came early so he could see the strength of the academy students. Maximus is asked to bring a table with information about the best students and let Richard look at it. He asks not to bother. Now he wants to enjoy watching the competition. Joseph smirks at the sight of his opponent, But Roger is not about to give up easily. He asks to forget about surrender, because he does not intend to spare anyone from John's group. The enemy's eyes are burning with fire. He offers to see what will happen. The blonde guy swings his weapon, attacking the enemy, but he skillfully dodges. Joseph grabs his hand, squeezing it tightly. The hero arches and screams from the sharp pain in his limb. His weapon falls to the arena floor with a clang. The man presses his foot into the back of his opponent, and his face shows the pleasure of victory and superiority. He is ready to break the bones of his opponent, because he studies in the same group with his main enemy. Suddenly, a stern voice comes from the side with an order to let the guy go. John appears on the battlefield, standing up for his classmate. The blonde man smiles widely. Sparks of desire to defeat the main character quickly light up in his eyes. He simply did not approach his classmates and instead deal damage to John. The opponent certainly would not have the courage to do so. But Joseph can't wait for their official meeting in the arena to break his bones. He starts threatening. He's going to show the guy what pain means. The main character experiences similar feelings and is also going to get even with him for everything. The presenter approaches the guy and shouts, saying that the rules prohibit interfering with the competition. Irritated, John points out to him that the guy should be watching over the safety of the students. He can't find anything to say and stands in a stupor looking at his interlocutor. He did not admit defeat, but Roger needs to undergo a medical examination immediately. The girl, namely the school doctor, asks John to hurry up and help his classmate get down. A moment later, the guy is placed on a medical bed and informed that Joseph is taking the victory for himself. The hero asks the doctor why he hasn't seen her in the past few days. She smiles widely and asks him in a playful tone if the guy misses her. The girl explains that today is the day of competition of hundreds of finalists, so it is quite obvious that the degree of ferocity will increase. She was worried about John, so she came here in person. Then, Roger slowly raises his shaking hand and calls his classmate's name. Crying, he is not ready to accept the fact that he did not repel a single attack against him. The guy asks his savior to be more careful if he gets caught against him. Looking up, the protagonist confidently states that he is ready to sort things out and avenge him. The voice from the speakers informs that John needs to get ready and go to the arena to fight the number 8 ranked guy, a guy named Christopher. Exhaling, he turns to those present. Now it is his turn to join the fight. People shout motivational speeches after the departing hero, hoping to encourage him. As John approaches the arena, he notices his opponent waiting for him. Maximus rubs his chin, watching the events unfold with interest. But for Christopher, this fight does not cause any emotions. He feels confident. The guy turns towards the hero, asking him if he is his rival. At the age of 18, he had already become a second-rank warrior, and as a second-rank warrior, his overall combat ability was almost no different from that of a lone wolf. Christopher has talent, is known as Starlight's Tiger, and it's not for nothing that he ranks high. The host demands that the parties get ready, and then announces that the fight has begun. Hearing this, the guy immediately jumps into the air. Activating the power, Christopher swings his own hammer and slams it into the arena, shattering it into a pile of pieces. The protagonist watches this with fear. This arena is made of a special rock, the hardness of which is comparable to steel. A bead of sweat runs down his face. How could his opponent break it with one blow? Leaving the weapon in the floor material, Christopher calls the enemy agile. He is fully prepared and willing to beat the enemy. The guy bites his lip and promises that the hero does not feel pain from this. Then the host comments on the whole situation. Because Christopher delivers a truly ferocious blow, I wonder if John will be able to answer him. One of the observers is sure that the main character is finished. His friends are confident that John will win, so they send caustic comments in response. The guy is confident that no one will defeat Christopher, and is even ready to eat a piece of the arena if the opposite happens. The nurse smiles slightly. She's ready to watch this live. Meanwhile, the battle continues, the opponents skillfully waving their weapons. Suddenly, Christopher swings again and hits the sledgehammer in front of him. Fortunately, the main character manages to jump away. He moves forward sharply, trying to respond to his attack. The guy also quickly dodges the attacks, sending angry comments his way. At this point, the protagonist realizes that the power of his opponent's hammer is so great that it seems he will have to use an explosion of anger. Continuing his thoughts, he decides that he will leave this ability for the last moment due to the long recharge. The men begin to move towards each other again. Then, John activates a pear-colored flurry and tastes his opponent with multiple spear thrusts. He notices this and stops in stupor and mute surprise. Then, Christopher tries to dodge the attack, using sharp movements to remove his limbs from the enemy's path. But still, one of the spears wounds him in the shoulder, piercing the flesh. By inertia, the guy slips back and squints in discomfort. The men watching from the sidelines are horrified, not expecting that their classmate could be hurt. John's supporters smirk and tell him to get ready to eat a rock. He asks them not to rejoice too soon, because Christopher has not yet taken up the matter seriously. The guy starts laughing loudly, remaining in the shadows from prying eyes. He praises his opponent, talking about his good fighting skills. After this, Christopher smiles widely and is now ready to take matters more seriously. He grabs his hammer with both hands, activating some other skill. Then the guy grips the handle tighter, his palms burning from the energy concentrated in them. Christopher stands, continuing to tense up, filling with strength. The protagonist's eyes widen in shock as he uses the accumulation of the source power. An explosion sweeps across the battlefield, sending dust flying high into the air. Jumping high above the ground, Christopher uses a silver skill, namely Mount Taishan Collapse. It turns out that the waves of source energy emitted by the Warhammer were able to suppress the protagonist. His legs begin to shake from the strain of trying to move and budge. Since the guy can't dodge it, he decides to respond with everything he has. Then, John activates two skills, namely Pear Blossom Flurry and Phoenix Majesty, and the air around him bursts into flames. Maximus and the man nearby are surprised by what they see and assume that this is a combination attack. Mr. Richards' face changes in amazement. He didn't expect the boy to be capable of such a thing. A great explosion from the strongest attack passes through. After this, the main character slides on a stone slab, coughing up blood due to the damage received. But Christopher doesn't care. He laughs and considers the situation to be advantageous for him. A hologram of a tiger appears behind him. The guy hasn't experienced such joy from a battle for a long time as a reward. He promises to give John a painless death. The enemy freezes in shock, realizing what is happening. At this moment, Christopher activates another skill, swinging his weapon. The beast's paw appears above the protagonist's head, about to attack. A classmate is happy that his friend activated his signature move. Now John is doomed to defeat. The nurse screams hysterically, telling the guy that he needs to get away immediately. But the paw is already descending on the stone arena, and a roar is heard around. The guys discuss what happened, because if John had jumped from the arena, he would have lost. But now he would most likely have turned into mincemeat. With shock on his face, the friend watches what is happening, not taking his eyes off the arena. The nurse also opens her mouth in amazement. Christopher screams into the fog, hoping that John is dead this time. But surprisingly, the hero gets to his feet. He was again forced to use an explosion of anger. The shocked enemy cannot understand how this is possible. Rising from his knees, the hero sarcastically asks for forgiveness for the disappointment. He smirks slightly and announces that the warm-up is coming to an end. John crouches again, swinging the spear above his head. Now it's his turn to attack. Christopher feels like he's using the same technique, but it didn't work for him last time. The boy swings his hammer again to repel the attack, but the main character, in turn, passionately continues to move forward, holding his weapon in front of him. Christopher smiles and uses the skill Motorcycle Hurricane, swinging his hammer. The opponent activates the pear-colored flurry ability, which he used to wound his opponent the previous time. The guys clash in attacks, trying to hit the enemy, clutching the handle of the sledgehammer. Christopher wonders what is wrong with his opponent. He clenches his teeth with effort. His opponent has become several times stronger in an instant. The guy continues to use the previous skill. He is not ready to lose now. Standing opposite each other, the guys continue to attack. The two fight almost to the death, but John is caught in the enemy's onslaught. The girl smiles broadly and asks not to doubt the main character. Christopher will definitely lose. Sweating from the tension, the guy doesn't understand what's happening to him. He uses another tiger-related attack in an attempt to finally gain victory. At that very moment, John comments that his opponent's strength is already running out and activates a blow of accumulated power. The guys merge in the decisive blow. The fight will soon be over. Stopping, the protagonist places the blade of his spear against the enemy's throat. He smiles widely and tells him that Christopher has lost. His friend shouts enthusiastically from the stands, genuinely happy about his victory. The nurse looks innocently at the student with whom they argued and throws jokes at him. The guys silently exchange glances. They are sweating from stress. Watching everything, Maximus cannot believe his eyes, because what happened is impossible. The presenter raises the main character's hand up, and the audience jubilantly shouts out his name over and over again. But his opponent is seething with rage and resentment over his loss. He rises with a sharp movement and throws a large object towards the winner. It turns out that this is a mini-bomb. You need to dodge it as quickly as possible. The silhouette quickly runs away and moves towards the judge's table. A loud and powerful explosion reverberates across the field, illuminating everything around. Christopher, meanwhile, is flying through the air, thrown back by the blast wave. He laughs heartily, not believing that his opponent could survive even now. Suddenly, Mr. Richard appears in front of the main character, having built a certain sphere that protected those inside it. This is an advanced technique of using origin energy. Only warriors above the 6th rank are able to release origin energy from the body to the outside, creating a dome that can hold back all kinds of attacks. Richard turns to check if everything is okay with the guy, and he looks at the gentleman with admiration. He pats the hero on the shoulder and asks him to continue in the same spirit, because he believes in him. Addressing Christopher, the elderly warrior says that the desire to win is a commendable quality. But trying to kill a fellow student, without disdaining any methods, is too much. He turns to the running secretary, and it turns out that this is the outstanding student who was recommended to him. The man lowers his head, promising that he will definitely be punished for what he did. Observing what is happening, the main character concludes that this gentleman is of a very high rank. The nurse immediately grabs the guy by the arm, but he resists and asks not to touch him. Due to circumstances, the matches are cancelled, so the teacher advises John to rest and gain strength. Standing next to him, the hero decides to find out who Richard is. He himself doesn't know for sure. Most likely, he is the scientific director of one of the 5 great academies, who came here to study their educational institution. The protagonist watches the man with admiration and wonders how long it will take him to achieve such strength. Entering the dorm, the guy immediately sits down and opens the system. He received 2 spins, so now he plans to open them. He rejoices and demands that she spin the Wheel of Fortune. After this, the hero folds his hands in a prayer pose and asks to give him the super prize. The arrow spins and suddenly slowly stops on the weapon. He gets a silver blade skill card, but the guy doesn't need it. The system reports that an excess number of skill cards has been detected, using any 3 cards of the same rank. The hero can synthesize them into a new combat skill card of the same rank. John's eyes light up. He really likes this new feature. Now the guy has 1 more spin left. He wants to pull out something worthy. He spins his arms wildly, hoping that this time he'll hit the jackpot. When the spin ends, the system congratulates you on receiving the skill card category prize. The main character opens the box he just received. Then, he takes out 3 skill cards, namely Copy Technique, Blade Technique, and Sword Technique. John studies the abilities presented and comes to the conclusion that the pear-colored flurry is still the best among all in terms of speed. He decides to try out the synthesis function with 3 silver cards in his hand. The guy turns to the system, which in response suggests designating the category of ability. The synthesis begins. The screen lights up with bright rays. Once completed, the system will congratulate you on receiving a silver spear skill card called a verdict. The protagonist watches her with a smile and thinks that it sounds cool and daring. He laughs and applies the resulting object to his forehead, not going to waste any time. This is a skill that allows you to turn the enemy's combat skill that was used to attack against him. The strength of the ability directly depends on the power of the reflected attack. Using the skill requires the warrior to spend significant amounts of source energy, and also imposes a strict time frame for repelling an enemy attack. If there is a significant difference with the enemy's rank, repelling is impossible. The hero smiles because others use it differently, and now he has a spear for it. The battle continues, and a girl with a hoop named Lily enters the arena. She is at the 520th level of the rating, watching the enemy with interest. The hero is embarrassed and nervously scratches the back of his head, not understanding how he will fight the girl. She raises her weapon up with a sharp movement, her eyes shining with anticipation. Lily throws a hoop over the protagonist's body, trapping him in her web. She smiles slyly, glad that now the guy won't be able to leave her. The girl leans over and kisses John gently on the cheek, closing her eyes. He doesn't understand what happened and stands in shock in the same place. At this point, Lily raises her hand up and shouts to the judge that she is going to give up, because she does not intend to fight her idol. The main character still doesn't realize what's happening. He stands silently and watches. People watching him also feel embarrassed and confused. The presenter looks at the departing lady in confusion now John has definitely won. Mark rubs his chin resentfully, wondering why he is so unlucky. The nurse immediately loses her temper. How dare this little flirt seduce John in her presence? A friend makes fun of the main character, but he is unhappy with what happened and is angry at him for this humor. Suddenly, someone grabs his outer clothing and pulls him to the side. This is Louise, hugging the guy, kissing the main character on the lips. In shock, John covers his mouth with his hands in fear and becomes indignant. The girl smiles. What else could she do when the guy was kissed on the cheek right in front of her? So she decided to take his first kiss without further ado. The main character feels disappointed, because this is not how he imagined this moment. The nurse soothingly strokes the guy's back. At the moment, there are 25 participants left in the competition. 12 people will go through the next round, and the draw begins. Maximus clasps his hands and thinks that he has once again prepared a worthy treat for the main character. The guy looks at the screen in horror. He was forced to participate in a 3-man battle. In the Academy rankings, a guy named Leo is ranked 10th, and Noise is ranked 12th. The two are on pretty good terms. There's a good chance that a 3-on-1 battle will turn into a 2-on-1 battle. Feeling irritated, the main character rubs the bridge of his nose, because everything about the current situation is not very pleasant. However, if they are not that strong, John will be able to gain the upper hand over them. Now he has a new ace up his sleeve. 3 competitors gather in the 7th arena. The referee asks the guys to get ready. Suddenly, he announces the beginning of the test, and everyone present immediately takes up a combat position. One of them uses a silver skill called 9 Claws Judgment. The other guy activates a full arc concussion as he moves forward. The brunette jumps, attacking the main character first. His accomplice approaches John from the side, trying to hit him, but the guy is no pushover and repels both attacks simultaneously. Sensing an attack, the protagonist squats and bends down, avoiding damage. He activates Phoenix's Majesty and dashes towards one of them. The guy smiles and clicks his tongue, not considering the hero an opponent for himself. He spreads his arms out to the sides and uses a lightning whirlwind, spots playing around him. Confused, the protagonist does not understand how he was able to destroy the greatness of the Phoenix. The opponent explains that his ability creates a high-speed spin that can reflect many attacks from other combat skills. The guys have studied its capabilities, so the greatness of the Phoenix can hold its skill. And since the pear-colored flurry can be directed at one of them, his defeat is a foregone conclusion. The heroes activate their abilities one after another, trying to attack John. The brunette spins his spear at a gigantic speed. It lights up green, filling with energy. People in the stands are discussing what's happening. These are the guy's strongest attacks. Louise is furious, because they have no conscience at all. Not only did they turn against one, but from the very beginning they let their strongest abilities enter. The hero smiles without feeling fear. It turns out that his opponent can repel the attack with combat skills. He explains that he also has this ability. So, at that very second, John swings his spear and activates the acquired skill. At the moment when an attack is directed at him, the hero is already in the dome. The attacker's eyes widen in surprise. And he looks at this in shock. Suddenly, the attack he had just been creating comes flying at him. The guy flies out of the arena, and another calls out to him in horror. There is only one opponent left. John announces that his time has come. Then, the protagonist activates the blow of accumulated power and a pear-colored flurry, with fast and strong movements, delivering multiple blows. The man moves to the edge of the arena, trying to escape the attack on him. After some time, the main character is left alone on the site. He stands confidently on his feet and grins at what is happening. His opponents are knocked out and unconscious, and now he is out of danger. The judge checks the hero's pulse and condition with a serious look. Eventually, he raises John's hand and congratulates him on his victory. The observer looks at what happened with delight. They are rooting for their friend. Maximus is indignant at the guy's victory, because this was not part of his plans. Joseph, standing behind him, asks for one thing that he be paired with him in one of the rounds. The man turns towards him in fear and agrees to this adventure. The guy already feels that he will take revenge on the hero for all the suffering he had to endure because of him. He is sure that he will pay him double. There are only 12 people left. The next stage will eliminate another 6. The first pair is announced, namely Joseph and John. The spectators stand up from their seats and discuss this. It is unknown who will win this time, because the strength of both has greatly increased. Only a month has passed, and during this time Joseph managed to rise to the 2nd rank. It seems that doping did not have a serious impact on his improvement. Nobody knows. He practiced for a whole month in such a place teeming with dangers. Mark shouts from the stands and asks his friend to crush the enemy this time. Turning around, the protagonist shows a gesture of agreement, smiling confidently. Suddenly, his younger brother appears next to him, who is completely confident in his relative's victory. The friend, in turn, supports his classmate and does not agree with his statement. The blonde loses his temper, clenching his teeth and fist aggressively. No one could understand the suffering his brother endured on the path to death in order to defeat John. Joseph never thought that a month later they would meet again in the same place. He was ready to kill his opponent. The main character activates the Eye of Analysis. The combat capability is several times greater than that of the first opponent. Although he is tense, he calmly explains that from the moment his father sent assassins after him, he will not know peace until he settles accounts with their clan. Not wanting to wait another second, both students rush forward, ready to fight. They cross their weapons, looking at each other with smiles and aggression. After a couple of seconds, both move to a safe distance. The guy clenches his teeth and tenses up. The power of his opponent's sword is very high. Joseph explains that the instrument cost 100 million to purchase and was created from a special metal obtained from a blood-red star. For this victory, the guy paid a high price. His blood will become a sacrifice to the bloody demon. But the main character jumps back from the chopping blow at the right moment. He holds the spear in front of him and shouts loudly. Then the guy uses a pear-colored flurry, and his opponent runs from side to side, dodging the attack. Notices that Joseph had mastered the technique of movements. The teacher is shocked. In order to master combat motor skills, a warrior needs to reach the 3rd rank. How did the blonde manage to do this? The brother is completely confident in his relative's victory. He watches what is happening with a smile. Then, Joseph uses a silver skill called Slashing Arc. He quickly raises his sword up. The hero follows the trajectory of the weapon. But that's not all. The blonde swings his fist and is about to deliver another blow. This is a splitting fist technique. The hero flies off in an unknown direction under such pressure. John lands on his feet, jumping away from the attack. He coughs, spitting out blood. Joseph's splitting fist became much more brutal than before, as the enemy began to use movement techniques. His overall skill had reached the standards of a 3rd-rank warrior. Then, John grits his teeth, the explosion of anger still recharging. It seems a serious fight is brewing. The blonde man continues to move forward, considering his opponent's attacks weak. The hero clicks his tongue and makes a serious face, without commenting on it in any way. Then, he decides to use the Phoenix's majesty by taking a fighting stance. Watching this, the enemy watches this with pleasure. He is no longer afraid of this skill. He decides to attack back, activating the ability, explaining that in addition to weapons, he also bought a bunch of battle cards. Their abilities intertwine in dance, testing each other's strength. Suddenly, Joseph is surrounded by fiery spots, swirling around, trying to get him. The guy suddenly spreads his arms to the sides, driving away the attack. The teacher and Louise watch the events unfold in horror. The blonde has dispelled the skill. Remaining in place, John notices that for the 2nd time that day, he encounters a combat skill that can dispel his attack. The hero decides to make sure that what is happening is true, so he is going to use his ability again to attack. Then, he activates Pear Blossom Flurry and Phoenix Majesty together, combining these attacks. With a smile, Joseph agrees to check it out. They activate their abilities again, directing them at each other to strike. The hero screams hysterically, straining with all his might. His opponent looks a little more confident, but also tries very hard when activating the skill. Their forces meet again in a dense stream. An explosion goes off, raising dust from the ground. Stopping, John realizes that his opponent is indeed capable of dispelling abilities. Smiling, Joseph chuckles, pleased with himself and his skills. Suddenly, he rises into the air, preparing to attack again. The blonde guy cuts through the air with his sword and uses life drain. But in order to defend himself, the main character moves his spear in a circle and repels the attack. A shield appears in front of him, protecting John from attack. Suddenly, his spear breaks into several pieces, stripping in different directions. His defense was broken by the enemy. The hero falls to the ground. Those watching him suddenly rise from their chairs and widen their eyes in worry. The verdict didn't work. John remembers the words of the system. It said that with a significant superiority of the enemy in strength, this is the only case when he is unable to repel the attack. Apparently, Joseph really reached the 3rd rank. The guy quickly catches up with his opponent, stretching his hand with the sword in front of him. The weapon hits the protagonist in the shoulder, piercing the flesh. To protect himself, John activates the accumulated power strike and the ripping fist. He throws the enemy aside, hitting the student's abdomen. Once at a safe distance, the boys raise their heads towards each other. Joseph rubs his face and tells the hero that if he had died from his sword, he would not have had to suffer. He loses his temper and punches John in the jaw. The blonde delivers multiple attacks, intending to break all of his opponent's bones. Mark and the others believe that the protagonist must admit defeat. Otherwise, he will not survive. But John is not ready to give up. His conscience simply won't allow it. Receiving another attack to the face, his eyes darken. The observers are worried and call out to the main character. The referee immediately stops the fight when the fight reaches a dangerous point. The man shouts to Joseph to see if he can see that the boy has already lost consciousness. The blonde raises his hand. He doesn't like the idea of killing in front of so many people. Even though his opponent survived, he is little different from a cripple. The main character coughs up blood, catching himself thinking that death is surely awaiting him. The system again prompts you to activate the hygiene lock, informing you of the risks. John immediately agrees, because he must destroy Joseph's clan at any cost. The initialization of the opening of the genetic lock occurs. All characteristics of the carrier's organism will soon increase. The system also congratulates the owner. The attributes of strength, endurance, and speed are greatly increased. Standing in the arena, the judge prepares to award the victory to Joseph as he begins his speech. Suddenly, a trembling hand rises from behind them. They shout from the stands that the main character is still conscious and ask the presenter to pay attention. When he looks back, John is already on one knee, slowly rising. He smiles, feeling as if every cell in his body is filled with explosive power. Richard thinks about the hero. Just a few months ago, he was a failure on all counts, and now his physical fitness almost reaches the level of 3rd-rank warriors. Those present are surprised by this. This simply cannot be. Joseph considers his opponent annoying. The guy rushes into battle again, using a tearing fist along the way. Then, responding to the attack, the blonde shouts that his skill is no match for the guy. They meet again in battle, touching hands. The clothes on Joseph's limbs begin to tear, and he does not understand where such power came from. His flesh is torn from the inside, ripping through his skin. But inside the blonde, there are only metal wires. The hero looks at him in surprise. Did Joseph really make himself a semi-mechanical arm? Thanks to John's efforts, he became a half-human, half-mechanized monster. In order to increase his level of hardening, Joseph went to practice on the path of death. But those monsters damaged all his limbs, and in order to survive, the blonde had to transform like this. Even though the guy now has the rank of a 3rd-rank warrior, this is the limit beyond which he cannot rise. He keeps catching up with the hero. All this happened because of him. So Joseph wants revenge. The guy cuts the air with his sword, but John manages to duck. He responds to an attack by kicking the enemy in the chest if he deserves it. The man flies high into the air above the arena. Finding himself in front of his opponent's face in a moment, he is surprised by the speed of movement. Then John again begins to deliver numerous blows with his fists with quick and accurate movements. The fans of the main character shout even louder, trying to cheer him up. The blonde's brother asks the guy to stop and stop beating his relative. But he no longer hears, delivering a crushing blow to Joseph's jaw. He hits him over and over again, and then throws him backwards onto the surface of the arena. The situation repeats itself again. The judge asks the hero to stop, since the opponent has lost consciousness. Then John rises to his feet, moving away from his opponent. In the end, the host awards victory to the main character by taking him by the hand. Mark screams loudly, rejoicing at his friend's victory. The others are proud of the guy. Joseph's brother looks down, and doesn't believe that the hero's strength can be so great. Maximus understands his situation because John defeated the guy, but Richard is completely delighted with what he saw. The man will remain lying on the ground in the same position. It turns out that he has a syringe with an unknown filling in his hand. Rising to his feet, Joseph raises his hand, intending to stab the protagonist. He suddenly grabs him by the hand and asks him to stop, because the duel is over. The blonde holds a virus in his hands, a drop of which will turn any person into a zombie. The judge yells at Joseph that he is committing a crime and orders him to stop. The guy screams hysterically, smiling creepily, and wants his opponent to turn into a mutant. Then, John grins, baring his teeth. The enemy asked for it. He grabs the blonde's hand and brings it to his body, forcibly moving the limb. The needle pierces the neck, entering the flesh and releasing a poisonous liquid inside. Transforming, Joseph asks to stop, but it is too late. The guy watches the enemy from above, since he has mutated. He grabs the remains of the broken weapon, swinging it, preparing to finish off his opponent. The remains of Joseph's body fly off to the side. The guy can no longer be saved. His brother screams hysterically and asks him to stop. A voice appears out of nowhere, ordering him to bring his son's life back. The guy suddenly turns his gaze in that direction, visibly tense. The clan leader activates the ability, attacking John and wishes for his death. But the main character manages to jump to the side, avoiding this. The attacker's eyes glow with aggression and anger. He wants to avenge his son's life. Richard bursts into tears, losing his temper at his father's insolence. He stands in front of John, defends him, and responds to the man's attack. The man pushes the liar aside, who remains in place, confused. After a few seconds, he realizes that there is a 6th-rank warrior in front of him. He begins to justify himself, explaining that John killed his son, so Oliver wants to take him to the police station. Richard, however, continues to defend the hero, saying that he was killed by a mutated zombie for safety reasons. And this is allowed. The father looks at the gentleman with irritation and disappointment. Raising his hand, the warrior orders that Joseph's body be taken away immediately, and the secretary immediately begins to carry out the order. In order to prevent the spread of the virus, the corpse of a person who has turned into a zombie is not allowed to be disposed of as one pleases. Oliver narrows his eyes and slyly watches the men's movements. The guy runs up to Joseph's father. After all, the incident happened on the academy's territory. He asks to leave the arena and wait a little while the police finish checking. He will be able to take the body. John approaches Richard and bows respectfully, thanking him for everything. The man believes that every action was not accidental, and if the main character has problems, then the offender will have to go through him. The father continues to silently watch his interlocutors, looking at him angrily. Maximus and his colleagues slowly exchange glances, understanding the tension of the situation without words. In the military unit's dormitory, they are discussing the recent battle in full swing. Bobby is not happy for his friend, because the clan will probably not let this go so easily. Slamming the door against the wall, Rose enters the room, announcing that they are heading to the academy tomorrow to investigate a mutated zombie that has appeared. The soldiers immediately rise to their feet, accepting the order. Clayton is happy to have the opportunity to help the protagonist, and Bobby also smiles at the news. Of course, the commander also does not miss the opportunity, and the corners of his lips stretch upward, thinking about the guy. Suddenly, there is a loud knock at the front door. Just after opening his eyes, the guy gets out of bed and indignantly opens the door. Maximus stands next to the unknown man, explaining to him that people have come to see John. The brunette opens the document and shows it to the hero as evidence, informing him that the guy is suspected of committing murder. The hero smiles and turns to Maximus, asking if it was his idea to send him to the Tower of Light. Hearing this, the man loses his temper and yells at John because he is talking to him in an inappropriate tone. Then the guy comes closer, insulting Maximus, and adding that such a person cannot have the title of teacher. The policeman immediately raises his hand and orders the argument to end by handcuffing the hero. But the hero has the Order of the First Star, so now only the Federation army can detain him. The man immediately loses his temper, surprised by what he heard. Turning around, Maximus looks at those present with irritation. He raises his hand and accuses the hero of lying, because he is still a good high school student. Remaining in his place, John squints and advises him to consider the consequences. A military SUV pulls up to the entrance, dust rising from its wheels. The sound of boots can be heard, people's feet moving one after another. Rose appears at the door, shouting threateningly that the men have apparently lost their fear. She reports that they dared to attack a Federation soldier who had been awarded an order. Then, Maximus falls into a stupor and looks at the girl in shock, not understanding what is happening. The soldiers immediately take out their weapons, pointing them at them. Those present raise their hands and try to justify themselves by saying that they didn't know. John, smiling, goes to his room. The commander crosses his arms over his chest, about to contact their superiors to find out about the abuse of power. Approaching the main character, Rose smiles widely and puts her hands on his shoulders. Friends approach John from behind. They arrived realizing that the clan would decide to blacken him. A teacher comes out from around the corner who also supports him. The guy is not guilty of anything, but under pressure from the clan, the academy issues decrees like yesterday's incident. And then John loses his temper, loudly asking what the order is. The academy believes that he intentionally injected Joseph, knowing full well that the syringe contained the virus that would eventually cause his mutation. Although it was not intentional murder, it was classified as malicious infliction of bodily harm that indirectly resulted in death. As a result, the hero was decided to be expelled from the academy. Upon hearing this, he looks at the papers in fear and screams, not wanting to understand. Unfortunately, the teacher will not be able to help him, but will study whether a transfer to another educational institution is possible. The guy raises his hand, thanks for the effort, but for an expelled student, transferring to another institution is a virtually impossible task. Rose smiles and says that John has been sent an official invitation to join the army. The most beneficial solution in this situation would be to join the army and fight alongside your brothers. And then the hero raises his gaze to a suitable figure. Richard heads towards them, saying that there is another choice. The gentleman is called by name, but the man remains in the same place. He hands the guy a card. Now he will be able to enroll in their educational institution. Friends from the army whisper among themselves. Rose is clearly unhappy that her proposal has been put on the back burner. Suddenly, the girl turns to the soldiers and asks them not to tell anyone about their dialogue. The guys are distracted from their conversation by something on the side. They look in that direction with fear. The hero reads the letter with delight. It is a very influential university. Everyone present is surprised by what they hear, because the place is very prestigious. This university is known as a sacred area. Richard is a teacher responsible for accepting students for a special set. Every year during this period of time, he visits places in search of talented students, which provides an opportunity to enter the number of students. The man watched him for a long time. John looks down, afraid that he won't be accepted because of his expulsion. Therefore, this university has a mechanism for accepting students under special circumstances. John will not need to take the final exam. And given his talent, there is no need to study in the third year of high school either. He just needs to come to register on September 1st. The guy lights up with happiness and delight and is definitely getting ready to come. It is unknown where one can find and what can be lost. No one could even imagine that after being expelled, the hero would have such luck. He smiles, introduces his friend, hoping that they will be able to see each other soon. And suddenly, John decides to check if Richard could tell the exact location. He had previously tried to search the network, but there was no information. The man replies that when he reaches the end of the path of death, the boy will be met and taken to the university. People who heard this dialogue were shocked by what they heard. A little worried, John lowers his eyes, crumpling the piece of paper in his hands. The path of death is not a road, but a special area, a place massively populated by zombies and evolved high-ranking beasts. As the name suggests, this is one of the most dangerous areas on the planet, rumored to be home to the strongest beast that has reached rank 10. Also in that place are various secret laboratories, a relic of the war. Richard looks at the future student with trepidation and asks him if he is scared. The protagonist immediately throws aside all fear, answering that he is just excited. He has nothing to fear on the path of death. The more animals and zombies, the more experience points. The man asks his interlocutor what he plans to do next. The guy will first go to the city and get a warrior's license, then go to register. Turning around, the new teacher walks away in an unknown direction and wishes good luck. The hero is immediately surrounded by his friends and acquaintances, congratulating him on this invitation. The soldiers decide to celebrate this achievement by getting drunk. Bobby turns to the teacher and also invites him to join. He wants to invite his friends. The main character doesn't mind, because the more people, the merrier. Clouds are gathering over the city. The sky is darkening. Only the stars light up the streets. The nurse wishes John to fly to the skies. She drinks to the guy. Acquaintances cheerfully clink glasses against each other, creating a kind of ringing sound. Louise says that as soon as the guy gets a job at university, she will come to him sooner. Mary would also like to follow in his footsteps, and will do everything in her power to skip a grade and enter university as soon as possible. The hero is truly a true role model. Mark jokes about the presence of girls around him. And there is also Rose, who is thinking about how to get along with the main character. The girl doesn't appreciate this joke, and hits the guy on the head with her fist, threatening him. One of the girls puts her hand on the table and asks him when John is going to go into town. Rose and Louise surround the hero. She offers to give the guy a lift. He replies that he is going to go to the city himself, since he needs to cover the distance and gain experience. Having reached the outskirts of the city of Starlight, the main character follows through the forest. His previous weapon has been shattered into pieces. It can no longer be restored, just in case. He had to buy an ordinary long spear for now. Once John gets his warrior license, he can finally register on the Alliance website and buy a decent weapon. It turns out that he is not alone in this forest. Judging by the aura, these are people. Could someone really have decided to give him experience so quickly? A rustling sound passes behind the main character, and with a sharp movement, it flies past his head. At the last moment, he manages to duck, protecting himself from injury. John's hand lights up with blue flame every second, activating the skill. He strikes in front of him. It's a tearing fist. One of the attackers flies in an unknown direction. Two stand at a distance. They decide to attack, to avenge the young gentleman whom the boy hit. The attacker believes that the hero will not be able to escape from him. But he activates this ability again and hits the hero with the same type of attack. The guy falls to the ground, groaning in pain. His accomplice turns his head towards him in fear. He had a rather weak aura, but his strength was very terrifying. The hero gets to his feet. Apparently the attackers really have nothing better to do. It turns out that these are people from Joseph's clan, who still can't understand that he cannot be defeated. People run en masse towards the target, shouting. The hero uses the Phoenix's majesty. His spear and hands catch fire. Enemies are immediately sent flying under the pressure of the energy that was directed at them. It seems that the small attackers are finished, and now it is time for the big fish to show themselves. The man stands to the side, clutching a gun in his hand. Is it true that so many people were unable to deal with a high school student? This is Joseph's father. He is aggressively disposed and is preparing to attack. The men meet on the battlefield, stand opposite each other at a safe distance, and wait for the attack. The enemy brings the blade to his face. Today he is ready to pay for the death of his son. The main character looks at him with a smile, and promises to help him go to his relatives so that he won't be so lonely. With a slashing blow, the man swings his sword towards John. To defend himself from the attack, the boy places the handle of his spear in front of the enemy's weapon. He uses a pear-colored flurry to strike the enemy with sharp movements, but the man manages to dodge each of the stabbing attacks. Behind him, dents appear in the wood from the force used to strike. It turns out that John is actually quite strong. He made 5 instant strikes, and each of them contains the power of the second-rank peak. He squints his eyes and watches what is happening with interest for a man. These are childish tricks. While continuing to use his weapon, he activates a silver skill called Moonheart Execution. The protagonist notices the impressive power of the sword. There are still 3 minutes left before the recharge of the explosion of anger. He needs to hold out until that time. The father loses his temper when he sees that his opponent has dodged the attack. Then he activates the ability 3 times, running towards him. John recharges the Phoenix's majesty. Everything around him burns with fire. The forces touch in the middle and act on each other. After this, multiple explosions occur due to the excess energy. There is a fire burning around. The man remains in the center of smoke and the elements. Then he takes it all in and twists it around his hand and weapon. Seeing what is happening, John watches in surprise. The attacker thanks the fire. Now nature will be able to make his attack much more powerful. The enemy decides to activate the golden skill. His eyes turn white. Bright spots swirl around his hand. At this moment, the lights are burning all around. He directs the attack towards the enemy. The main character is in a hopeless situation because he will not be able to dodge at this moment. Then John grits his teeth and decides he needs to hold on. To avoid dying, he activates a skill that can reflect an attack towards the enemy. A wall in the form of a shield appears in front of him, which protects the hero from this. It seems like the guy is starting to get the hang of it. He looks up with effort. The man does not understand how this could happen and does not believe his own eyes. When bent, the weapon begins to crack in the middle, at the bend. Therefore, the hero receives the damage that the golden skill inflicts and then flies in an unknown direction. He hits the rock hard, splitting it with his body. Now John has lost even his weapon. I wonder if he will be able to continue fighting. Les can pierce the hero's shoulder, painfully cutting through the flesh. The attacker looks at him with anger and indignation, wishing only for death. But the main character holds the blade of the sword with his hand to prevent injury. It seems like his ability is already charged. Now it's time to get started. He immediately activates an explosion of anger, becoming many times stronger than he was before. The enemy's eyes widen in shock at what he saw. Finally, it's John's turn. He uses the ripping fist to attack. The guy hits his opponent in the chest with all his might, and his weapon flies away. He failed to notice John taking the drugs, and did not feel any flows of energy from the origins of using special combat skills. Suddenly, the man realizes something. The guy continues his attack. Lightning plays around. The opponent sits down on his knees, grimacing in pain and disappointment. The hero slowly approaches him and decides to pick up the man's weapon. He doesn't believe that he can die because he is the head of a clan that will never let his murder go unpunished. But these people always treated him with disdain. John tells the attacker that he is entering university. Then, the interlocutor falls into even greater shock because he wanted to be excluded. A third-rate family can't even dream of reaching the heights that the hero will reach in the future. With a sharp movement, John delivers the final blow, and the third-rank warrior is finally destroyed. Having experienced a sharp decrease in strength, the guy exhales because he managed to do everything as needed. But be that as it may, the path that awaits him ahead will be even more dangerous. Finding himself in a forest area, near destroyed buildings, the hero decided to make a short stop. He needs to increase his efforts, because when his combat ability reaches 2,000, he will become a third-rank warrior. When that moment comes, he will be able to improve his movement techniques, and his combat potential will be an order of magnitude higher. And it turns out that he has accumulated 4 rotations. Opening the window, John doesn't understand why he sees only question marks in front of him. The system congratulates you on the opportunity to participate in the lottery. It turns out that there is a chance of receiving multiple winnings. The guy is waiting for the fastest stop on the field, interested to see what will happen. When the arrow stops, John watches the wheel with interest, intrigued by the final win. It turns out that he receives a large amount of abnormal crystal. Multicolored stones lie near John. He examines them. Now they are of no use, but later he will be able to sell them for a tidy sum. Having put the loot in his backpack, the hero decides to continue spinning, seeing what happens next. The system congratulates you on receiving the legendary weapon called the Blood Moon. Holding in his hand the gloves, which are made of soft metal, John is sincerely happy to receive it, because it is not like everything else. Now, hand-to-hand combat technique is the only thing he can use besides spear technique. This weapon is just perfect for the destructive fist. His spear was broken, and the hero is not yet accustomed to old Oliver's sword. Now these gloves are like rain during a drought for him. Distracted, John returns to the wheel and points his finger, asking to continue while he has such luck. When he stops, he wins a massive amount of combat skill cards. The main character has a large number of abilities in his hands, but none of them are related to the spear technique. so the ones he has are of little use. After some thought, he decides to send 3 cards into synthesis, wanting to get the most beneficial ability. Now, John has a sky-bearing skill for his weapon. I got a silver one from the bronze cards. It seems that I can get a gold one from the rest. If necessary, I can sell it. While examining the card he won, he notices that the ability is similar to the accumulated power strike, so it doesn't bring any benefit. The main character continues to synthesize cards, improves them, looking for the best option. The system congratulates him all the time. Even if something went wrong, he is clearly unhappy with the chosen words. Now John has 6 silver cards in his hands and only has 2 attempts to synthesize them. He folds his hands in a prayer pose, hoping that everything will go well. The system congratulates its owner again, who happily raises his gaze. The system once again says that the synthesis of silver category combat skill cards has failed. Hearing this, the main character loses his temper and starts shouting at the screen, demanding that everything he invested be returned. He begins to bow and ask the system to successfully complete the synthesis next time. After a couple of seconds, John already presses the button and begins to combine abilities. The process happens, and the system gives the guy a gold spear skill card, which he is incredibly happy about. The fall of the Milky Way is in the speed, as well as the rapid flow of a colossal amount of energy. Despite the fact that the warriors of the second rank are not able to improve the golden combat skills, John is happy, because sooner or later, he will still reach the 3rd level. He has one last spin left, so the hero decides to take a chance and hopes that the system will be able to convince him. At that very second, a box with a gift for rapid growth of the 2nd degree appears in front of him. It contains weights, each of which weighs more than 40 kilograms. The hero reluctantly puts on the equipment and agrees to endure for the sake of 50 stat points. When the rapid growth system starts, the hero feels the full weight of the weights, but he still has a long way to go. Someone is running. The grass rustles under their feet. They are chasing after him. An unknown guy runs away from a 2nd-rank clawed black bear. He tries to cover his tracks by following a zigzag line. Suddenly, John appears in front of him, attacking the beast using a melee skill. After this, the main character continues to follow towards his goal. The legendary weapon he obtained greatly increased the power of the ripping fist, which was why he was able to defeat the 2nd-rank beast so easily. A guy runs up to John from the side, thanking him for his help. His name is Luke. Heading towards the beast, the hero also shares his name. The new acquaintance does not understand how he killed the mutant while having the aura of a warrior candidate. It turns out that the guys are heading to the city to get a warrior license. During the dialogue, John activates the Eye of Analysis and notices that Luke is a 1st-rank warrior. A group of people running towards him are worried about their friend. Luca rolls his eyes, explaining that he only ran away from the bear because he was tired from fighting. Then the guy introduces John, because thanks to him he stayed alive. Since people are heading to the city for the same purpose as the hero, Luca suggests that they follow together, so that they can help each other in case of danger. Embarrassed, the hero lowers his eyes and agrees to this proposal. Rubbing his face, Luca explains that there are 5 of them in the company, but there is another person they met along the way, although his manners are not very good. He points to a silhouette on the tree, and adds that he was talking about this young princess. At this moment, a girl is having lunch. Her name is Camilla. After a few moments, she deftly descends to the ground, stepping on the ground with her shoes. Introducing herself once again, the girl cuts off her palms and asks her interlocutor his name. As Camilla approaches, the hero noticeably tenses up, but tells her the forbidden information. She believes that he has good strength and meets the criteria for the girl to accept John as a student. Smiling broadly, Camilla asks if the hero would like to join the ranks of her students. Luca whispers to the hero that their acquaintance began with the same topic. John in turn clarifies how old the girl is. Turning around, he begins to leave, because he is not ready to become her student. He thinks about Camilla's eccentricity. The sun is high above the horizon. The bones of unknown people remain lying on the ground unused. Frightened, Luca looks at them, not understanding why there are so many remains. Taking one of the bones, John examines them and concludes that they are the work of 2nd-rank man-eating birds. These are predatory evolved birds that live in flocks and attack people. One of the team doubts what was said, not believing in the hero's knowledge, because it could probably be a large mutant. Then the girl looks at him and proves what he said by the fact that there are traces of birds' beaks on the bones. The guy gets angry when he hears insults directed at him. Camilla breathes out peacefully. As she approaches John, she smiles widely at him, once again telling him that he is the perfect student. A bird circles high in the sky above them, and people immediately raise their heads and pay attention to the enemy that has appeared. With quick wing beats, she catches up with the warriors and lets out a frightening cry. Reacting instantly, the guy sends the dagger towards her. The weapon hits its target, cutting off the creature's head. Clicking his tongue, he clearly expected more from a 2nd-rank beast. Continuing to look up, the protagonist is sure that this is only the beginning. There are more and more mutants in sight. The birds scream and move quickly towards the target. Then, John already activates the skill in his fist and prepares to attack as soon as the monster gets closer. He uses a ripping fist, directing it towards the target. The hero punches the air, engulfing most of the creatures in a blast wave. Standing behind him, Camilla excitedly shouts that John now fits her criteria even more. Turning around, he asks to stop talking about it and offers to demonstrate his own strength. She asks if the girl kills all the birds, will he agree to become her student? Pushing off the ground, she abruptly heads towards the birds. John tries to stop her, but it seems to be too late. Becoming more serious, Camilla charges forward, activating her skill. Watching her, the main character immediately feels a murderous aura, wondering who the girl is. She cuts off the heads of the creatures with sharp movements, quickly rushing past them. Feathers and body parts are flying everywhere, and the squeals of animals can be heard all around. Falling to the ground, Camilla puts her swords behind her back, raising dust from the ground from the fall. Turning in his direction, the girl smiles broadly and asks John if he is ready to become her student in that case. Luca is surprised, because she destroyed the entire flock in an instant. The hero thinks about the girl's strength. Two guys are asking where they can buy such ordinary blades as hers. Turning around, Camilla explains that they cannot be found because her mother forged the weapons for her. John doesn't understand how the two can't realize that her tools aren't actually supernatural. The reason Camilla cut those birds down with such ease is because of her strength. One of those present does not understand where the abnormal crystal went in these birds. Having shown the guy the bag, the girl asks if this is what they are talking about. At this moment, the hero thinks even more deeply, because his companion, while killing birds, managed to collect jewelry, and in such a way that none of them noticed it. Turning to John, the girl calls him a student and offers to take the crystal for herself. She wouldn't mind giving it to her boyfriend as a gift, as it would be in honor of her official introduction to her student. There's clearly something wrong with this girl's head. We're talking about several dozen anomalous second-rank crystals that can be sold for a considerable amount. And she parted with them so easily. And she decides to absorb them herself. Camilla has no desire to give them to others anyway. Taking the gems in her hands, the girl tenses up and activates the skill. Everything around lights up in a purple color, after which she throws the bag aside and moves on. Turning in her direction, John continues to think. There were several dozen of them. Camilla chose them in almost an instant. In addition to enormous power, she has already achieved such a frightening progress in the technique of improvement, based on the absorption of normal crystal. The boys look at the jewelry with disappointment. For these minerals, they were ready to become students without hesitation. The defeated enemy is, after some time, roasted on the grill. Sitting next to the girl, the main character begins a dialogue, asking if she has never tried barbecue made from the meat of evolved animals. Turning to the boys, the guys wish them a bon appetit and ask them not to rush, because there is now enough meat for everyone. While John is in dialogue with Camilla, he activates the analysis and notices that the girl has the 4th rank. System analysis couldn't determine her strength, meaning she's almost on the same level as one of the previous enemies. Suddenly, the girl makes a frightened face and turns noticeably pale. It seems that she is becoming ill. She falls to her knees as if all the strength had been sucked out of her body in an instant. Turning to her, John watches with fear, assuming that the girl might have overeaten. His eyes wide open, he senses something and is surprised. Falling to his knees, he feels it too. His body stops obeying him completely. Then the main character turns to the guys and asks them whether this feeling is the work of those present. Sweating from the strain, Camilla asks her fellow travelers if they poisoned the meat. Approaching the people, the guys explain that they are not murderers, but just want to save up some money. Luca secretly added Arlen to their shashlik, which is a kind of liquid without color or smell. Just a couple of drops can completely drain the strength of a first-rank warrior for a short time. This drug only works against entry-level fighters, so its power is not great. However, it can only be purchased on the black market. Smiling, the guy boldly raises his eyes towards his opponents apparently. The large expenses clearly do not frighten them. Considering their strength, the guys don't run into those who are higher in level than them, so they can only attack warriors. Every year, many people pass along this road who go to the city to get a license. As for the expenses, it is the easiest thing to cover them. It is enough to just meet a couple of people like them. The guy squats down, bringing the blades to John's face. His combat gloves are clearly not simple things. They are probably legendary weapons. He asks to give them to him. And he's also very interested in the backpack. There are probably a lot of valuables stored there. Turning his head towards Camilla, he continues the dialogue, now addressing her. His gaze slides over her body. He playfully watches the girl's curves. He puts his hand on her face, asks her to give him her blades and equipment, then is about to do something to her. John, smiling broadly, says that they will have nothing, because the smell of meat attracted the uninvited guest here. The silhouette of a huge animal appears behind the guys. Turning around, people immediately recognize the evolving beast by its eyes. They are the color of blood. The creature opens its mouth wide, revealing a row of sharp fangs. The wolf immediately jumps up from his place, piercing the neck of one of the guys present. Luke was clearly unhappy with this. He couldn't let his guard down. The survivors immediately activate their abilities, beginning to attack the creature. The wolf suddenly lunges to the side, bouncing off all skills thrown at him. The beast is extremely agile. It is necessary to attack it by surrounding it, one of them commands. Luca's body is shaking. He is breathing heavily, because he put a lot of effort into the previous attack. Frightened, someone realizes that 3 people are no match for the mutant. Turning towards the powerless warriors, something comes to his mind. Running towards Camilla and John, the guy hopes that now the wolf will change its focus to the heroes. He moves his legs quickly, following a deliberate trajectory. Jumping over John's body, Luke laughs and hopes that the creature will now attack him. The wolf continues to move forward, its mouth wide open. Then the main character grins and clicks his tongue, confident in his own luck. He gets up and uses a ripping fist to attack the oncoming mutant. Finding himself opposite him, he begins to conduct a dialogue. The beast's defense is not bad. It is not for nothing that he is a third-rank monster. Surprisingly, his head did not burst under the onslaught of his ability. Rising from the bushes, Luca is shocked to find that John is able to fight. But the boy is a rank 2, and the drug is designed to combat the rank 1. Confused, Luca asks why he needs to go to the city if he should have gotten his license a long time ago. Raising his hand to his face, the hero comes up with an excuse about his family not having much money. While he is talking to his interlocutor, the wolf sneaks up from behind, trying to attack. John turns sharply to the mutant, holding the wolf's paw with his hands, protecting it from attack. The creature flaps its claws, trying to injure its opponent. Looking down at his body, the hero thinks that because of the kit, he will not be able to realize his power at all. Then turning to the girl, John begins to shout at Camilla because she is also pretending. She looks at him and smiles, because she knew that this was far from all his abilities. But apparently, the time had come to support her student. Rising from the ground, she explains that she did not go to the city to get a license. The girl stands on the ground and confidently says that her goal was to fulfill the duties of an examiner. John's eyes widen, and she can't believe that this is a real teacher standing in front of her. While the boys are arguing, the animal watches from the side. After realizing this, the beast immediately pounces on the girl in order to tear her to pieces. She just smirked, took out her swords and headed towards the target. She likes fights. Activating the silver skill and directing it towards her feet, the girl bounces off the ground upwards. Then, with sharp movements, she cuts through space and cuts off the mutant's tail. Turning to John, she asks if her speed is good. But the hero, who was watching what was happening, was unhappy, because it was necessary to cut off the neck, and the technology did not give anything. After hearing this, Camilla clicks her tongue, because she simply set an example for her student. Confidence and bloodthirstiness are visible in her eyes. She asks to look carefully at what will happen. Activating her new ability, she quickly rushes between the creature and slices it. Stopping after the attack, an explosion rushes behind her, blowing everything in different directions. She distributed the energy of the origins simultaneously in her legs and blades, thereby significantly increasing her own speed and the power of the twin blades. The energy of the origins can apparently be used in a similar way. With the attack finished, Camilla turns to the bandits. It's time to settle their issues. The guys and girl watching what was happening were dumbfounded by the realization of how strong their opponents were. People come up to her and kneel down, beg for mercy, and promise that no one else will dare to behave like that. Looking at them, the girl frowns and remains silent, waiting for further developments. A second later, her hand rises up, cutting the face of Luca, who was previously sitting in front of her. The survivors look at what is happening in horror, not daring to say a word. The warriors again ask for mercy, swearing that they will change. No one would want to die like this. Sighing, Camilla explains that John saved this guy, and he, despite this, deliberately tried to use him as bait for the mutant, tried to harm her student. She herself is not eager to kill other people, but this guy repaid the kindness with black ingratitude. Having spared the others, the girl asks them not to be seen by her, so the guys get up and leave the crime scene. Left alone, the hero sighs and pities the killed Luke, looking at him from his own height. Camilla believes that a murderer cannot be shown mercy, and being a warrior, John cannot show a lady's mercy. But the main character explains that he is sorry that he did not deal with him personally. But in reality, it is only a matter of experience points. Stretching, Camilla sighs. Their business needs to be resolved now that the couple is finally alone. The guy wipes his hands, smirks, and starts joking about the romantic things between them. The girl swings her arm, slaps him, and points out that there should be respect for the teacher. Rubbing the place of the blow, the protagonist explains again that he did not agree to become a student. Apparently, John has a skill that can suppress power, because Camilla feels that his abilities are not limited to what she sees now. Hearing this, he tries to deny it, changes the subject, but if the other person doesn't want to talk, he can hide this information. Having the opportunity to ask questions of his new acquaintance, John immediately bombards her with questions of interest, such as how old this girl is. She is a 4th-rank warrior, truly an examiner. But during the exam, the hero cannot expect any special attention from her. But age cannot be revealed, since it is every girl's secret. However, if he becomes her student, the lady will teach him everything she knows while they are on their way to the city. And when they arrive, he will certainly receive a warrior's license. The girl continues to get her way, asking if her interlocutor has a teacher, and whether he thinks that Camilla is stronger than him. Having received a negative answer, she offers to fight, and if she wins, the hero will become her student. She will suppress her strength to the level of a 1st-rank warrior that he currently displays, and will also not use weapons. Adjusting his gloves, the hero agrees, but in his thoughts, he is only going to teach the girl a lesson. Camilla raises her finger and beckons him towards her. Without thinking, John uses the first skill. The air around him starts to spin. The guy runs up and activates his ripping fist, channeling the power into his arm. The girl also swings, not at all afraid of her enemy. Then, the main character thinks for a moment that if Camilla decided to resist his tearing fist, then there is a chance of tearing his hand. The boys' fists collide with each other, acting on each other. Once they are as close as possible, the opponents freeze in their attack for a moment. The hero is shocked to feel the incredible power emanating from the girl. Camilla's abilities are too high, so she pushes her opponent high into the air. Watching him, she puts her palm to her forehead and watches the flight path of the defeated guy. After some time, the forces of gravity lower the main character back to the ground. Once on the ground, John will lose his face. His limbs will hurt and ache greatly from the blow he received. Approaching him, Camilla asks if she convinced him to become her student, but the guy does not know how she did it. She is ready to teach him, but first it is necessary to clearly and distinctly call her a teacher. Despite her age, she really has high skill, and the lady managed to smash the tearing fist. The girl is really superior in strength. Embarrassed, the main character turns to the side and still decides to call the girl his teacher. She asks to repeat what was said louder, because it was too quiet, and Camilla could not hear what was said. Shaking with irritation, the guy asks not to overdo it. Then she laughs loudly, but in John's opinion, she doesn't look like the master at all. Turning to him, the girl smiles widely and promises to stop teasing him. Now, she is ready to explain why his recent blow did not withstand the heroine's hand. The reason is that the method by which John uses the powers of the source is fundamentally flawed. Turning to him, she asks him to look carefully at what is happening. She extends her hand forward, uses her force to direct it towards the stone, and then throws it in front of her. A solid object crashes into a rocky structure with great force. Small cracks appear on the object, left by the thrown stone. Despite the fact that after the infusion by the power of the sources the hardness of the stone increased, it still remained as it is. After infusing power, its hardness can increase by a maximum of 50%. So after impact, the object crumbles into dust. But if you pour energy not only into the stone, but also cover it from the outside, the result may change. The girl takes the stone again and throws it in the same direction. Now, the object destroys the boulder, scattering its parts to the sides. The stone is still affected by the power of the source, covering it with a pink color. It glows, teeming with the energy invested. Now he realized that if one wanted to realize the power of the origins to the maximum, it did not need to be poured into the weapon. Improvement techniques allow warriors to draw energy from the cosmos and concentrate it in their bodies, part of which they use to strengthen their muscles, skeleton, internal organs, and even cells, and the other part they accumulate in their bodies. It is this part that is called the power of origins. The warrior pours the power of origins into his weapon, thereby comprehensively increasing its quality indicators. But even having become harder, the weapon is not able to free itself from the quality properties of the matter from which it was created. But when, using the power of origins, its surface is covered, everything changes. Namely, the higher the power of origins, the greater the power the weapon is able to release. The guy can't understand why, then he doesn't notice any changes in the blade that she is now holding in her hands. All he sees is a pale layer of origin power on its surface. Apparently, John has never used the ability in front of his own eyes. The girl suggests trying to do it. Closing his eyes and getting into a comfortable position, the protagonist concentrates on activating the skill. He tries to perform this action by straining even more. And suddenly, his eyes light up with a blue fire. The activation was successful. Looking at the newly minted teacher, the boy suddenly realizes that by doing this, it is possible to more clearly see the power of the origins of other people. Looking with the naked eye, he can only see a faint glow emitted at the moment of the explosion of origin power. The origin power of warriors from the 1st to the 3rd ranks is blue, from the 4th to the 6th is purple, and from the 7th to the 9th is orange. Anything above the 9th glows gold, and when faced with an enemy, the hero will be able to determine his strength based on the color. This blade was indeed forged by Camille's mother, but the material it is made of is quite ordinary. Its market value is approximately 10 to 20,000 in alliance currency. But if a girl covers it with the power of origins, then the sharpness will be comparable to a weapon whose market value is several tens of millions. However, if she freely applies the power of origins exclusively inside the weapon, it can wear out quite easily. John doesn't understand why warriors try to get high-quality weapons. In response, the girl smiles understandingly to maintain balance. The weapon must be both coated with the power of the sources and poured inside. Each weapon has different quality indicators. Despite the outer coating of the power of the origins, each blow and the vibrations it creates can cause damage to the internal part of the weapon. Low-level weapons have low-quality indicators of the internal part. It is much easier to damage it when struck than high-rank weapons. Suddenly, the boy was struck by a thought. Before their fight, Camilla said that she would suppress her power to the level of a first-rank warrior. But the power of the origins that she poured into her fist and covered its surface was not at all at the level of a first-rank warrior. Rubbing the back of her head, the girl is embarrassed. It seems he is right. Hearing this, the main character gets angry, because she cheated, and in this case, the bet cannot be counted. Camilla explains that he called her a teacher, so he can no longer change his mind, but asks him not to worry. Their cooperation will not turn out to be anything bad for him. She hands John her blade and suggests that he try to wrap the power of the origins around him. Taking the weapon into his hand, he examines it, preparing to activate the skill. At first, the guy directs the power only into his hand holding the dagger. Straining even harder, the hero glares at the weapon, his forehead covered in sweat. Having let go of the attempt, he realizes that it is much more difficult now he managed to cover only 1 part out of 5. The girl encourages him, explains that this is not such an easy task even for third-rank warriors. Looking at him, Camilla thinks that she has a real talent in front of her. The hero thinks about the past, and catches himself thinking that Oliver did not use such a technique during their fight. Returning to his studies, he decides that he simply must learn this skill. The night came to an end. The sun rose above the horizon, illuminating everything around. The girl sits over the unsuspecting, sleeping hero. Suddenly, he opens his amber eyes and notices what is happening. Finding herself caught, Camilla jumps back, frightened by this. The hero grabs himself with his hands and asks not to touch him, because he is not one of those with whom you can be without any ceremony. Hearing this, the girl loses her temper, screaming and explaining that she noticed that John's clothes had restored themselves, and then she decided to check, but suddenly noticed that the guy was wearing weights. Stopping, Camilla praises the hero, who at that moment rubs the aching areas of his head after the blow. After this, the girl gets up and suggests starting today's workout. With the help of weights, their activity will be simply perfect. The goal will be to reach the nearby mountain before dark. John sighs and says that he studied the map and the hill is hundreds of kilometers away. Walking forward, Camilla smiles and asks to accompany the young lady on such a difficult adventure. Then, the main character stretches his hand forward, reminding us that he has weights on him. Suddenly, he turns around at the approaching noise. Several dozen man-eating birds fly towards John, preparing to attack. He suddenly pulls the sword from behind his back, drawing the weapon. Stopping in front of the enemy, the main character swings and cuts off the bird's head. At the same moment, he will be able to get the anomalous crystal from the mutant's body. Continuing to run, Camilla shouts after the student to kill the danger by continuing to move forward. The birds attack the hero with great enthusiasm, screaming and opening their beaks. The girl gives him a task to deal with the attack as he runs. Stopping is prohibited. Suddenly turning around, John finds himself face to face with the impending danger. But without stopping, he moves on and cuts off the creature's head. Camilla gave a test of accuracy, speed, and reaction speed. Now the student needs to determine the location of the crystal and remove it. The guy gets angry, because running away, killing them, and also taking out the jewelry seems impossible to him. He sees the impending danger before Camilla and warns her. Then, the lady pulls out the blades from behind her back and is going to prove that it can be done. As she continues on her way, she waves her arms and deals with all the birds. The anomalous crystal flies through the air until it is picked up. She explains that John only needs to achieve unity in speed, accuracy, and reaction speed. Turning to the student, Camilla opens her palm and shows the boy the precious stones. The hero tries to do as the girl asked and delivers an accurate blow. But in front of his face, the crystal shatters into small pieces. The guy doesn't give up, continuing to try again and again. But he can't make an accurate cut. Breathing heavily, he sits down on the ground, speaking of extreme fatigue. Throwing his head back, John asks for a rest, since they have already run quite a long distance. Turning to the teacher, he asks why the birds attacked only him. Smiling wryly, she admits that she rubbed John's clothes with something that attracts these birds. Hearing this information, the hero opens his eyes wide in surprise. The guy starts frantically examining his clothes and sniffing the fabric. Realizing the sincerity of her dreams, John confirms the presence of a strange smell. It seems the lady has gone too far. Standing up, Camilla explains that this was done for his development, and now they are moving towards the mountain without stopping to rest. The guy throws his head back. Offended, it's obvious that only 2 minutes have passed. John looks up tiredly and smiles crookedly at the girl. She's not joking, holding her blade to his neck and pointing viciously, telling him that he should listen to her. Slowly getting up, the guy agrees. He leans heavily and holds onto his legs. Opening the system, John notices that after his morning run, the progress has increased to 6,000. At this rate, he will be able to complete the task before reaching the city. Noticing movement to the side, the hero discovers birds approaching again. Despite some doubts about Camilla's methods, he cannot deny their effectiveness. Holding the anomalous crystal he had obtained, he felt his speed and accuracy steadily increase. The sunset is gathering in the sky, and animals are slowly crawling into their holes. Already completely unable to feel his legs from fatigue, the hero laughs hysterically. He has finally reached his goal. As he lands on the ground, John is outraged by the route he had to take. Approaching him, the girl does not understand why he is indignant, because she herself has run thousands of kilometers. Turning towards the landscape, Camilla adds that there are ruins in front of them, and they will go there to make camp for the night. The hero yawns from exhaustion, continuing to breathe heavily as a dart is aimed at his head from behind. Fortunately, the girl manages to discover this and fights off the danger with her dagger. Then John turns around in fear, covering his mouth with his hand. Camilla encounters enemies who have been following them for 5 hours, and only now decided to attack. The brunette was not at all surprised that she managed to notice their presence. Their plans were to deal with the main character when he was completely exhausted, and then take on her. The guy realizes that he didn't notice their aura the whole way. If it weren't for Camilla, he would have probably died. These are brothers known for attacking warriors in the Starlight area for the purpose of robbery. The Federation has declared the men wanted, and the reward for their heads is approximately 50 million. The brunette smiles confidently, hearing about himself. He did not expect that the date was familiar with them. As they head into the attack, the hero discovers that the men are 4th rank. Gritting his teeth tighter, John realizes that the fight promises to be difficult, since he is of a lower rank. Coming closer, Camilla asks to watch carefully how she will use the power of the origins in this fight. The power of the girl's source energy is many times greater than the strength of the guy she met. A long-haired brunette with a smile on his face catches up with his opponent, preparing to attack. At that very moment, Camilla, without thinking, wounds the attacker with a sharp swing of her blades, after which, she pushes the man aside with her foot. His brother also decides to approach the lady in order to try to teach a lesson and avenge his brother. He comes closer, his hands and weapons glowing with the power of the source. Giggling, Camilla intercepts it with her blade and asks if this is her opponent's maximum power. She thrusts her hand forward, plunging the blade into the enemy's flesh. Brother yells at an ally to activate a joint combat skill. After a few moments, the men straighten out and run next to each other. One of them boasts that the power of their combined skill can be equal to that of a 5th-rank warrior. The second one moves forward with great enthusiasm, trying to attack his opponents. The brunette bounces off the ground as the second brother tightens his grip on the handle of his weapon. They skillfully activate their ability by taking the required location. The blade splits in two, hovering in the sky. An incredible power can be felt emanating from them. Then, the brunette, enjoying the fight, launches small arrows into the ring. As they pass through the circle, there are more and more of them. As a result, the boys are rained down with deadly attacks. John watches what is happening with fear. This is what a combined skill looks like, which requires 2 or more people despite the strange name. The power of the ability is considerable. Clicking her tongue, the girl looks up and smiles with satisfaction, because for her, these are childish tricks. Crossing her blades, she uses a defensive skill. The guys are surrounded by a protective ball. Now, all attacks flying at them become useless, because the arrows fall all around without having time to wound. Looking at what is happening, John is shocked. Is the girl really at the 6th rank? He had heard that some high-level warriors, after reaching a certain level of cultivation, were able to forcibly shrink their body in this way, achieving a rejuvenating effect. I wonder if it is likely that Camilla is not a young lady, but an adult woman. Having jumped to the ground, the guys do not understand where such a fighter came from, because only weak warriors should walk along this path. Smiling sweetly, Camilla decides that it is time for her to begin her attacks. Taking hold of the blades, the girl immediately activates the golden skill. Her hands glow yellow. As she finishes the phrase with the name of the ability, she smiles smugly. Against the backdrop of an orange sunset, bloodstains and human remains fly off. Seeing this, John is horrified. Apparently this is what the power of a 6th-rank warrior looks like. Her enemies were defeated in the blink of an eye. Coming closer, the hero notices that the fighters are still alive. I wonder if they will give him experience. John moves awkwardly towards his target and raises his sword. He thrusts the weapon into the enemy with a sharp movement. Turning to the student, Camilla watches him questioningly. The guy has such hobbies as well. Frozen in the same pose, he does not understand why nothing happened. Apparently the system does not work that way. Suddenly, he receives a notification that John has received over 3 million experience for both warriors and has risen to level 16. The girl looks at the students with apprehension and asks them not to tell her that after running he had brain fatigue. The hero sheepishly asks if it is possible for him to deal the finishing blows to the girl's enemies. She rolls her eyes and says that if he wants to earn some pocket money, then let him go kill himself. The fact that the boys came across criminals for whom the federal government has put a reward is pure chance, because the reward just happened to be at hand. Camilla does not understand how he has the conscience to try to appropriate this pittance for himself. The hero, making an offended face, listens to everything, but his experience points are nowhere near the money. Suddenly, the system sends a message about a system error being detected, and the correction process starts. The carrier has inflicted less than 40% of the damage to a warrior who is at a high level relative to the carrier. For this reason, the amount of experience learned will be 1/10 of the total, so the carrier's level is reduced to level 15, and the characteristic points are removed. The hero speaks out loud to the system, which informs him that due to the detection of an error, the carrier receives a reward in the form of 3 spins. The carrier's 16th level will be saved. Noticing this, Camilla is truly frightened by the student's condition, but he denies everything. In that case, the girl suggests continuing to run in order to reach the city by tomorrow before dark. Having collected the meat, the boys light a fire and cook it to replenish their strength. The girl pounces on the prepared food. Then John decides to voice his question and asks if she has tried it before. He looks at Camilla and asks her not to rush. Looking up, the girl is indignant in her tone. As punishment after dinner, they will go to evening training. Since they will reach the city tomorrow, they cannot miss the opportunity to improve their skills. Looking suspiciously at the girl, John asks if the girl will deliberately put a spoke in his wheel during the exam. She waves her hand and says that she can't be so careless. Today, the hero will continue to train his control of the power of origins. Having given him her weapon, the girl asks to cover the blade with energy. He does it well, then asks to cover his body with power. Looking at him from the side, she smirks. His abilities are not up to par. The girl smiles, clenching her hand into a fist. His progress should be tested with an attack, after which the girl hits the hero in the stomach. The guy's face contorts in pain and surprise. He bounces in the opposite direction, hitting a tree he encounters on the way. At this point, an explosion occurs from the collision of two objects. Getting up, the protagonist loses his temper, assuming that the girl wants him dead. Smiling broadly, she asks if he felt his defenses strengthen. Stopping, the heroes think. Because if the girl hadn't said so, he really wouldn't have noticed something like that. The force of Camilla's blow was quite high. Logically, he should have been injured, but he only feels a little pain. Right now, the protagonist's energy is still quite weak. As it becomes stronger, covering his body with the power of the origins will provide him with even greater protection. A special part of their evening training will involve taking beatings. Hearing this, the main character is seriously frightened and looks at his interlocutor with wide eyes. He doesn't have time to react when a fist flies into his face. Then the guy starts running from tree to tree, trying to avoid new attacks, asking for mercy. John is offended and indignant. Because he asked not to touch his face, the girl is going to somehow make amends. Then the interlocutor laughs and offers to pay with his body. Stopping, the girl raises her hand and hits the hero in the face again. Suddenly, she stops walking and suggests starting today's workout. Before evening comes, he needs to run to the city in front of him. Without thinking, the teacher pushes the hero forward and shouts for him to begin. They head towards the buildings, joking and laughing. The sun is already high above the horizon. The luminary illuminates the marble columns and buildings. Oliver's father sits in a chair and reflects on his son's actions, because he died at the hands of a high school student. The butler comes up and says that there is no way this guy could have done something like this on his own. They suspect that someone was helping him from the shadows. According to the information available, he is on good terms with the Federal Army and has also been awarded the Order of the First Star. Initially, he was an ordinary loser, but in just 6 months, his powers increased significantly. The hero not only reached the second rank, but also received an award. Such a person cannot be taken lightly. Clutching the handle of his chair, he believes that the clan cannot lose more than it has already lost. So John heads to the city to get a license. And he just happens to have a friend in those parts. He has already enlisted his support, who in turn agreed to destroy the hero. Finally, the guys reach their goal, walking freely through the city streets. They approach a prominent building called the Hall of Hidden Treasures. The girl suggests taking a look around the place, and the guy in turn gets indignant because she calls him a student in front of people. Turning around, Camilla teases the hero, continuing to call him that over and over again. A pretty salesgirl greets people who have arrived. Her assortment includes combat skill cards, anomalous crystal, weapons, and combat equipment. Camilla confidently moves forward and asks John to follow her. The teacher will pick out a couple of combat skill cards for him. Looking at the display case, the girl is outraged by the presence of only silver cards. Looking up, she decides to check if they have any diamonds, but such things cannot be found in the whole city. Those present in the store rudely discuss her behavior, believing that the girl does not understand what she is talking about. Then she turns her gaze to her student and asks him to look at the cards he has. The men continue to discuss all this sarcastically, coming closer and addressing the people. John closes his eyes and explains that they use a spear, and these cards are sharpened for swords and blades. Surprised, Camilla asks where his weapon is, since he has been carrying a sword all this time. He explains that the weapon broke during a battle in the Starlight area, and after receiving his warrior license, he planned to buy a new one through the Warrior Alliance network. Looking at him, the heroine silently agrees. Turning to the seller, Camilla asks him to sell her all the selected cards, poking at each of them. Bowing slowly, the girl takes the money in her hand and promises that everything will be done now. The total amount for purchasing the 8 silver combat skill cards was 2,500,600,000. Holding out the cards, the girl asks not to lose them. This is a welcome gift from the teacher. The protagonist looks down and begins to examine the available abilities. Something tells him that these cards are unlikely to surpass those that are already there. Returning to him, Camilla adds that she did not see his fight with a spear. If the guy thinks that the cards do not suit him, then he can sell them. As for weapons, nothing in this shop caught her attention, but she asks not to worry. The teacher will prepare a big surprise for the hero. The men who were in the store with them are biting their elbows as they watch the people leave. It was getting dark outside, and without a second thought, Camilla went and rented 2 luxury rooms at a cost of $500,000 a night. I wonder how much time he could save in fighting endless adversity if he were in such a state. Returning to the topic, is the girl really an old woman? Sitting down on the platform, John takes out new cards. It is necessary to study 3 hand-to-hand combat abilities. There is no use from the spear skills, but later he uses them for synthesis. One by one, the protagonist takes out abilities, reading their purpose. He will probably be able to increase the power of his attack while using the Ripping Fist. Using one of the new abilities after hitting targets with a Ripping Fist or a moment before will allow you to create the effect of surprise and destroy the enemy's hand with one attack. Suddenly the door behind him opens, but it's already quite late. As he approaches, John hopes that the teacher hasn't gotten it into his head to organize a new round of training. As he approaches the door, the guy hears the voice of the servant, who says that her friend has ordered a night snack for the guy. He closed his eyes with pleasure. What an attentive girl this was. After a whole evening of training, he was really a little hungry. Approaching the door, John smiles good-naturedly and thanks for the dinner he brought. Suddenly, a weapon appears from behind the curtains, foreshadowing danger. Fortunately, the main character manages to notice this in time, so he jumps away from the cutting object. Thanks to training with Camilla, the hero automatically activates the power of the origins, protecting his body. The old man, sitting inside the cart with food, is surprised by what he sees, because he did not offend the hero for having such abilities. Then, the guy immediately uses a chain of blows, which is a skill he just learned. But the attacker jumps back and climbs the wall, avoiding a new attack. Then, the hero tries to touch the old man with his foot, waving it near him. But the opponent is very fast and elusive, so he climbs onto the ceiling, planning to attack from behind. Jumping down from above, he again takes out his dagger and aims at the enemy, trying to wound him. And here, John again protects his body with energy, preventing possible damage. Stopping, the old man widens his eyes, not understanding at all where the second-rank warrior got such amazing defense from. Then, the hero activates another skill. Sparks of fire dance around as he reaches for the enemy's hand. At that moment, the opponent's limb bursts into flames. John at this moment extends his hand forward, and his opponent jumps back to a safe distance. Shaking his burnt limb and trying to brush away the fire, the old man thinks that the information about the guy was unreliable. Suddenly, he opens his eyes and sees the protagonist's fist catching up with him in a new attack. The guy delivers another blow, activating his honed skill. Then, the enemy flies to the side by inertia due to the applied force. The second-rank warrior is destroyed. The observer from the sidelines grits his teeth, catching himself thinking that John should have specialized in working with a spear. Suddenly, the protagonist turns his head towards the second target. He looks at him with fear, afraid that the same fate awaits him as the allied fighter. Suddenly, the hero runs and rushes towards the warrior. It uses a burst of accumulated power and also activates a new melee ability. Having fallen to the ground, the man looks at the hero in fear, because he was pinned down by just one impulse. He stretches out his hand and asks him to stop, because he is a member of the Palace of Deification, so he cannot kill him. But, after a few moments, the second-rank warrior was already destroyed. The man is slammed into the wall, his structure being destroyed by the incredible force. Looking at the dead warrior, the protagonist thinks that the Palace of Deification sounds quite impressive. Without hiding his power, John would hardly have been able to deal with his enemies so easily. This is probably the clan's trick. Watching everything from the side, Camilla praises the hero for being able to cope so quickly. In an instant, he was able to cover vital points with energy and prevent the blade from injuring him. Apparently, the training was paying off. Coming closer to the girl, John asks how long she had been watching him. Smiling, she replies that ever since man raised a weapon. Hearing this, the hero quickly loses his temper because the teacher watched as two people attacked him. But Camilla continues to calmly finish her tea, because she is completely confident in his abilities. Asking from the railing, she promises to arrange for the guy to be given a new room and for the bodies to be removed. As she leaves, the girl asks not to worry. Everything will be done to the highest standard. The day comes. The sun rises into the sky, illuminating the streets and buildings. The Warrior Alliance branch is in full turmoil, with many people standing in line. I smile peacefully at the girl and tell her that the certification will begin exactly at 9 o'clock, and ask those who have already registered to go to the side to confirm their participation, after which people need to head to the Northern Pavilion, where their combat capability will be measured. The girl says goodbye to the hero and wishes him good luck. She needs to go to the examiner's room and report her arrival. Turning towards the departing woman, John is convinced of her position as an examiner. Pushing everyone around, the giant asks to go forward to the window. Some in the crowd are indignant, while others, on the contrary, are afraid of the man who has arrived. In fact, this man already has the rank of warrior, so it is advised not to mess with him. Approaching the main character from behind, the giant begins to get indignant and reaches out to the guy with his hand. He grabs the man by the hand and demands that he not crowd and stand in line like everyone else. He is surprised by what he hears. No one had dared to say such a thing to him before. He sighs, not understanding why every year he meets warriors who think they are immortal. But still, he likes to put people like John in their place. Those watching from the sidelines understand what to expect from the giant, and are afraid of the future outcome. Despite all that has been said, the protagonist continues to hold the new rival's hand. He loses his temper and swings his fist towards the guy. He, in turn, immediately uses a tearing fist to respond to the attack. Their forces collide with each other, creating a wind current around the opposition. Then John smiles confidently, knowing for sure that he will win. The giant clenches his teeth even harder from the strain and emerging pain. At that moment, the attacker's arm is twisted, bruises appear on it, and the hero smugly says that the enemy won't get a license this year. Turning to the others, he asks if there are any others who would like to skip the queue. People standing to the side smile tensely, looking at the main character. The observers wave their hands politely and say that they had no intention of going forward. On this important day, many people have gathered in the arena to receive warrior licenses. They line up to prove their combat readiness for further examination. The controller looks tiredly at the tablet screen and calls John to come to him. He thinks that the combat readiness of the warriors undergoing certification here is on average plus or minus 800. In other words, they have only recently reached the first rank. The guy wonders if the machine will be able to determine his true strength if he activates camouflage. That is, the ability to hide his true capabilities. After some thought, he slowly approaches the device, which lights up blue. After a few seconds, the robot voice says that the hero's combat capability is almost 1,500. Then, John exhales. Just a little bit more, and it would have been the second rank. And a warrior who did not have a license at that level would only have caused laughter. The observers look at him from the side and now understand why the main character was able to defeat the giant with such ease. A voice from the speakers asks the warriors to enter the hall for a strength test. Camilla, already dressed in a red suit, asks those present to line up. The hero is convinced for the last time that the teacher did not deceive her in her position. He refused to believe this until the very end. She adds that the test will be considered passed if the force of a single punch reaches 1,000 kilograms. The man who came up lowering his head asks if Camilla is the examiner. The girl looks at him calmly, asking if he has any problems. Then the candidate laughs, turns around and receives support from the rest of those present. Looking at her, the men continue to tell jokes, trying to offend the lady. Lowering her hand, Camilla begins to speak in a calm tone. She decides to prove her strength to her offenders. Remaining in the same pose, the girl hits the device with her fist. Without taking her eyes off the men, Camilla asks them to open their eyes wider and take a closer look. The device displays the largest number available, which is 99,999 kilograms. With their mouths open in surprise, they look at the screen of the device with shocked eyes. One of the guys present comes closer and asks to let him try it, because he doesn't believe in the device's functionality. He swings his fist and hits the right spot. A smaller number appears on the screen, namely 895 kilograms, which is not enough to pass the test. Turning to her, the candidate shouts at the girl, believing that she had deliberately set it up. She seriously repeats that his strength level is unsatisfactory, so the guy can go free. He loses his temper and rage and swings his fist to strike, but Camilla intercepts the blow with her hand. Without looking up from her tablet, she coldly twists her offender's arm. He screams hysterically in pain and holds onto his injured limb. The girl turns to the candidate once again and says that he has only 30 seconds to leave there. After a slight pause, she continues that otherwise, he will remain in this place forever. The candidate stands up abruptly, apologizes, and immediately leaves the scene of the crime, smiling embarrassedly. Turning to the others, Camilla asks if there are any other doubts that need to be cleared up. Returning her gaze to the list, the girl frowned and her eyes darted over the names. Suddenly, she looks up and excitedly calls out to her own student. An indignant John approaches the heroine and again asks her not to call him that. Rubbing his forehead, he talks about his doubts about the girl's position. She smiles widely and continues to brag, saying that she is also a 3-star member of the Warrior Alliance. The guy's eyes widen in surprise. The hierarchy of the Warrior Alliance members has 5 ranks, with 5-star members essentially being the leaders of the Alliance. 4-star members are heads of various states or warriors who have made great contributions, while 3-star members of the Alliance are at least outstanding warriors with great strength. Turning to him, Camilla asks if the hero thinks his teacher is cool. Approaching the device, the guy calmly strikes the required spot. 1,999 kilograms appears on the screen. Everyone around starts whispering about why the student and teacher are so young and strong at the same time. The girl is not happy with the efforts made, and says that John will have to run a 100-meter race next, which will test his explosive power, as well as a 50-kilometer marathon, which will test his endurance. After some time, when the main character passes all the necessary tests, he is congratulated on joining the Warrior Alliance. The administrator hands John a card. The identification number is on the back of it. The initial password is the last 6 numbers of the identification. With this card, he can log into the Warrior Alliance network via phone or computer, where it is possible to make information requests, purchase weapons, or accept various tasks. Taking the new thing in his hand, the guy smiles broadly and thanks the girl. Finally, Camilla finds her student and asks in a welcoming tone if he has received the necessary license. She takes the guy by the hand, saying that a couple of minutes ago she received a new task from the Alliance, so she will have to leave soon. But the hero is only happy about it. Turning her head towards her student, the girl asks why he didn't try to persuade her to stay. The guy immediately falls to his knees and pretends to ask her not to leave, but to continue watching the training. After watching, Camilla slaps the student for this, and then asks where John plans to go. He says that he was accepted to the university, so to get there, he will have to cross the path of death. After all, now you can't go anywhere without a diploma. This is a very dangerous business, being as uneducated as the hero is now. However, refusing is not an option either. Pointing to the box, the girl says that she has prepared a gift for John in honor of his successful certification. This spear, Camilla convinced the local Alliance branch head to part with it. Despite the effectiveness that the weapon achieves when a person turns it into source powers, having a high-ranking weapon will still have a serious impact on the increase in combat effectiveness. Looking down, the protagonist asks her if this is a high-ranking weapon. This spear is called the Black Ray, and it originally belonged to a master of the art named Carl. Turning towards his teacher, the main character looks at her thoughtfully. The protagonist turns towards the gift again and remains silent. He shouts that Carl is really the head of the branch of the Warrior Alliance, to which he receives a negative answer. Then, John makes new assumptions. Camilla is his daughter, and the man gave this spear to the head of the outer branch of the Warrior Alliance, but the girl returned it. She exhales tiredly and refutes what was said. Why would she be this man's daughter? Is she really that old? After a few moments, John calms down and says that she could be his granddaughter, but the girl loses her temper and yells at him, after which she finally offers to try out the gift. Taking hold of the spear handle, the boy feels the weight of the new weapon. He shakes with effort and turns bright red, asking how much the instrument weighs. Standing next to him, the girl smiles, saying that the weight is 500 kilograms. No wonder the main character can barely lift it off the ground. This is as it should be. Since the spear was forged from a special iron material, there is no other weapon in the world made from this metal. Are we really talking about the meteorite that fell to Earth 100 years ago and destroyed an entire city? At least by that time the place was already filled with zombies and evolved animals, so there were no human casualties. In the crater it formed after its fall, a fairly large black stone remained. A group of people took it and, using all their skill, forged 12 units of unique weapons. Although in terms of sharpness it does not claim to be the best. However, in terms of durability it ranks highest in the whole world. Having realized all this, the main character turns to Camilla and asks if she is really giving him such an expensive weapon. Taking out her gadget, she becomes distracted, assuming that this is where their paths will diverge. Someday they will see each other again. There will obviously be an opportunity. She asks John to visit the Heavenly City. There he will be able to find her. And then he is shocked by what he hears, surprised by this statement. The Sky City is the largest in the world, which was raised into the air using the most advanced levitation techniques. Not just anyone is allowed in. For people who want to come, the minimum threshold is the 5th rank, or outstanding achievements in the field of science. Apparently, the teacher really is a rich middle-aged woman, and he is wondering if he should consider the prospect of coming under her wing. Well, it would still be better to set out on the path to death with dignity. But in the clear sky, one can see clouds slowly floating across it. But this calm is destroyed by a scream from the house. The man is unhappy that 2 second-rank warriors couldn't handle 1 first-rank warrior. The servant sits on his knees and apologizes. The strength he has demonstrated is hardly limited to such abilities. Out of aggression, the gentleman breaks the plate, throwing it to the side. Initially, he just wanted to do the clan a favor since he was on friendly terms with them. But now this kid has killed his people. He can't get out of the city alive. At the station, it is announced that the flight has already departed. Passengers who missed it should go to the main hall to change or return their ticket. Approaching the checkout, the hero opens his eyes wide, surprised by this information. He decides to check if trains go there 3 times a day. The girl continues to explain that since the route is an extremely dangerous place, few people travel along this route. Due to its unprofitability, the daily number has been reduced from 3 to 1. Without thinking twice, John decides to buy a ticket for tomorrow. Since his transport leaves tomorrow morning, he should spend the night in the same hotel. The price is, of course, steep, but the conditions are really comfortable. Turning back, he notices surveillance. Apparently, the Palace of Deification decided to give experience again. Without thinking twice, the guy picks up speed and runs down the street at high speed. And then, a group of people stands in his way and makes sarcastic jokes about his desire to run. Standing in the middle of the street, John asks if they are tired of following him all the way from the station. All those who came are warriors of the 2nd rank. Although there are stronger ones, it seems that the Palace of Deification decided to take it seriously. Suddenly, he receives a notification about the completion of the rapid growth task. The system congratulates him on receiving 50 points. The hero activates the Eye of Analysis and studies everyone present, also seeing their names. One of them, whose name is Peter, is glad that his rival understands everything that is happening. At this point, John takes off all his weighted equipment and throws it on the floor. Finally, the guy freed himself from such a burden and asked the system to convert all the points he earned into strength. Those present are surprised because he was wearing such heavy equipment. Peter doesn't worry. He rushes into battle and asks not to fool the others. He cuts through the air in front of him, swinging his sword from side to side. But suddenly something happens. There is no one in front of him, although a couple of moments ago the hero was standing right in this place. Suddenly, John appears behind his opponent, ready to strike. Then the guy uses a hand-to-hand skill, thereby pushing the enemy in the back. Those watching from the side are surprised by what they see, but are still ready to stand up for their friend. John doesn't give up his position, swinging his legs and pushing away the approaching danger. He smiles widely and continues to beat up everyone present here. The guy also uses a tearing fist, dealing with the 2nd-rank warriors one after another. 2 fighters jump at the main character from different sides, swinging their swords. Then the guy grabs their hands and manages to intercept the attacks. After that, he uses a silver skill and sets their limbs on fire with a bright flame. And again, 2 notifications come from the system, talking about the destruction of second-rank warriors. The onlooking fighters watch in horror as John's strength is clearly greater than what they were warned about. Peter is also impressed by the hero's abilities. If not for his defensive technique, his spine would have already been broken. He is willing to do anything to destroy the enemy, so he uses movement techniques. Many silhouettes of Peter appear around the guy, surrounding him from all sides. Without a second thought, the protagonist rushes at one of them and activates the ripping fist. And then, he passes through matter, finding himself on the other side of man. He becomes frightened when he realizes that it was not a real body. Peter sneaks up behind him, raising the cutting weapon high above his head. Looking at the enemy with a cold and empty gaze, he again delivers a slashing blow with